Okay, hello, welcome. I recently was part of a Pokemon Generation 7 Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon Draft League, and I had a pretty good time. So, I wanted to do a little recap video to go over some of the stuff. I had an idea to make this a lot more dressed up the first time around, but I simply can't be bothered. There's way too much information. So if you're here strictly for the meat and potatoes, I got good news for you. That's the only thing you're gonna get. And if you were looking for something pleasant to fall asleep to, maybe you'll actually enjoy this because it's just going to be me talking for the most part and going over some of these sets, but don't expect any fancy animations or anything. So, going ahead and starting us off, we did a snake draft. I believe I was the third overall pick, and we had 10 teams, so that's 9 weeks for everyone to play against everyone else. And then this is kind of some of the guys that I got from the draft, and I was just going to talk about some general sets that I had for each of them before we go in and look at my opponent's team and kind of how I came up with my ideas to counter each one of those. So first, we're going to go ahead and take a look at this Aegislash. So this was my first pick in the draft. As you can see, Generation 7, this guy's an Uber. So I saw him in the draft and I said, I don't really get a chance to use this guy very much on account of him being Uber status. And you know what? He's Uber for a reason. He's got some ridiculous stats, right? I see that number 150, and then that number 150 is also used when, he attacks, which is pretty nuts. So I thought, pretty good item that I've been using with Aegislash was Cold Berry, because you get rid of that weakness. Air Balloon is also good. Very similar reason, gets rid of the weakness, but Air Balloon is also doubly good because Aegislash already has 3 resistances, so adding a 4th one, you'll often run into Pokemon that can't even break the Air Balloon. And you have some of these other items that, are fine. I didn't really end up using a whole lot of them. I did think about a gimmick set that I'll talk about in a minute with weakness policy. But for the most part, stuck with pretty normal stuff. I also normally stuck with being a physical attacker, and I think that was just kind of a product of the teams that I ran into. But, oh my god, you realize Ghost is not resisted by very many types, and very few Pokemon in this game. So you can really get away with spamming strong Ghost type moves. I actually don't know if I ran a Steel type move like almost any week, or if I did, it was just for coverage on like 1 or 2 guys. And it pairs so well with a fighting type move that like this alone can get you through a lot of battles. And Swords Dance obviously like makes you a lot more threatening. I don't think I ever actually had a week that I used Swords Dance as well. Shadow Sneak was really nice. Priority is just really important to have in general, but especially on a draft team. I feel like you need a certain amount of like many different roles. You need a certain amount of removal. You need a certain amount of speed control. You need a certain amount of priority. You need a certain amount of immunities, resistance, all that stuff, and hazards really. And I feel like he served this nice niche of like having priority on top of just being like a ridiculously good Pokemon. Other thing is King Shield is such a good move. So this was before the nerf. This lowers your attack by 2 stages if you hit it. So important. Like, you get in situations with Pokemon that have already set up, and if they attack you and you King Shield, it totally removes their ability to threaten you and just resets the situation, which is insane. And then for them to not attack you, they are completely exposing themselves to getting hit in return, which you can see I got Shadow Ball on this set. Again, this is kind of just a made-up set, but with leftovers. You can also I was in some situations where, you have something with Sucker Punch, and you can run enough speed to outspeed them, and then you just substitute on them, and then that just adds to like the mind games of all the different things that you can throw at him. And even just Toxic, right? Like this guy is just so bulky, right? Like again, let's look at these stats. Like this is like almost like Dusclops level defenses and HP and everything. Like that's nothing to scoff at. So just even running like Toxic Stall is really viable on the on top of the fact, of course, that Shadow Ball hits really hard if you go offensive. And Shadow Ball is also nice because it's a move that the luck is in your favor. So rather than having lower accuracy, it's actually 20% of the time that you can cheese through people, which is also important. Again, like if you're facing a Pokemon that has Wish or some other recovery move and it's just trying to spam that in front of you, they can't really get away with that because eventually you will get the drop and you'll create like an opening off of that. But other Interesting options on Aegislash. So I mentioned earlier the weakness policy. You can run that with a Totemize and try to like cheese through people. I thought was really funny. Destiny Bond, usually not that viable on this guy because, you know, how slow he is, but definitely worth a shout. You have steel moves, right? You have your Flash Cannon, your Iron Head. Gyro Ball is also pretty good. Again, I don't think I even ended up using a steel move, like maybe once the entire league. Head Smash is also nice, right? So certain Pokemon, I remember like Zapdos and stuff. I never actually ended up running Head Smash, but the fact that you can threaten that, I think is pretty good. I also like Pursuit. I think it's so funny because this is never a Pokemon that you actually see use Pursuit, but it has it in the moveset. It has 150 base attack. Like, it's certainly an option on the table. So I think this was nice because you can kind of catch people off guard with it. And there's so many psychic types that are just ridiculously frail on the physical side that you can kind of come in and, you know, they're expecting to switch out on you and you just kind of shut that down, you know? And you can run like choice sets with this. A lot of fun. You have other rock moves here. Other than that, you know, not too much to say about Aegislash. I feel like the variation really comes down to the EVs, right? Like, you can lower speed and run like a mixed set. You can make it defensive. You can make it offensive. You can have like mixed offenses where you run like Shadow Ball, Shadow Sneak. Like, the set variety really comes down to the EVs, and it's also nice because it creates outs against sweepers, but also its typing and just the way that the Pokemon works, I guess, as a whole, can just like shut down certain opposing Pokemon in a way that they can't like counter set, right? Like, this is a Pokemon that I feel like when I bring it, it's going to get its job done, and there's no like bait set necessarily for an Aegislash or something. And you know, the moveset variety isn't necessarily that strong, but it doesn't need it, right? Because again, just having a ghost move and Sacred Sword is usually enough to like do super big damage to most Pokemon, that even if they see it coming, you know, there's not a whole lot they can do to stop that. Speaking of which, here's another Pokemon that no matter how you prepare, you really cannot stop it from doing its job. I saw this guy on the market. So we had in our draft league kind of points that each Pokemon was assigned, and if I go look now, Aegislash was in the top tier. So in tier 1, he also was worth 19 points. Charizard was a little bit further down, also tier 1, but 16 points. But again, I saw this and my eyes were just watering because I know that this guy hits like a truck and has a lot of set variety. So this is an interesting quirk of any Pokemon that had been around since Gen 3 had like ridiculous move pools by this point, because this was kind of the only era of Pokemon, which is weird to even talk about that this is over with, you know, Generation 8 onward. But back then, you know, all generations, you get everything from the previous generations. So like, if we just go through and look at this guy's moveset, like, there is just some insane options here. Like, there are just so many moves, and it just goes on and on. Why does he learn to Ominous Wind? Like, when did that happen, you know? Like, Skull Bash. Like, that, I don't even know if that move exists anymore. So you just have, like, this ridiculously long moveset on any Pokemon that is Gen 3 or prior, combined with, you know, Blaze and all this stuff. I thought this guy was a great pick. Also works well with Aegislash, right? Fire hits Aegislash. Fire does not hit Charizard. Ground hits Aegislash. Ground does not hit Charizard before it Mega Evolves. So, yeah, that's good, right? To put it in a very simple word. Let's go ahead and look at this moveset. First of all, Dragon Dance. You know, you got 100 speed. That's, I would say, this generation average, maybe a little above average, but you combine that with Dragon Dance, holy cow. I feel like this is a great amount of speed that one Dragon Dance can put you past everything. Like, I know there's a calc that if you run absolutely 0 speed, like drop it all the way down here, one Dragon Dance puts you past like max speed Latios, right? I think like that 115 is like, there are very few Pokemon past that 115 speed tier. Or maybe it's 110, actually. Maybe it's 110 on those guys. Maybe 115 is a little too fast. But anyways, great speed tier for sweeping. Good enough to like get by a lot of those weird support Pokemon. You have your option of Dragon and Fire move. So there's actually some pretty significant trade-offs to either of these. Outrage, right? You just hit like a freaking truck. You're locked into it though. So if they have a Steel type, if they have a Fairy type, Outrage can be a bit of a problem. It's not as bad if you're just trying to trade because if they switch into the fairy as you outrage, it just cancels the move, and then you can just go for your fire move the next turn. But something to think about. It's also funny that once you get set up, your attack is so high that the confusion from outrage, you can actually like end up doing 80% to yourself. So that's just a matter of luck. But if you've gotten to that point, you've already unleashed 2 or 3 outrages. That probably means you've taken down 2 or 3 Pokemon. Not a huge problem. Fire Punch. This move is weak. If Charizard had something in the middle, it would be even more ballistic. But 75 is really weak, and then the alternative, like you run Flare Blitz, you do a lot of recoil to yourself, and especially if you're not HP invested. So there's situations where like you fight against a Blissey, and you're like, oh, this is great, I can OHKO it. And it's like you take so much from recoil that you pretty much just OHKO yourself as well, which why Roost kind of helps even out this set. And Roost is also really nice because you have like fat Pokemon like Alomomola or Pex or something that like unless it has a status move, you just Roost on it forever. And if it does have a status move, you run Sub, and they have there's like another class of Pokemon that it kind of invalidates, if you will. So Sub, if you think the Pokemon's going to be so passive it can't even break the Sub. If it's going to kind of be like middle amount, then you have like Roost just to keep yourself healthy. And then, you can kind of run your other moves here. Depending on the team, you could even run like a mono attacking set. Like if they don't have a fairy and their steel type is not looking like particularly sturdy, you could probably just go like mono dragon move with this guy. So other setup one, I actually did end up running this one week. I think it's kind of fun. First of all, again, because we're looking at a Pokemon that's been around since Gen 3, we have so many options. One of those is Swords Dance, and when you have this like ridiculous attack stat, I like pairing it with Flame Charge because there's sometimes, turns where your attack is so high that you just really need like any move. And so they also get a speed boost out of this is ridiculous. This can catch people off guard because they see Swords Dance, they think that you're not going to speed boost, and then, you speed boost, you go nuts. Dragon Claw, if you don't want to deal with, the outrage nonsense. Earthquake, another great coverage move. I actually ended up, I don't think even using Earthquake once. The issue with this is it's not Tough Claws boosted, and it gets to a point where like there's actually very few Pokemon that take more Earthquake damage than other moves, and you'd rather just keep your other stabs. But with this set, there was one more move I wanted to talk about with the fire and dragon, but I can't remember, so we're just going to skip it. We can look through some of the, like Counter would be like a fun cheese. I know also for certain like bulky psychic types like Cresselia, I considered Crunch. I think it actually ends up doing pretty much the same damage as Flare Blitz, which is nuts. Curse, I also considered very funny if there is ever like a situation to use that, right? Like people just aren't expecting you to have so many options that if there's ever a team where they're really slow, and trying to have be like bulky attackers, you curse up and you ruin their day. Other fun options. Other thing to keep in mind, look at this special attack stat. 130, like people don't realize, the attack and special attack are the same. Both of these are very high. And of course, there's very few special moves that are contact, and I don't think Charizard even learns any. So obviously you're not taking advantage of Tough Claws, which is like a huge, very important boost. But you can run some special attacks. Like people do not see that coming. You can definitely sneak by with some special attacks. A little cheesy hidden power, or against Ferrothorn, I almost ran Overheat just because I knew it would be so physically invested. Rocky Helmet and Iron Barbs that I'm like, I could just run, some sort of little flamethrower or something, cheese through that. You got your hidden powers, Hone Claws, another setup move. There's not really a reason to use Hone Claws on this guy, but just a plethora of options. Pup. Quick Attack I didn't end up using, but I had a fun idea for a cheese set with that we'll talk about in a minute. Roost, obviously we love. Toxic. This guy also gets, where is it? I'm pretty sure he gets Belly Drum. Yeah, I don't know why it's not listed. This is a useful move, brother. Belly Drum? So I almost had a time where I was taking advantage of that too. And you can just see, like, good God, look at this moveset. It just goes on forever. So, cool to see from Charizard. So I had an idea for a cheese set against a specific team that essentially took advantage of Belly Drum and Quick Attack, because people aren't expecting it, and obviously it hits neutral against a lot of things that are like, water type or fairy type trying to resist your stabs. But unfortunately those moves are illegal with each other, but otherwise that would have been really fun. But yeah, Charizard, another Mon where, like, when you're building your team, you can structure the way that they do their role a little differently, but they're going to do the same thing every time. Like, Charizard's always going to be a setup sweeper. I guess you could make it a bulky attacker, but it just has the potential to snowball so easily that you want to just make it a setup sweeper every time. And again, you don't have to worry about that being predictable because your opponent, like, there's just so little that they can do to even counter that. So Charizard, lovely. It was also interesting that, you know, people would be so desperate to get off Stealth Rocks or, like, counter this Pokemon specifically that I actually didn't bring it too often comparing to, like, it was my second pick overall. I probably brought it to, like, half of my games or something insane like that, but I think its presence forces people to prepare so much in such a particular way that it creates, like, a lot of other holes with their team. Same thing with Aegislash. Like, I had people who structured their whole team to counter these two guys, and then if I just didn't bring them, like, it was such an easy week. Moving on, Rotom. So you can kind of see from our first two guys, we don't have a whole lot of support for them. And we're thinking about, you know, again, water types going to cause problems. Fire types going to cause problems. Ground moves going to cause problems. Like, Rotom covers a lot of this. Same with electric types, right? Things that want to spam Thunder Wave and be annoying. Like, we have a solution, and it's this guy. Not to mention hazards, right? You get Charizard 4 times weak to rocks. Like, you know, there's going to be times that rocks just go up. And if you can't get rocks off, Charizard gets one shot, you know? And if he blows it, you're in a world of hurt. So Defog's very helpful. Pump is interesting. I actually had someone take advantage of the fact that the only water type move this thing learns is 80 accuracy, but Pump is really good. Obviously, like, this type combination with Levitate is just so good defensively. You could scout, like, a lot of things. Like, Rotom already is a Pokemon that relies on Protect, but this is especially good for scouting Z moves. Like, people would run Z Grass Knot, and the issue is this Pokemon weighs so little that Grass Knot is like 20 base power. So if you protect against Z Grass Knot, then regular Grass Knot will do less than, like, even their resisted stabs. So great for that. Great for, you know, leftovers. Volt Switch, you know, I have a Pokemon, I got 2 Pokemon that can just kind of do blanket neutral damage, like really strong damage to any target. Let's just get them in as much as possible. We run Volt Switch, right? And same sort of thing with a set variety. You can run defensive, you can run specially defensive, you can run a special attacking one, you can run a faster one if you wanted. I never really wanted to do that. You know, you got Discharge, you got Foul Play, you got. I never used any of these moves, man. I ran like the same thing every time. Maybe one week I ran Pain Split, but I would way rather, like, not take that inconsistency that this move kind of relies on. And I also wasn't using it too much early game, more like mid game. So Protect and Leftovers or running one of the berries was, like, my bread and butter, wherever the berries are. Yeah, they're like 20, not that one, the 25% berries. But if we look at some of the other moves, like, you get Screens. I know other people in the league would, like, run their Rotoms with Screens. Like, that's fine. I don't really care to do it, though. Thunder Wave is nice, Toxic, and Will-O-Wisp, right? So your choice of status, which I don't have on this set, but having many, many, many different statuses is fun. I also did consider using Disarming Voice 1 week against Hydreigon, but I don't even think it would do enough to warrant its use. But Rotom, I think another Pokemon that it's going to run, like, the same 2 or 3 moves every single time, and sometimes that can just be enough, right? Like, I think it was interesting that we had these statistics for the league about how many kills each Pokemon got, and Rotom actually was the Pokemon in the entire league with the worst kill-death ratio, where I don't think it had knocked out maybe even a single Pokemon and, like, died like 16 times. This guy might have been my MVP. Like, his support is so good that, you know, he's not necessarily getting kills, but that's not his job. His job is to come in, take a hit, and pivot out into some other threat. And he did that so well over all the weeks that, like, that's not represented in that statistic, and it wasn't necessarily meant to, but I just thought that was really interesting about him. You can also run Trick, Choice Item, which leads into our next Pokemon, which I love and had to take advantage of, Gothitelle. So Shadow Tag was legal in this league. So, like, Tapu Lele wasn't, Mega Alakazam wasn't, most of the other Uber's ban list was not legal. Interestingly, Mega Kangaskhan actually, like, wasn't even in the higher tiers, right? So now we've gone from our tier 1s. These are kind of tier 2 guys, is my Rotom and my Gothitelle, and everything else is in tier 3. Kangaskhan somehow in tier 3. But with Shadow Tag, I'm like, I just have to do this. Like, I love the idea of Shadow Tag. I think that it's so oppressive that it shouldn't be allowed in this league or anywhere else. but it's also so much fun that I'm like, you know what, I have to abuse this as much as possible while I can. And I think having Shadow Tag enables so many other moves on a Pokemon that like otherwise would just be useless. And Gothitelle is just such a perfect pick for Draft League. And if you look at the first two Pokemon, right, they might have, again, 1 or 2 counters. Like, Ghost is such a strong type that, okay, maybe they have 1 Dark type or something. Or, like, 1 Pokemon that can, like, deal with Charizard. You know, like your Alomomola or Toxapex is the only thing that can take a hit and haze or toxic or do something annoying. This Pokemon just perfectly removes it, right? There's no, like, deep cerebral thought. You just make a moveset that beats that one Pokemon, game over, right? This right here, you know, Ferrothorn, I sub if I need to, I taunt it, and it, like, has to attack me. Maybe the attacks aren't even doing that much. You can Future Sight on the turn it protects. I guess I also use that too. So Future Sight is also great because it's like, yeah, let me cheese this Pokemon and then also have a 120 base power Psychic attack be launched into whatever you want to send in next, right? So I think what I have learned before I played this league, but I guess also playing this league, is when you have Shadow Tag, it's so good for removal, but then you create this like huge lag in momentum that your opponent can take advantage of, right? Like, this is a super tailored moveset to remove one guy, and then you can imagine that whatever they bring in next, there's really not a whole lot I can do to stop it, and it's going to get a free turn. So like mitigating that free turn is also like a huge important part of the team. That's why Rotom's here, right? Again, to like slow those guys down. Sometimes I'll run a move specifically for that, like I'll run Toxic or something so they can't just come in and Sword Stance with something without having to deal with that. But this set is fine. I mean, you just run Leftovers or something, right? You also run Protect, you blah, 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 blah. Let's just go and look at the other set. So the other one, the Tickler. I never got a chance to actually use this, but it's really fun for you and really not fun for your opponent because of how like boring this is, that they get locked in, they can't switch, they can't do anything. But you know, you charm a million times or like Tickle, you also have access to, so that this also not only stops things from setting up on you, but like they can't get in a Calm Mind War or something because your defense drops to such a low number that, you know, Shadow Sneak ends up killing, or any move from Charizard ends up killing. You know, you can just run Rest too to deal with status. You can run Toxic can protect and something. You also Scarf. So this was another important one. Sometimes Scarf, sometimes Specs, but you saw this on Rotom, like the Trick Scarf, the Trick Specs. Same thing with Gothitelle. You can come in on these bulky guys. You can run Trick in like 3 status moves, right? Because you're guaranteed to get the Trick off, which also, if you think about in Gen 7, you're almost always going to be going up against a Z-move holder and a Mega. And those are 2 Pokemon out of the 6 you can't Trick. Gothitelle just solves that problem, right? Like, this is nuts that the trapping just does so much. Thunderbolt is nice coverage, right? You play against Rain, you play Pelipper, you lead off with this, Rain's gone. You know, I had the week that I played Rain, and I'll talk about this later, but if I had used this set, 1-2 combo, turn 1, Choice Scarf Thunderbolt, turn 2, go and do any other Weather Settler that's not Rain, Rain is just gone the whole battle, and there's nothing they can do. It's nuts. Psychic, obviously, you know, you have Stab, you also have Psyshock, and then, like, your choice of Hidden Power, right? Like, you can tailor this to defeat whatever you want to defeat. I remember I ran Hidden Power Steel one week for Mega Diancie. That was fun. I kind of calced it wrong, so, you know, it ended up doing, like, 90-something%, and I died, and I was like, whatever, man. I gotta show off the tech. But, you know, you got other things. You got Foul Play, so that you're not totally useless. More coverage moves. Heal Bell was also such a huge boon. It can help Gothitelle stay healthy. So instead of running Rest, you run Leftovers and Heal Bell, and like if something's too passive, it can't break your sub, and you can just get back and like be totally healthy. But it also is really important for like Charizard. If you think about status, you think about static, things kind of slowing it down or stopping it from setting up. You know, you can run Roost and not worry about it getting hit with some sort of status, because the next turn you go into Gothitelle. You know, first of all, you might trap and remove the thing that just status Charizard, but you can also Heal Bell and just, you know, bring back Charizard, essentially. You can also get screens up, right? So, like, while you're trapping something, you may as well spend a couple extra turns to get screens up, and, like, again, nothing they can do to stop you. Power-Up Punch, this was funny. I thought about doing some sort of Power-Up Punch physical set, and then, like, I don't even know what I would run. I guess maybe it gets, yeah, Zen Headbutt. Just because, like, you can get to +6. right? And like, okay, I have 55 attack, but 55 attack at +6. I don't know, maybe that'll do some damage to something. But also Calm Mind, right? Like, I didn't run this either, but there's potential that if you trick Scarf and they're locked into like a really not helpful move, oh my god, you just Calm Mind whatever number of times, you run a set that's like max defense invested, you're looking good. And that's why, you know, pairing this with other trick Pokemon, I thought had a lot of potential. And you can see there's, you know, Shadow Ball. You can kind of run Taunt also is helpful. Trick Room, too, was another one. If you look at this other support set here, I have like all the support options, Thunder Wave, Trick Room, right? So I was kind of licking my lips waiting for the opportunity to use that because Trick Room, but, you know, they can't really do a whole lot to stop it if you're trapping them, right? Like, you just trap something, they can't even switch into something that can necessarily stop the Trick Room or stop whatever comes in after you Trick Room, right? Like, you get a free switch in to whoever your abuser is as well. And it's just also something with, you know, if we go back to the Tickler, like this Charm set, sometimes Gothitelle comes in, you know, does some sort of stat change and just dies. Then you send in Charizard against something that's -4 attack, and, you know, you're able to Dragon Dance once or twice. Like, that could just be the game. So Gothitelle, like another Pokemon that is never going to get more than like one kill. But that one kill allows you to like super, super greedily make the entire rest of your team beat whatever they have left, right? Because if you think about draft, their pool of Pokemon is only 10. So if I go in and I see like 1 or 2 fire resists, I just make this Gothitelle beat whatever that fire resist is. And then Charizard just has totally free reign with the rest of the team. I think this was really integral. The other thing is it forces people to prep for it, right? They run U-turn and Volt Switch and like all that nonsense on way more Pokemon. They run things specifically to beat Gothitelle. And then guess what? I don't even bring Gothitelle, and they're wasting move slots, you know? So this guy was a threat to be reckoned with, and I'm glad that I got the chance to experiment with a lot of the really creative, interesting sets that you can run. Next up, Quag. I love Quag. He's such a just little guy. This Pokemon is good in every tier, which is something that is probably not true of almost any other Pokemon other than Gastrodon. And maybe that's strictly based off the typing combination, but you can use this guy in OU, you can use this guy in PU, you can use this guy in UU. Like, it's never good enough, or popular enough, I guess I should say, to, you know, get banned or move up the tiers, but he's got a niche and he fills it very well. So, there's very few unaware Pokemon. Quagsire is one of them, but this, I got Quag to deal with, again, some of the, you know, the fire types and the ground types and whatever types are causing Aegislash and Charizard problems, right? Because, again, we're just building our whole team on, like, let's just abuse these Pokemon and then also use Gothitelle to, like, pull out some of the counters, and maybe Quagsire deals with some of the more offensive counters. But unaware, that dead turn that Gothitelle gives the opponent, we kind of take that away from them, right? You can Swords Dance as much as you want or set up however you want, and like I just come in and hang out, you know? And it's interesting that these guys can come in and they can SD 8 times and I can just spam counter over and over and over. And even if they're at +4 and they attack me, they do 60%, I counter, they die, problem solved, right? And I can recover back later. You got some offensive presence with Earthquake or Earth Power or whatever other, you know, move of choice you want to go with. Encore is also phenomenal. So if they just keep trying to set up, you Encore them, and then all of a sudden, like, uh-oh, you know, now what? Maybe you can even go into Goth and trap them, right? They're trapped with the Encore. You know, you just go into something else that is a setup opportunity, or maybe you force a switch, right? And then if we look at some of these other options, first of all, I'm going to be honest, I did draft Quagsire thinking it got Stealth Rock. It does not learn Stealth Rock in this generation. That's on me. That's my bad. I thought it would maybe be an opportunity to get Stealth Rock, but you got Yawn. Dude, Yawn is really good. We're, like, forcing switches, you know, even more, and then you can like abuse the force switches with, like, you know, maybe they're gonna go into a Pokemon that Gothitelle can trap, maybe they're gonna go into a Pokemon that Charizard can set up on. Like, that forcing the switch pairs really nicely with a Pokemon that kind of invites in a revenge killer once it kind of does whatever it's gonna do. We also just nice moves, right? We got rock moves, we got poison moves, you know, we got Scald. Scald is always going to be good. We got ice moves. Like, we don't have fantastic coverage, but we have like 4, maybe like 5 or 6 types that we have like nice options in each of them. Obviously, no reason to run Hidden Power Ice, but like you have Blizzard, You have Ice Beam. You have Ice Punch. You know, like there were some options. Haze. Again, you're already unaware, but you know, if you have teammates that aren't unaware, this can help them out. Fighting moves that you should probably never use. This guy probably gets some interesting, usually useless moves. Like there's a use for some of these, like especially like Acid Spray. Like there's a 0% chance that you can get off an Acid Spray and have it actually do something. Again, like just more ground moves and stuff. So Quagsire was a mon that like most weeks I didn't really bring, and then the weeks I brought him, it was just like insurance for one Pokemon. Was he that fantastic? Maybe not, but he has a special place in my heart because I mean, look at that face. How can you not love that face, right? Item-wise, I didn't really talk about this. We got Rindo Berry. This is also really fun because things will try to run Giga Drain or Hidden Power Grass to counter you, and then you just Rindo Berry and you pog all over them, and you know, you can usually hit them with something that they're not gonna like, right? Like you can Encore them into whatever their grass move is, and you're thinking, well, okay, then you're gonna KO Quagsire, and then I'm saying, okay, well you're still Encored into your grass move. Let me go to my Pokemon that 4 times resists that grass move and only needs 1 turn to win the game, right? Like that's not good for you. But yeah, you have leftovers as well, and you have the 50% berries. I'm not gonna use the 50% berries on Quagsire. You also have Water Absorb if you ever play Rain. I actually didn't bring Quagsire for my Rain week, but you know, it's good having that ability to turn it into immunity if you ever need that on your team, and then his defensive profile just gets even stronger as long as your opponent isn't setting up. Next up, Cobalion. Cobalion was the most useless piece of garbage my first like 3 or 4 weeks, and I thought about dropping him, and then he was like instrumental to every game that came after. So I think that Cobalion has I would say a learning curve, because if you look at this stat distribution, I don't think any other Pokemon in the game has like anywhere near this like shape, if that makes sense, of like these stats in an order like this, other than like obviously Virizion, which has the same stats but with some things swapped. But 90 attack and 90 special attack. So you're looking at that and you're like, okay, so it's not good. Like it's definitely average or like below average, but you have mixed attacking options. Okay, cool. You have a fast Pokemon, 108 speed, with, what is it, 129 defense? Like, there's no reason that this should work, but I think it does based off the typing is phenomenal, right? I think if you think about a good defensive Pokemon, Fighting is a great type, Steel is a great type. They pair, not so good, but, you know, you're also really fast. It's just really a bizarre looking dude, to be frank. And if we also think about, you know, Aegislash, Gothitelle, we already got 2 Psychic types. We're kind of inviting in some of those Dark and Ghost moves, which, again, I talked about Aegislash. There's not really an answer to Ghost moves, sorry, but, you know, there's also no strong Ghost moves. That kind of makes up for it. But when you invite in those, like, really strong knockoffs, 129 defense. Oh, also, I get an attack boost from that. Oh, also, I'm probably faster than you. So this is, again, a way that Gothitelle can trap something. Something comes in thinking I'm either going to kill Gothitelle or knock something else off. I don't think you want to, right? Like, you got to think about this before you just let it go. So we also had a rule about Z captains, which is pretty typical of draft. You can't just put Z moves on any Pokemon. So for me, one of them was Cobalion, which I thought was a pretty good choice because, you know, the other thing, Cobalion has some moves with really high base power, like Close Combat, 120, Stone Edge, 100, Focus Blast, also 120. And like turning this into a one-time nuke where you don't have to worry about the accuracy, really helpful. Like you can see this set, you Swords Dance as they go into their flying type, then you Rocky 'em Z so that Stone Edge doesn't miss, and then from there, you know, you just got Close Combat, Iron Head, like you can sweep through things, you know. You're not worried about Fairy types when you also have like that Steel Stab to really like rock up and be like, you know, like what's good, man? Like I got that coverage for your bottom. But I don't know. Yeah, special attack, right? You can also run special set. So here's a special set: Focus Blast, Flash Cannon. I actually ran one without Focus Blast and had something else just because this other coverage was good. But this is like the most dollar store Bolt Beam combo you will ever see. I actually don't think there's 2 moves that are weaker than this and are still Electric Ice coverage. But I'll tell you what, sometimes this works, right? Another pivoting move, which if we think about Gothitelle, right, we have so many pivoting moves that if I hit your Pokemon with a pivoting move that's weak to Gothitelle, that perfectly invites Gothitelle in to come in and you're trapped. You know, if I come in on a Toxapex, I just throw out the Volt Switch, and either I pivot, you know, out of whatever they swapped into, or if I hit Toxapex with this Volt Switch, I don't even care if I do 20%, because guess who's coming in? Gothitelle, removing the Toxapex, and then next time, I'm not going to Volt Switch, because guess what? You have no fighting resist anymore. You have no steel resist anymore, and I can just go ham with all my other moves. You also have Calm Mind. Like, this Pokemon also has a plethora of different setup options, which is different from Charizard in that you can set up on the physical or on the special side, right? Aegislash hits on both of those, but it only sets up with Swords Dance. Cobalian's got all kinds of moves. And support as well, like, again, 129 defense. Let's not forget that either. Stealth Rock, invaluable. Best move in the game. Reflect. Some cheese to be done with Reflect, and I did pull off some Reflect cheese. Taunt, also really good. Also really fast. So they go into some Pokemon, and you're like, oh crap, this guy's gonna like totally mog all over my team if he gets one Swords Dance up, one Dragon Dance up. You taunt first, and then it's like, all right, I will allow this guy to go down, and I can go into something else, but I just absolutely cannot let them, you know, set up, and it stops that from happening. Other thing, if you taunt them, all of a sudden, you go into Quagsire, counter is going to work, right? Because they're going to attack into you. You don't have to worry about them going for some sort of status move if they don't end up switching. And this also pairs well with Sucker Punch, which I don't think I ran a Sucker Punch Pokemon, but it's nice that you taunt them and then you bring in something with Sucker Punch, and like, again, they literally have to attack because of taunt. You know, and then if you have these Pokemon that are really, really, really defensive, you know, you just shut them down. They can't do anything. You control with like whatever other stuff you're going for. But we just go through the moveset again. Calm Mind's pretty nice. Flash Cannon, whatever. Home Claws. I thought about Iron Defense. Like, there's no body press here, but there's just some potential for that. Quick Attack if you really need priority. Rock Polish, I thought was another kind of weird one. It's fast enough that I don't think you'd ever really need Rock Polish, but maybe you run like 0 speed and you have like a fully, I don't know, bulky attacking one. Like, that'd be crazy. Sacred Sword if you want a more accurate fighting stab. This is, you know, close combat's obviously really good, but if you ever occasionally need, you know, something that's not going to lower your defenses, that option's available to you. X Scissor and Zen Headbutt, and it also has Poison Jab. It just has like weird coverage that like every once in a while, yeah, you could maybe use these moves. Also Thunder Wave's nice, but I just thought it was funny. And then you have some flying moves too that I did take advantage of those. That was really cool. Magnet Rise, right, is cool. I thought about running Metal Burst because you have such high defense, so I didn't know this. Counter and Mirror Coat have negative priority so that it allows the other Pokemon to hit you and you can retaliate. Metal Burst seems great because normally, you know, you don't need to return double the damage. Returning 1.5 damage, I mean, that's more than enough. But Metal Burst, this Pokemon's too fast, and this move's 0 priority. So you actually outspeed them. Metal Burst fails, and then they hit you. That's not what I'm trying to go for. So I thought about using Metal Burst. Doesn't really work. You can see, like, good plethora of options, and just for some reason this was a great knife into certain team structures. I think it's like, I don't know, I just see this in like Blaziken getting through like Scar and Bliss, where you have like the fire and fighting coverage. For some reason this guy was just like a nice knife through certain teams that could kind of cover one type or the other. Also, like, being immune to Toxic is strong and can be taken advantage of if you're a setup guy. Like, they have to find some other way to shut you down, which usually doesn't work. And next guy, actually, so very similar. So Cobalion and Azelf, I actually think we're two very similar Pokemon. I think another reason I found success with this team is I played to my strengths. So, like, I am very good at using Pokemon with a stat distribution where, you know, first of all, it's mix, which I think is just really helpful in draft because your opponent doesn't know whether you're physical or special. So when I'm normally playing, you know, in a certain generation, and maybe I'm using Cobalion, if you're playing in a tier and you have to prepare for everything and it's a little bit more established what's good and what's not, you can usually assume things about the set based on, you know, oh, if they're leftovers, that means this, or like, oh, they're Flash Cannon, they must be special and stuff. But like, you can really mix it up with these guys where, like, when you come in a draft, there's no, like, oh, most people run Cobalion with a Swords Dance physical set. Like, they have no idea what to expect because there's no, like, precedent for what the metagame is. You can really catch people off guard with those mixed offensive. So again, like, decent mixed offensive, also the cheesy defense stat. But the same thing here is, like, more speed, more offense, and we just hit. And again, we have, like, weird options that I feel like I know how to take advantage of well. So this is the classic Azelf set. So I actually usually run Explosion over Taunt, just because, you know, I'm a baller and I like to boom because it's really a fun move to click. But obviously, after Gen 4 when the move got weakened, it doesn't hit nearly as hard. But this is just a phenomenal set. Like, having it just a fast, strong pivot. Like, I don't think there's very many other U-turns that are this fast and this strong. You know, obviously Scizor has a really strong U-turn, but 125 attack. Like, this thing hits really hard and is really fast. This can get you out of a jam against a lot of Pokemon. It's also just great on lead. If you have a bad lead matchup, like, let me just go into something else that's better. You know, you also preserve your Focus Sash. Like, first turn of the game, there's no chip damage, right? Stealth Rock, phenomenal. You know, you don't even have to run one of those mineral types, those Rock, Steel, Ground. I think having Stealth Rock on one of those other Pokemon can be really helpful. You have that option available. Taunt, obviously lead. I shouldn't have to explain why that's good, right? Especially on our team where we have Charizard, super weak to hazards. Running a move that stops them from getting hazards up is invaluable. Also, again, Cobalion, underrated. I didn't mention this. I should have. First of all, the items. Expert Belt, I use to great effect. Air Balloon is an option, right? Assault Vest, I guess, is an option. I've never seen someone run a choice set on this guy, but I guess you could. You know, you got the Z options, you got Rocky Helmet as an option, but the double resistance to Stealth Rock is insane. Like, you are practically immune to Stealth Rock, which in this generation, like, goes so far, because otherwise it's such a core part of the game that if they get rocks up, you don't have to worry about it with Cobalion. Cobalion can still be coming in and pivot every single time, not worrying about the rocks in the slightest. It's also good that, like, you know, let's say you don't bring Charizard and your opponent really prepares for rocks, is you can run a team that just kind of completely ignores the fact that rocks are up with stuff like Cobalion, and then, you know, it was kind of a waste for them. But if you're not running Sash, Azelf is one of those Pokemon that is so frail that chip damage doesn't matter because it was gonna die anyway, right? Like, taking one priority move or taking, you know, Life Orb recoil or something, like, it's never really going to make a difference in a damage roll, right? Like, you're so weak, it doesn't matter. So you can run, you know, or you come in on Stealth Rocks like 5-6 times. It's like, if something was going to hit me, it was going to kill me before I got hit by rocks 5 times. Like, that doesn't really make a difference. But you can run Sash. You can run other cheese stuff if you wish. I sometimes struggled finding a good item for Azelf other than Sash, or, like, I don't know, you just run like Life Orb, or like, I think I even ran like Leftovers one week, but this was my other Z Captain, which I thought was really good because this Pokemon, again, gets really, really good coverage and can hit on the physical and special side, and the Z move just kind of bolsters that so much more. So, good choice of Z Captain, I would say. So let's look at these other sets. A Special Sweeper. This is also one that, like, you know, again, they're expecting something, or like maybe you're just looking at certain type coverage and it just totally breaks through their team. So Nasty Plot. Oh my god, 125 special attack, and then you can double it. You're already faster than most Pokemon, and then you have so many options of attack, which, first of all, you have Stab, like, really good Stab in Psychic, and Psyshock, which, like, now you can hit on both sides of the spectrum, only being invested in special attack. Like, are you serious? And then, you know, let's say they bring in something that it's got a really high defense stat, but it's weak to Psychic. Oh, well, then you use your Z move, and then it turns back into a special move and totally fries whatever that is. So having, like, the built-in mix-up of physical and special in one move when, like, paired with this item, nuts. And it's such good coverage, right? Fire Blast for all those annoying steals that want to resist whatever. Dazzling Gleam for all the dark types. And then, you know, you got other options as well, which I'll talk in later. But, like, this set, sometimes I could just wait. And, like, again, as Alpha Pokemon, a lot of different roles, right? So Cobalion can kind of be utility or setup. It's usually not just, like, raw offensive, but Azelf can also just be, like, raw offense. It can be lead. It can be support. It can be, you know, physical, special, all these different roles. So I think these guys are where I kind of make up with the set versatility versus the earlier Pokemon have, like, very dedicated roles. These guys were a lot more plug and play. And I think it's interesting that these were the guys that I brought most weeks, and it was like, which Pokemon do I want to cover that Charizard Aegislash doesn't already cover? And, like, I would, you know, tailor their moveset to cover the other whatever number of Pokemon. Here's one with Groundium. This is just cheese. So Azelf, also a Pokemon that, by virtue of being Psychic type and being in this weird kind of position where it's like this weird pseudo fairy thing, this archetype of Pokemon just gets a bunch of nonsense moves, and I think Azelf is a Pokemon that you can actually take advantage of it because of your speed tier. So first of all, Imprison. I didn't get a chance to use this, but I had an opponent who, they brought Mental Herb rocks the first time I played them because, you know, I taunted them. They got their rocks up. I'm like, all right, well played. That was pretty smart. But I said, never again, right? Next time, I'm faster. I imprison you. No rocks going up, right? You want to pivot out? I also run U-turn on the same set. You can't pivot out, right? I could even run like Thunder Wave on my Azelf, and then they can't even paralyze me. Like, it just shuts down so much. I thought that would be really funny to run in prison. And then you can even do things like run in prison Shadow Ball. And then all of a sudden, wait a minute, like that coverage move that they ran for me, like they can't use anymore. You come in on a Cophagrigus that has Nasty Plot, Hidden Power Fighting, Shadow Ball, and Trick Room. Like, you in prison, its only move to hit you is Hidden Power Fighting. Like, that's just not gonna cut it. I just thought it was really funny cheese. Skill Swap was another one. I really wanted to use it against Mawile Sucker Punch. Is Skill Swap when it Sucker Punches, and then all of a sudden, I'm huge power, and I know, Mawile have 80 attack. No. 125 attack is what I got. Not to mention it also, like, reduces their damage output. Yeah, it gives them Levitate, but, what are they going to do with 80 attack? And I'm not running a ground move on this, except for in this slot, which we'll talk about in a second. But Skill Swap, I think, is also something that, like, Draft seems to... I feel like it seems to gravitate towards Pokemon that have stronger abilities for the most part. Maybe that's wrong. But Generation 7, like, the power creep starts to be high enough with, like, some of the nonsense abilities, like Beast Boost, right? Beast Boost is another ability that you put that on any Pokemon and it can just go nuts, especially if it's offensive, right? Like, that's something you see with Mega Alakazam using Trace. So Skill Swap was another one. Natural Gift was a fun one. People don't even know this move exists. I don't even know why it was ever put in the game. And I think, it got removed and nobody even noticed. Power and type depends on the user's berry. So you run a berry, so you also have to use your item. But, like, that's similar to a Z move, really. And it's not a Z move. And also it's a berry. So, like, maybe you can use the berry as well. But you get a 100 base power move of any type, including fairy. That's insane, right? So, first of all, hidden power can't be fairy. Also, it's coming off your attack stat. Also, it's totally unexpected. You can run any type on a Pokemon this fast, especially. And sometimes the berries have other uses. So, like, one that I was going to use is Salac Berry, which I think is, like, rock or fighting or something. I don't even remember. But it's also just a Salac Berry. Like, that's not totally useless either, right? Like, this Pokemon has Endure. You can Endure and take advantage of that Salac Berry, perhaps, in some way. So, really unique option. And I thought only Azelf and a few other Pokemon learned this. No, I'm pretty sure every single Generation 7 Pokemon learns it. Let me see if I go back to Cobalion if he has it. Or maybe it's just a lot. Okay, no. But, like, a ridiculous number of Pokemon learned this move. And I just thought it was good on Azelf. But it's really something you can use on anyone. So I thought that was really cool. I thought about taking advantage of that. Mud Slap. So there's a mechanic that I think this also exists with, like, Terra and the Dynamax moves, but if you have a ridiculously weak move that's not priority in multi-hit, if you power it up with whatever mechanic, so in this case the Z moves, I think it automatically becomes 80 base power. So this is like Heatran check, is like, oh, I'm going to come in and be Heatran. And then you fire, you nasty plot as it switches in. This is 80 base power. Like, that's enough to get you over the line, right? Like with the Z move. So I love that kind of cheese. I thought it was interesting. And then lastly, some other physical coverage. I ran Iron Tail one week against a team of, like, all fairy types. I think I missed all 3 Iron Tails and then proceeded to die. That was fun. Explosion, mentioned earlier, helps get you off the field too if you're worried about them doing some sort of weird setup thing or weird switch, or you want to try to get some momentum, or, you explode and you either hit an offensive Pokemon and you kill it, or you hit a defensive Pokemon. All of a sudden, Goth comes in, traps it, removes the defensive Pokemon, right? Like, it's just a lot of enabling of the trapping, and the trapping then enables the guys to just come in and sweep at the end, or really, sometimes it's not even a sweep so much as just blast through the other team. There's not even a team, like a setup needed. Knockoff, really good. Scouts items, Scouts sets, right? If they have some weird berry or something, just gets rid of it, also fairly strong. Acrobatics also is an interesting, like, just coverage option, right? Like weird flying type, I don't know. You can run Calm Mind if you have a reason for the special defense boost. And we just go through these other moves. I mean, like, nice coverage, Energy Ball. You got fire moves. Grass, no Ice Beam. So here's another thing. I thought this Pokemon learned Hidden Power, or Ice Beam. Does not. So you got to run Hidden Power Ice. Oops. But it does get Ice Punch, which I actually did end up using. And again, you got your screens if you ever want to be like lame and run like screens. Magic Coat if you really want to predict some sort of status move off the rip, like again against that guy get rocks, like maybe I Magic Coat and then I don't run rocks myself and I cheese like that. Power Up Punch, looking at some of these other options. So you can choose. Being able to choose between these two different psychic moves is really important. So same thing with Gothitelle is like you can choose, all right, this guy is really low defense, this guy is really low special defense. Like let me just take advantage of that with whatever my choice of psychic is. And again, you can switch that with the Z move. Electric moves, right? Good electric moves as well. And then Zen Headbutt if you really need. And if we're going to useless moves, Endure is not useless, I would argue. You know, maybe in regular play, but in draft, like you can catch things off guard with berries and whatnot. This thing gets Endeavor in later generations too, which would make it a lot stronger. Magic Room is I've always wanted to make a Magic Room team, but it's just too bad, and it's on too like few Pokemon. Love Azelf. Azelf's one of my favorite Pokemon. I also love like the speed tier. This is 115, so Lottie's 110. This beats so many guys, and there's a huge hub of Pokemon at 100. You outspeed base 100 Pokemon with just max speed, no nature. So like you can be more offensive, and I love that about it as well. For just cheesing some speed tiers, you can keep some things honest. You can run, you know, these choice items as well. You can run all three of them, right? Like very few Pokemon can run all three of these viably, but Azelf can. You also, weakness berries were interesting because so many people are like, oh, I can just have knockoff. I can just have Shadow Sneak, and like I'll just cheese through Azelf, right? And, you know, you run your weakness berry, and it really helps you turn the tide on them because, you know, you tank whatever move, it does 80% or whatever, and then you can hit back like a truck because, you know, you got these huge numbers that, you know, are good for doing a lot of damage with certain attacks. Abomasnow. So you might be wondering, right? Like if we get back to that draft sheet, you know, Abomasnow, where was Abomasnow ranked? So far we've drafted everything. We got tier 1, we got 2 of those off the rip. Tier 2, our next 2 Pokemon were from tier 2. And then tier 3, we're only picking from the 11 point category. So tier 3 goes from 11 points at the highest to 1 point is like all the little cut Pokemon. So Abomasnow. This guy is in, you know, 3 points in tier 3. This guy's terrible, right? Like this is almost as worse as it gets for a fully evolved Pokemon. Looking at it now, somehow, you know, Articuno is in the slot after, and Flareon and stuff like that. Oh, I feel bad for him. And Slacking. Oh, I wish I could use Slacking. I'll use Slacking next time because Slacking totally is a niche. But it's here with some really like bad Pokemon. Why did I draft this? So I kind of figured out that our league had this little rule where you can trade one Pokemon every 2 weeks. And my second week was Rain. And my first week, I believe, was like Lando and like Toxapex and stuff. And I'm like, dude, Abomasnow will do great into those 2 teams. And that's kind of all I need. So I kind of kept this flex slot on my team that it was just like swap out a Pokemon for whatever Pokemon will do the best against whatever, you know, up 2 opponents I have next, and keep that open. So definitely not someone I was considering keeping on the team. As you can see, I only have 1 set here. I ran Assault Vest against Rain, like to deal with Manaphy. This just totally shuts down Manaphy, no questions asked. You can run, you know, your choice of grass move, physical special. Ice Shard priority is awesome. Snow Warning for Chip, turns off weather. Earthquake is fantastic coverage with this other stuff, right? Fire types, steel types, just really pokes a hole in those guys. And like Blizzard, which like you don't even need investment, it's just really strong. And then like with Hail doesn't miss. You have other options as well. I wasn't really looking at crazy. It learns Outrage, and like Screens or like Leech Seed. Who cares, man? Like this was just to beat Manaphy. Espeon was another one. So I almost ran like this triple threat of Psychic types. I guess maybe even 4 with Azelf. Like my plan was essentially, you know, kind of create this weakness and expect people to just run Ghost and Dark moves every week and try to take advantage of that in other ways. And Espeon also filled this interesting niche of like Magic Bounce. I thought was really important with Pokemon that are really weak to rocks because you can stop the rocks from going up and do so like kind of safely. And then obviously like you punish your opponent pretty bad by they go for rocks and then all of a sudden rocks are up on their side of the field. Good for other status moves, right? Like shuts down a lot of like weak like Ferrothorn, Toxapex stuff that like you can't get your hazards up, you can't cheese, you can't do toxic, you know, nonsense like that. So it forces them out into something else, and then maybe we can trick at a choice scarf and like take advantage of that later in the match, or where maybe they lock themselves into a ground move, and then I bring in Charizard, I don't Mega Evolve, and I set up, right, or something like that. Also with Gothitelle, right, you trick something in choice scarf, and it knocks out Espeon with like a Draco Meteor, and then all of a sudden you go into Gothitelle and like they're screwed because they're lowering their special attack every single turn. Not to mention they only have 8 PP, so after that they're just going to struggle and die. So like that whole time you can just be doing other stuff. You can be setting up screens, you can be setting up a substitute so that whatever comes in after can't take advantage of whatever's going on. You can like time a future sight. You can do all this stuff. So I thought that'd be helpful. Grass Knot also was nice. It outspeeds Swampert and Rain with Choice Scarf, which, well, I don't know, whatever. Shadow Ball, Psychic, like, it's Espeon. Same sort of thing. You can't Baton Pass any effects in our league, but Baton Pass just dry is nice as a pivot move as well, right? Like, fast pivot move, switch you into some other stuff. Like, maybe you have a situation where you can have, like, against, like, a Thundurus, right? Like, you Baton Pass, if they stay in Thunder Wave, it reflects the Thunder Wave back, and then you switch. But then if they attack you, you like Baton Pass out. So it can be helpful against like shutting down Prankster Pokemon, which we didn't have a whole lot of people running Prankster guys in our league. But I just think that that's such an interesting like use of that tech. But you have Heal Bell, you have like healing moves like Morning Sun. You also have Wish. I thought about running Wish one week, but this Pokemon's like you just don't have enough HP for the Wish to really like do a whole lot. But if this Pokemon was bulkier, definitely would have been like really, really good support. Like also having Yawn, ugh. So I actually didn't use Espeon a single time, and then I traded it. Bummer. I also thought about Xatu instead. Like I think Xatu has an interesting niche. Again, just like combined with a lot of the other guys on my team, other than the other Psychic weak ones. Also resists ground. Like I guess immune to ground. And Magic Bounce is good, and just really good support, right? Like Tailwind and U-Turn and Toxic and all this stuff and Roost. Like honestly, I wish I got Xatu over this because I think Xatu could have done some like insane numbers. I also think Wobbuffet, like I didn't, Shadow Tag is totally legal. I'm good enough with Wobbuffet. I can make predictions about Counter, Encore, Mirror Coat, all that stuff, right? Run Safeguard for my other guys, and really sometimes you can just even use it to, just prolong the trap or like trap with different things. So yeah, I was really invested in Psychic types for this draft, and then doing all that drafting of the Psychic types, I was like, well, all right, I need something that can resist some of these attacks coming in. I got Bug covered, right? Like Bug is no problem. We got Charizard, we got all kinds of guys that resist Bug, and like come on, there's not that many strong Bugs anyway. But I was like, I need something that can resist Dark and Ghost, and ideally provide some priority. So we got Crawdon. Like you're probably not taking too many attacks with this guy. And again, something that's like, it's a really straightforward mon, but on the weeks that it shines, it shines. And I think it forces people to prepare. And that's kind of all I need out of it, is that it forces them to think about it, and then I can just not run it or just get like a little bit of use out of it. Like you squeeze out an Aqua Jet here and there. I usually like Mystic Water because I didn't want to deal with choice items or like that much recoil or anything. You're always running adaptability. You're never running either of these two other ones. And then from there, your choice of Dark move, you can also run Knockoff, and you can run Crab Hammer, and then you can run Swords Dance, but it also has Dragon Dance. So you have setup choices. You also have Aqua Jet if you want. Priority is pretty good. I don't think I'd ever use like Endeavor because it's interesting that like however much damage you're going to do with Endeavor, you could probably just do with another attack, if not just straight up kill. I guess in theory you have Avalanche, and you also have Superpower, but like with adaptability, even if that move is super effective and this one's resisted, sometimes this still just does more, and it eases prediction, and it opens up other move slots if you want to have other stuff. You could also, I thought this was interesting, so you can run Trickaroo with Choice Band. It's like an option that's on the table. Exit. No, you're not going to use extras there. You're just going to use these moves with this stuff. Like Crawdon does one thing and one thing well, and even these stats, like this guy's super one-dimensional. So I liked Crawdon. I thought I could be a beast with Crawdon. I think actually being this one-dimensional actually really weakened him, and like maybe I didn't have the proper team support for him to really shine, or didn't use him properly, but Crawdon was a bit of a dud, frankly. Rosewaid. Yeah, Rosewaid. I thought this was a interesting pick for one reason, and it's that top slot and this ability. You run 90 base power hidden powers off of a large 125 special attack stat. So same special attack as Azel. This is the strongest hidden power in the game. right? And I think with being able to just counter people's teams really hard, like this ends up, you know, you can bring whatever hidden power you want, and it will do what you need. And I think it's interesting, actually. You know, the one type that you don't have with hidden power is Fairy, which it covers with Dazzling Gleam. So you really have like any type you want. You can get a strong special attack of that type, like any double weakness or any like coverage that you wouldn't normally have. That's why I put Electric here. Is I had a week where, you know, the guy had a lot of water and flying types, and it's just like this just hits a lot of them. You know, you have like Gyarados too. So this like Choice Scarf, Hidden Power, Electric, like it just shuts down Gyarados. Like Gyarados doesn't necessarily see that coming, and like even if they switch into something else, like, you know, their Celesteela or Skarmory or whatever, oh my god, it still does a ton, right? It's also nice because, you know, Hidden Power doesn't necessarily reveal the type sometimes if you know, do it to an ambiguous target. You also have this ridiculous, like, Leaf Storm does a ton. You can also run Energy Ball instead, Sludge Bomb, Dazzling Gleam. So, like, you have other good attacks. You also have great support options. So I think Natural Cure and Rest is interesting because you can rest and just swap out. Also, just Natural Cure to absorb status anyway is really strong. You're already immune to status, but you can take like or status toxic, but you can take like a burn or a paralysis or a sleep and just like not worry about it, totally shrug it off. Sleep Powder is busted. So if you have a team that you're going up against that like you're not planning on statusing too much, oh my god, Sleep Powder can just totally like eliminate something from the battle, like almost in the same way that Gothitelle can. And just turn into like free setup turns or something. Also, entry hazards, like you have Spikes and Toxic Spikes, which I think is good to have like an alternative to Stealth Rocks if you need like some other form of offense. I think Toxic Spikes specifically, there weren't any teams that would fold to this, but if they don't have a Poison type and they have like a lot of things that get hit by Toxic Spikes and they have like more bulky Pokemon, Toxic Spikes will just totally dismantle their team. So it's good to have that option. We got other options, right? We got Psychic moves, which, you know, Hidden Power Psychic probably would do more. Items, you know, Life Orb, you know, you run Black Sludge instead of Leftovers. Ooh, you know, it's crazy. There's not really too much else to run. You know, I like my choice items. And other than that, like, you can even run Leftovers on this. It really doesn't make much of a difference. There's not really much to run. But you got other interesting things. You got Leech Seed, you got Synthesis to keep yourself healthy. I don't think you ever want to run Physical. Yeah, with 70 attack, there's no need to Power Whip. But Stun Spore too, right? You know, hey, that works on ground types. Weather Ball, if that ever ends up being relevant, you know, maybe you run Abomasnow, and then you have Weather Ball to do like, you know, Ice attack, which I guess actually is just barely stronger than Hidden Power Ice, so never mind that actually. But I like just having the Hidden Power, and I like having Sleep, and there's not a whole lot else this Pokemon did, but you know, as you get later in the draft, you don't have as nice as choices. Actually, this wasn't even from the draft. I should also specify, originally I had Porygon Z from the draft, and then I found out there was a rule you can't use Omni Boosting Z moves. And I'm like, okay, I should have just read the rules. That's on me. But now I'm going to get rid of it, even though it probably still would have been pretty strong. So that was, you know, I traded that for a Bombsnow, and then traded that eventually for Roserade. So Roserade was actually a later pick that came up. So this is all that kind of first members of the team. If we go back to my team builder, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Was my original draft, and then 11, and then now these were the other guys that I had that I swapped out later. So this is like coming into playoffs. So there's even less teams to prepare for, which allow me to use even more niche stuff, which like I love using niche gimmicks. So Primarina. This is a large number. Like, I don't think people realize, and then these are large numbers. 95 and like Hydro Pump being 110. Not to be trifled with. Good God, not to be trifled with. And just fairly well-rounded because it's a starter. Super bulky, especially on the special side. Like, great typing. Custab Berry is phenomenal because you're going to be slow. Things aren't going to expect something coming. Paired with Torrent, you get like a supercharged water move off. This move's also sound. I didn't realize. So that goes through Substitute. You don't even need to use like Hyper Voice, Liquid Voice. Like, that's not even necessary. Moonblast, like Fairy, is just not resisted by many types, so that just destroys stuff. And then if you think about what resists it, the Steel, Fire, that doesn't want to take a water move. And I think that this is, again, a Pokemon where it just hits so hard, you really just need these two, right? You can also run Scald, which I think I have in the other set, and then the last moves can be whatever. So, like, you can have coverage in Ice Beam and Energy Ball and whatnot, but frankly, it's usually, like, not even worth the coverage. Like, just run the moves. Like, I know in some generations, you'll even just run Aqua Jet, because, like, maybe with Torrent or in some situation where the opposing Pokemon is, like, 1 HP or something, you just have like a priority move that they're not expecting. Like you really don't need many moves on this, which allows it to use whatever support moves you want, right? It's not like Azelf where it wants 8 different moves. Like it just needs 2, and then you can fill in whatever. Encore is just so phenomenal. Again, you're slower, so something comes in, it tries to set up, you encore it. All of a sudden, you're in a position where, you know, you're already a super offensive Pokemon you're in. You can just start hitting things. So I love Primarina. Also because Parasong, right? Like, so we also can run Parasong on this. It forces setup sweepers to, you know, move or switch out. But if they don't switch out, you know, if you ever have a Pokemon that doesn't switch out, you switch into Gothitelle, it's just gone. It also is good for weird situations where, like, maybe they have something really bulky. It forces the bulky Pokemon to switch out. Also, if they have whatever their last Pokemon is, right, you can just Parasong your last Pokemon. Nothing they can do about that. The other thing is, if you just, you know, let's say they switch into their Primarina counter as you Parasong. They're in this terrible position where if they attack you, you can switch into Gothitelle, perhaps, you know, on that turn, and they're trapped, they're gone. So it forces them to switch. But if they brought this Pokemon in specifically to beat Primarina, and now they're being forced out, like what? Like, again, enabled by Shadow Tag, you just stay in and spam whatever move, right? And they bring in their Water or their Fairy Resist, but it's like, I know this guy's switching, so I know that this is connecting with somebody who's not this Pokemon. It goes crazy. So, you know, you got Scald, you got your Hydro Pump and everything. I like Leftovers. Leftovers pairs well with Protect. Protect, also great for scouting Z moves, right? Like people, you know, Greninja with Z Poison or something, like, you know, you scout that out. This guy also, you know, Keldeo, Greninja, some of those guys, it can just blanket check things. So this was kind of, I forget who I was talking about earlier who does this too, but it is really resilient. It cannot get counter setted very easily. Like Charizard can get counter set very easily because you run a rock move, it destroys it. You run Toxic on a weird Pokemon, like that can kind of beat it too. You got to scout those things out, and you know that's why I like to run Dragon Dance, so you're in a position where you don't even have to worry about something because you outspeed it, right? So some of these Pokemon can be like counter set or like baited very easily, where like Aegislash is baited maybe into going something and it gets hit with a dark type move that it wasn't expecting, a knockoff it wasn't expecting, or a burn it wasn't expecting. Not this guy, man. Like there's very little that you could do to it that really is going to put a hole in it. So it usually has to be pretty telegraphed, so you can get around a lot of that side nonsense. Mold Breaker Pangoro. So I brought this specifically against a Mimikyu team, which I think is funny because you're bringing something doubly weak to Fairy into a Fairy, but, you know, I had my reasons. And Mold Breaker, I think, is also just such a strong ability. The other Mold Breaker Pokemon had already been put on teams at this point, but you know, I just wanted this for Mimikyu because you can hit through Disguise, but also like Earthquake. A lot of people rely on Levitate. You know, having that for Rotom, that Mold Breaker Earthquake can be really strong. Just other defensive abilities that happen to exist. I guess there's not too many other ones I can think of for fighting dark coverage right now. Like you have Scrappy, but it's kind of a joke with this Pokemon because obviously, you know, you have Dark Stab as well. So I don't really know why you'd need Scrappy, but I guess if you wanted to run less attacks, you could run Scrappy. It doesn't like stop your attack from lowering this generation. Iron Fist is also nice. Again, I got this guy really late. My only thought was to use Mold Breaker because I didn't need him for anything else. But you know, you get punching moves. You get Iron Fist. You get Drain Punch. That can be used. I like Choice Band, but also like Life Orb. Also Assault Vest. Like this guy's defensive typing. You can take some special hits. You know, other than, you know, Fairy you're obviously not taking, but you know, you can take a bunch of dark moves. You can take a bunch of ghost moves. Not worry about it. And that would enable that. You know, he's like a plethora of really strong attacks. So Assault Vest is something you could easily run too. Knockoff, really good against scouts things, hits hard. Gunk Shot for Fairies. Earthquake, Superpower, unfortunately does not get close combat here. You can also run Drain Punch. And then you just hit things, right? Like this same 124, which is pretty much 125, which is a number that we've seen a lot on this team. I like this number, I guess. It's just hits hard. We got a lot of guys. Again, at the 60 to 58 speed tiers. So the other fun thing is like this guy and like Aegislash. There's a lot of Pokemon at 60. And, you know, you can take something like Pangoro or even some of these other ones and you just speed creep it, right? You just give it like 15, 30 speed EVs, and that's enough to, I mean, those aren't numbers divisible by 4, but you know what I mean. It's enough to outspeed some of those other guys and then some. And then having that speed difference like helps out a lot, you know, when you actually end up battling them. So other set is the Life Orb one with Iron Fist, and you got Bullet Punch too, and Drain Punch. So this was my whole plan going into Mimikyu, was essentially just like Bullet Punch with Mold Breaker. So you don't even need to break the disguise. You just like chip it a little bit, and then it becomes a total non-counter. Not to mention it just dies to knock off with Life Orb from completely full HP, which is ridiculous to think about. Parting Shot's cool too because you can use it on the Choice Band set, and like Parting Shot again pairs awesome with Gothitail because not only is it a pivot move, but you're weakening them. So they bring in something with 4 attacks. You Parting Shot, you're already lowering their offenses. Pivot into Gothitail, Gothitail can just trap and remove it, like enabling it even further. Bullet Punch, again, priority, Drain Punch. Let's look at some of these other moves, because I think Pangoro was another mon that surprised me with some of the moves. It gets Bulk Up, Swords Dance, I know it also has. Crunch, I guess if you needed a different dark move. It gets like elemental punching moves too, so you get your Ice Punch, you got your Fire Punch. I guess it gets Thunder Punch, does it? Yeah, so you got coverage there. X Scissors, Zen Headbutt, again, like if you need to, don't run Surf. Storm Throw is crazy, I don't know why you need that. But yeah, it's got like ghost moves, it doesn't need ghost moves. But it's got rock moves too. I just think it's a lot of dragon moves, it gets a lot of different physical attacks, is cool. I think it gets like Hammer Arm you can use too as well. But hits hard, that's all it really needs to do, and it's got very interesting ability options, right? So you can kind of play around with those different abilities. Power Trip, if you want to have some sort of cheese, like Power Trip bulk up set would be kind of fun. Yep, that's pretty much it for Pangoro. He had one pretty specific job that I got him for, even though like with these different abilities, he can do different stuff, right? He can run different offensive items. He was cool. Last one, Talonflame. So I didn't realize this. Talonflame's attack is actually quite low. 81 is bad, if not, pretty pathetic. 126 speed, good God. I don't think people realize how like blitzing fast this is. Like you start to count on one hand the number of Pokemon that are faster than this. There was a team that was Zapdos, Ferrothorn, and I'm like, no more nonsense, right? You run pads, and like obviously you still break your Gale Wings when you run any of these recoil moves, which they really neutered this ability, which is pretty fair. Also weird to have an ability that increases priority when again your speed is already so high, but that's neither here nor there. Anyways, this was nice. You don't have to worry about static. You don't have to worry about Iron Barbs. You can just run protective pads. Like obviously you got other items. You can run Life Orb, I guess. I don't even know what this thing normally runs. Maybe it runs like some sort of rock resistance berry. I'm gonna be honest. I actually don't know what I forget. Because this guy only existed quote unquote in Generation 6, other than like meme kind of Hurricane Rain sets. So I don't even remember what this Pokemon does. But you can have, I like pads, and then you have Roost if you ever have like a free turn to get back Gale Wings or just get more HP or something. But I liked it because it was fast, and in the playoffs there was a team with Greninja and Mega Gallade, and those were both very threatening. So I was like, well, I'll run U-turn for Greninja, and I will run a flying move for Gallade, and I think they also had Ferrothorn, so like whatever, I'll throw a fire move on this. Again, thought about running Overheat. Probably would not have helped. You have Defog, I guess, if you want to switch in on a Pokemon as it's going for rocks. I don't really think that's a great idea. What else could you do? Oh, Acro. So that was the issue, is pads, you need to stop the move from hitting you, but you could run no item, and then you run Acro. Like, that's pretty good, because then, it's 110. It's really not that much of a dip in base power, and then you don't lose your priority nonsense. There's one more thing about this set. The issue is, I guess I ran into, Greninja has Water Shuriken, which I just die to, so it wasn't even very good for that role, but I really brought it for my other game, and I'm like, maybe it'll scare him or surprise him or something, whatever, and he'll prepare for it when I'm not actually going to bring it. You also notice stacking Stealth Rock weaknesses. So there was a game, I brought both of them. Interesting gambit, right? Because if they get Stealth Rocks up, I'm really, really hurting, and I had a little special defense against that, if you will, which you'll see later. I don't want to spoil. Gimmick set, love this. So same thing, Natural Gift. Here we go. One Natural Gift again, and I don't even know if it was Salic, but whatever berry, you can run again any one coverage move with this, and then when the berry is consumed, it enables acrobatics. So you have that with Swords Dance, Flame Charge, or whatever other fire move, Flare Blitz to cheese that, just fun little gimmick set. Then lastly, this is the set that I think, became way more popular in the other generations when Gale Wings wasn't as useful. But just this typing, right? Like your Moltres Light with way more speed and way better support and move pool, right? Again, Defog, but Tailwind also really useful. Like you can see some of these other guys are really slow, but they're not too slow that Tailwind doesn't help them out, right? Like I know with certain speed investment, Pangoro gets pretty fast. Will-O-Wisp's fantastic support move. Again, like people aren't expecting this, right? This is the other great part about draft is you can just kind of, poke holes where they don't expect holes to be. You can get some key turns, which can end up, we played best of 3, but end up winning you games, right? You have 1 or 2 of those, it wins you 2 games. Like that's it. That's the set, and you've successfully won. Defog Taunt also good, but Rocky Helmet and Flame Body just really, really punishing them, especially for U-turn because it does no damage. But any other sort of contact move, right? Like that they're going for. Let's see other moves. There's really not a whole lot else to use with Talonflame. Like, these are good moves, just not on this Pokemon. The Toxic, I guess, right? Like, there's not a whole lot else to go with here. So, those are the Pokemon that I brought, and then you can see these are the actual teams that I brought, but you don't know why I brought these teams. So, we're going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to go kind of week by week and talk about what 10 my opponent had, and then I'll show you how I kind of prepared for that, things I thought about, and how those games ended up going. So we will do that now. Okay, we're back. Let's do this. So, looking at some of the teams that I added here, we go ahead. We have our week 1 opponent. So Lando T, that's a threat if ever there was one. Volk, Mega Medicham, like really hard hitters. Toxapex, Excadrill is also really good. And then after that, we just kind of have some fluff, right? Amoonguss, Melodic, Haxorus, Hippowdon. So I would say some of the best Pokemon in the metagame off the bat, which was something I was a little scared for preparing for. Volcarona normally can get completely out of hand, but it gets totally walled by Charizard, with the exception of like a Hidden Power Rock or something, if that's something that they wanted to devote a move slot to. So I actually wasn't too worried about Volcarona. And just a variety of other reasons. I mean, obviously one is rocks, and I have Crawdon with Aqua Jet, so I wasn't worried about it that as much. And Lando, Hidden Power Ice on something. Mega Medicham was a pretty big threat. I did like, though, this is a key situation where Azelf's 115 base speed, I could outspeed even Jolly Mega Medicham without having to be timid myself. And so then I could just focus in power, and then just be like, all right, every time Medicham comes in, gets a kill, I can put in Azelf and, Shadow Ball or do something to kind of hit it back. Not to mention Toxapex, Amoonguss, both prime targets for Azelf, but also prime targets for trapping, right? So this team's got an interesting structure. I can just get rid of these guys. What actually was probably one of the largest threats to my team is Excadrill and Haxorus, and being Mold Breaker. So I don't remember, I think my opponent ran Mold Breaker, but if we go look, some of these other guys are not too threatening, except for like maybe, Loaded Pool gets a brain or something. But let's go, I will pull up my prep that I had. Essentially, my main way to stop these physical setup sweepers obviously was Quagsire. And Unaware, normally would do a good job at shutting these guys down. The issue being with Mold Breaker goes through Unaware. So both the Excadrill and the Haxorus, which Quagsire would normally be in charge of taking care of, it's a lot more useless against them, and that was a huge problem. I was running some calcs, and like Haxorus, I mean, first of all, it can be Swords Dance, it can be Dragon Dance, and you can run all kinds of, Dragon Claw versus Outrage, so you just don't know exactly how much power it's going to have. It was also, I think, one of my opponent's Z-move users, so like I had to watch out for that. So that was a huge threat, and I feel like I had to prepare for that a lot, and then my opponent ended up not even bringing it. But I had an interesting way to counter that. I'm also looking at this team. No Ghost Resist, no Dark Resist, and I don't really have any Dark types, but definitely a time to bring Aegislash, and you can just let that Shadow Ball rip, right? And none of these 10 want to take those powerful Ghost moves. So, breaking this down a little bit with what I did to actually counter this team. First of all, we got Azelf with the Psychium. So this is for Medicham. Removes Metacham, can also nuke either Amoonguss or Toxapex. I just thought, seems like a good idea. And then Psyshock, now it's going to be physical. So depending on how the Toxapex and Amoonguss are invested, if they are invested in special defense, I can just 2-hit KO them with Psyshock. But, if they're more physically invested in that first Psyshock wouldn't kill, that's when we can kind of use the Z move and it's going to be special and also just have a ton of power. Dazzling Gleam is also for Metacham in case it's like already chipped and I don't want to totally just blow my Z move. Rocks, really important for Volcarona. So interestingly, Psyshock, and this is the benefit of Psyshock, because it hits on the physical side, Volcarona's physical defense is way less than its special defense, especially after a Quiver Dance. So Psyshock actually does 50% to Volcarona, as does Stealth Rocks, right? In a fun little way. So kind of creates this pincher movement where just really slows down Volcarona. Also just U-turn to keep up that momentum. Pretty basic lead set. You'll see my earlier teams are definitely a lot weaker than my later ones. I feel like I got a lot better at draft as this went on. Creffadet, we got nicknames on these guys too. It's French for Azelf, and I like this guy. So nothing crazy there. Spinning off the perks, right? He is a washing machine. 50% berry. This is pretty typical. We got Will-O-Wisp for those physical attackers. Volt Switch is going to be great for hitting those walls that we go straight into Gothitelle, which you can see here, and just remove them. Pump for Landorus, also Will-O-Wisp for Landorus, and a lot of those other physical attackers, right? This is another way to slow down Haxorus. Kind of, if it's not Lum, this is an option, and if he is Lum, then, he's not getting the power boost from some choice item or Life Orb or something like that. Or physically defensive, again, to try to deal with, first of all, Landorus, but also Excadrill, if it is not Mold Breaker. This would obviously be a very strong counter and just deal with Haxorus a little bit better. So the other thing about my team is I don't really have like a proper ground immunity outside of Levitate, which like what team does, right? That's a pretty tall order, frankly. But just dealing, 2 Levitate Pokemon against 2 Mold Breaker Pokemon that can run Earthquake. Oh no. So I ran Air Balloon. Air Balloon, Aegislash, and I'm like, all right, this is what I'm going to do to shut down Haxorus. First of all, you got King Shield that, like, if he's just going to blatantly attack into you, Earthquake is not contact, but can't hit you with Earthquake when you're on a balloon. But King Shield can kind of slow it down if I really think he's just going to attack into me. But for the most part, I'm Steel type, and, Air Balloon, I don't have to worry about Earthquake. So he's got to hit me with some sort of Dragon move, and I can just, club it back with a Shadow Claw and then into a Shadow Sneak. Other thing being that if he is running Outrage and not Dragon Claw or some other maybe like Dark type coverage move, once he's locked into Outrage, I can King Shield on the second one, and it helps like neutralize that threat a lot more. So I ended up still running Quag. I guess I don't actually know why I did this. I guess for Landorus, or if the Excadrill was not Sandrush. Again, still learning at this point, but I love this technology. And spoiler alert, I did get to pull it off. So Stone Edge with Rindo Berry. This was a bait set for Volcarona that I figured, first turn, I could just switch into Quagsire. It would Quiver Dance. It certainly wouldn't go for a Grass move, or it would go for like a weak Fire move, which wouldn't really do that much. And then it would try to Giga Drain on the next turn, and no matter if they chip me or try to get to +1 with Rindo Berry, it just doesn't do enough. And I gave it just enough attack. You can see there's that small attack investment to make sure that Stone Edge just kills cleanly 100% of the time. So we also have Earthquake for some of those other guys, like just generally strong, but also good against Excadrill, and also Counter, which I love. I think Counter's fantastic, but this is, again, you get Haxorus, and Haxorus is at +2, and he's going crazy. Oh my gosh, and maybe this lives with Unaware. I don't actually even know. But point is, if I really just think a strong physical attack is coming, I can counter it. It's also interesting for like Landorus. If Landorus is going to U-turn out, I can counter and then do more damage to like an Amoonguss than I would normally going for Earthquake or one of my other moves. I thought was interesting. Gothitelle, definitely the MVP of this week, right? This set is just meant to troll those 2 poison types, right? So it's nice that I already have a decent attacking move that can do good damage without, it being like a coverage move. Like, this is Stab, and it's perfect for removing Toxapex, perfect for removing Amoonguss. And then on top of this, Substitute and Heal Bell just to keep me healthy so I can, stall forever. And then light screen. So we can set up light screen. First of all, enables us to stall a little bit better, right? Once we have that substitute up, they're going to need to break it with an attack. And Amoonguss, Toxapex, not really going for physical attacks. So we can actually get light screen up, and it makes our sub last like way more turns. Because you can think about this thing already has really good special defense, and the Pokemon that are hitting it are so weak that it's already going to take like maybe 2 turns to break the substitute. You get light screen up, all of a sudden that's 4 turns to break the sub. And, you can do whatever you want with that. But this is also good that it's not complete setup fodder for Volcarona. Because you can imagine if I'm behind a substitute and Volcarona comes in, one, that's why I'm running Psyshock, so I can like do good damage to it. But, a substitute doesn't mean anything against Bug Buzz. Bug Buzz is just going to smoke me. I have Psychic types on my team. I got a Dark type on my team. Like, running a Bug move makes a lot of sense. So Light Screen kind of helps mitigate the Volcarona coming in and just totally smoking me with Bug Buzz, and then I can get like a Psyshock off or maybe something else to not be complete dead weight after I remove something. And then Crawdaunt, right, we got some water weak guys on the other side. So we're just going to be running this pretty classic set. Not a whole lot else to say about that. Mystic Water, because I think it made a few rolls better that I can't remember exactly. But, he's going to get the job done. Mr. Craw, he's always going to pick up the phone. So I actually have replays as well if you want to go ahead and watch. This also, spoiler alert, is a bit of a beer league. So if you're not seeing perhaps the like absolute highest level of play, I think that a lot of people just do this for fun. I don't think they're really trying to invest 100,000 hours into it, which I totally understand. But this is my first draft league. I wanted to take it a little bit more seriously. Try to have some fun with it. So I'm gonna trade hazards here, going into Volk a little early. This is actually gonna end up burning me, which you'll kind of see how that plays out later. And then I go into Rotom and I just figure, I can take a Giga Drain. Let me just get rid of this guy. And that's what I did. I don't think that crit mattered. Maybe not the best play here, but now I'm seeing Toxapex and I'm like, this is the easiest Volt Switch in my life. So we're going to Volt Switch. We're going to go into Gothitelle. And then, Poison would be pretty detrimental here, normally, if I didn't have Heal Bell. But you can see here I can kind of take my time getting up the light screen, getting some chip damage in. I made sure not to kill Toxapex because I'm like, I don't want to be kind of caught out without a sub up. So you can see that Heal Bell also handy. It did heal the burn on Azelf, which I thought was cool, and I don't know if it actually ends up coming into play, but it's just also good, like a good clerical option. I was talking about that also in the team builder. We can see now Psyshock doing 51. Toxic Spikes. I don't even know. I guess just got tired of clicking buttons. We're gonna set up that light screen again. And let's see if we just make this a little faster. You can kind of guess where this is going, right? But I just like, with Gothitelle, I can really take my time and like think about how I want to structure this because their options are just so limited. And I can kind of accommodate for whatever else they have. But you can see we got this light screen up for one more turn. Amoonguss, interesting pick here, right? So this is just going to enable me to also trap this. My sub breaks to that foul play. So I end up also, I don't know why I didn't get another sub up, but I guess I was nervous or something. Anyways, Extra Drill comes in. This could be a little dicey, but I like this play with Aegislash because, Rapid Spin, it stops, which is good, keep the rocks up. But also, if he went for an Earthquake, it's really not doing all that much. So that was a bit of a read there, because if he went for a Steel move, I probably would have been in trouble, but I figured he wasn't going to do that. So Sacred Sword, just scaring out Extra Drill. It does exactly 100%. I think if they're not invested in HP, which I really loved, here I'm just sacrificing the Tickler, right? Like, this guy has done more than his job. We even got some nice chip damage off on Landorus. We're going to get hit with this Stone Edge. So now we're going to go Azelf. Sure, we're going to take the Stone Edge. He then, this reveals he's Scarf, even though I thought he was banned for some reason. Going to kill that with Psyshock, Metacham. And then I'm going to drop my Z move here, and that's going to go ahead and do 100%. No Fake Out coming out, and then this should just wrap it up, I believe. Iron Head, and then Aegislash here, again, for this specific job. We're going to take the Iron Head. We're not going to get flinched, and then we should do 100. But at this point, you can see we have 3 water types against Extra Drill. We were not going to lose that. So here's the second game. So similar lead. from him. I'm going to go ahead and lead off with Rotom, obviously because it does pretty well in the Landorus. And we can see getting that burn off, but you can imagine what's going to happen here, right? And then we can put on Hyper Fast. We're going to go into the Tickler and just start setting up again. So the other interesting thing is I really thought that Foul Play was doing way more damage than it actually was. You can see that my attack is so low, and I guess because of the burn, which I didn't even think about till now, he really was not breaking my subs even with Foul Play, so I could certainly take my time, getting more subs up. But you can see, we got Light Screen for many turns. I'm going to get more Psyshocks off here. He's attacking into Quag. I'm recovering. And I'm just figuring, like, oh, he's probably going to switch, right? Like, this doesn't make sense for him to keep attacking. And then, the one turn I counter, you can see he ends up switching on that turn. So Earthquaking into Extra Drill as he switches into Toxapex. Toxapex takes good damage from the Earthquake, so I guess that's also nice. Having Quag get that Earthquake off on Toxapex. I believe it's also faster. Again, now Toxapex is trapped, so we're going to put it back on Hyper Fast because we know how this is going to play out. I'm going to be up behind a Substitute, have some Light Screen, see how the rest of it plays out. So Extra Drill's here. This could be a little scary. Goes for Earthquake. All right, just getting some chip off. Not even sure if that's the wisest thing to do. It kind of could allow him to set up here, but I think getting that chip, maybe I'm not worried about it because I have Crawdon, and I just think, like, okay, worst case, I can Aqua Jet him. So Mold Breaker, we're still learning some mechanics. Earthquake is not going to work against Air Balloon, so I knew I kind of had an out there, and at this point, this feels pretty good. I'm going to Stance Change too, because again, I thought he was Banded, but he's actually Scarf, and so I'm like, all right, cool. Like, now I can just scout this, and now, he's not going to U-turn, and I know that I can just get a free attack off, so that goes into Volcarona, and that could have burned me, but honestly, I really don't think that would have been much of a problem. Obviously, you can see at this point, whoa, 100%, so that smokes me, but I wasn't really worried about losing as of. At this point, a lot of things do 50%. I want to show off my tech. Giga Drain, Rindo Berry, you can see it does a lot. He gets back to 100. If I had missed this Stone Edge, we would have had a real problem, but I think I was more excited to just show off my technology in the first game, and now Quagsire is probably going to go down this U-turn. That's fine. Metacham, and that's just not going to do enough damage to Aegis Slash, right? Like, we are immune and resist, so Zen Headbutt even, yeah, you're going to break the balloon, but you're not doing a whole lot past that. No flinch. Shadow Claw is going to go ahead and do 100. And then I think for the rest of the game here, we're going to Scout and then Stone Edge, right? Because if he goes for Earthquake, he can't hit Rotom. So being Choice Scarf ends up really hurting him here. So we're going to go ahead and take that week 1. So that was our first week. Going on to week 2, this was Rain. So I had Abomasnow specifically for this. And let's see what else I got. So you can see, Coco obviously going to take advantage of Rain with Thunder. Also just so fast. Oh my gosh, 130. It's pretty ridiculous. So I knew I probably wasn't going to outspeed that without a Choice Scarf. Had to find another option there. Dragonite with Multiscale. Good reason to get Rocks up, which actually the rest of the team is not that weak to. So that actually works out pretty well for them. Also, you could fire off Hurricanes or whatever, I guess. Jirachi kind of mitigates that fire weakness. Manaphy was one of the Z holders, obviously going to be taking advantage of Rain with just those like really powerful water moves. That's why we have Abomasnow. Mega Swampert was a must. Pelipper, you got to actually have your Rain, right? And I think that they drafted this pretty late. They could have gotten that Snipe. That would have been pretty bad. Not sure about Magnezone on this team. I'm not quite sure what steel types they were afraid of running Rain, but it's here. Maybe it's just trying to fire off some Analytic Thunders or something, and then Tangrowth, also good on Rain. I guess, Ferrothorn's off the table. This is also a really strong option, like 125 defense. And then just Incineroar and Tornadus, I guess, for Hurricanes. Kind of filler mons at that point in the draft. Like, you don't exactly have your pick of the litter. So, looking at this team, I'm looking at the guys that get Stealth Rocks, because, I'm thinking about bringing Charizard, and I'm like, that's obviously going to be a huge issue if they get up Rocks. So, Jirachi gets Rocks, Swampert gets Rocks. Thinking about just trying to sweep with Charizard. Abomasnow also does extraordinarily well in this team, not just hitting, Manaphy, but also like with Assault Vest, kind of walling Coco, can do a shit ton with Earthquake into Ice Shard. Dragonite obviously does not want to eat an Ice-type move. Jirachi takes a ton from any Ground-type move. Manaphy and Swampert die to any Grass move. Pelipper, I guess, is one of the best mons at like taking hits from it. Magnezone, like, pretty much dies to an Earthquake. Tangrowth doesn't want to take a hit. Maybe Incineroar, and then like Thundurus doesn't want to take like an Ice Shard. Ice Shard I think actually almost does 100 because this thing's stats are so poor defensively. So Abomasnow was just like a perfect pick for this one. I was thinking about Quagsire, but I just figured he's like not bulky enough that even without the water attacks, like he's probably just going to take too much. Also was definitely bringing Crawdaunt because, you know, if they're bringing rain, I can take advantage of that myself. Espeon also had a niche here I was talking about earlier. It outspeeds max speed Swampert in the rain with Choice Scarf and can Grass Knot and just OHKO it, which seemed like a pretty good idea. Yeah, so was a little worried about Rain and Charizard, but I just feel like with that kind of +1 boost, it still does really strong. Hail's also good because it scouts movesets. You can like it breaks multi-scale, and you can see if something has leftovers or not. So I will admit, now looking back at this, I don't think I even prepped that well other than Abomasnow, which was excellent. But Assault Vest just walled everything. Like this moveset just hit so hard that I was like, no matter who I'm bringing him in on, he can get the job done. Not to mention just totally blanks Manaphy, which did launch, you know, a rain boosted Z water, whatever it is, into me. Did like 20%, and then obviously a Wood Hammer does 1 Brazilian damage. Classic Azelf set, my favorite Azelf set. I think I could have foregone this and just made it an attacker because rocks aren't very important against this team other than for Dragonite, which like Hail breaks multi-scale and then Ice Shard does 1,000,000. And you just look at the rest of my team. Like, I'm not particularly weak to Dragonite. We have Gothitelle here. If I was Choice Scarf Thunderbolt, that just kills Pelipper, and then I swap into Abomasnow, and then the game's probably over. And I figured that they would prepare for that, maybe not bring Rain or be Choice Scarf U-turn, and like it'd be a speed tie, and that'd be annoying. That ended up not happening, so still had Thunderbolt. And I brought Torment. I thought would be a good option. I don't know why. I was experimenting with things, and then Trick Room, right? Like if you're gonna have that rain, like fast Swampert from the rain, and you have Tapu Koko who's insanely fast and Charizard who's really fast. You know, I got Mr. Craw who's nice and slow. I got Abomasnow who's nice and slow, and they hit like trucks against this team. So I figured, you know, there might be an opportunity to get a Trick Room up, and then Future Sight like helps me get some damage off, but also, you know, I can trap something. Maybe like Future Sight, set up the Trick Room, then swap out, and then like there's additional offensive pressure from the Future Sight, which should come into play. We also have some fun names: Your Mama Snow, Little Uzelf after Little Uzi, Mind Flyer, Rotopotamus. I mean, Mr. Crow's classic, and then Megasard X. You know, this was a choice band, right? No fooling around. I'm just running 4 attacks and I'm hitting hard. Really not a lot of set variety for Crawdaunt, except for maybe, you know, setup moves are considered in Life Orb, and like, you know, or booster item like I did last time, which is Mystic Water or like Dark Glasses, Black Glasses. So that's that. And then Charizard here. Dragon Claw, Fire Punch, Flare Blitz, Dragon Dance. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to just get a free turn and just go, you know, ham from there. Kind of trusting that Rain, I'll have other ways to deal with it with Abomasnow and whatnot, that we're just going to get to a point where we're just going to hit everything really hard. Because if you think about, you know, the Jirachi, the Tangrowth, the Magnezone, like especially Tangrowth, like that was one of my few ways to break through Tangrowth, was Charizard. Like Tangrowth definitely was a big threat for my team. So if we go ahead and watch those replays, let's check this out. So I'm actually going to lead off with Gothitelle, expecting Pelipper, and not going to get Pelipper, so we're going to Torment this. And I'm thinking I can just wall it for some reason. That's not particularly true. And then we go into Charizard and like kind of risked some status there. Just wanted to see what he was going to do. Didn't figure like he'd maybe status Gothitelle, and here catching this on the switch in, and it's going to U-turn, but it's not Choice Scarf. So as you can see, you're going to see like the Rain, I think, is Damp Rock. So the Rain's going to last a while, but, you know, could have just removed that. You can see here, I guess it wasn't in the Rain, but fires this off. It does such little damage, and now Abomasnow's just in. They're taking hail damage, right? You can go Pelipper, but Woodhammer still going to do, I guess, some damage. It's not particularly strong there, but that's okay because we really just need him later to just remove the Rain again. Confusion here on Hurricane is a little unfortunate, and missing the Will-O-Wisp. So a lot of this game is going to come down to trying to get rid of Tangrowth, and I think that had I just not ran Torment, but just ran like Toxic Protect on Gothitelle, it would have been a much easier week, but it was made complicated. So here, actually, this is an interesting situation where The Future Sight from the Gothitelle, I think that they just kind of forgot about, because I get it set up here. They go into Charizard, and I'm like, all right, something is going to die to this combination of these two attacks, so they choose Coco. Obviously, with the rain, it doesn't take all of its damage, but Future Sight finishes it off, which is nice. It saves me from some recoil damage, and Swamper's just like a big problem, right? So I'm trying to maybe finagle away where even with the rain, maybe I get 2 Dragon Dances up and I'm still faster. So was not expecting that Stone Edge, but obviously it makes sense. So that's going to take down a Bomb Snow, unfortunately, for this battle. So rain is not gone, and if they set it up again, I'm going to be in a lot of trouble, but I'm just trying, burn, hail, just trying to chip this thing down. I'm going to sacrifice Mind Flare, and now this should be another opportunity for Charizard. Oh, I guess we're going Azelf. Okay. So Azelf, you turn out. I think I'm playing really cautious and afraid of options that, to a certain point, you just kind of need to make a read. You can't prepare for everything. They can't be more than one moveset, right? So you kind of got to make educated guesses at certain points. You turn on Swampert, go into Rotom, which totally walled it. It was really helpful, right? Earthquake does nothing, Water Move does nothing, and if I burn it, it's in a lot of trouble. So it's forcing it to switch out every time. We're just going to go ahead and Volt Switch here. It's a little scary to obviously Volt Switch into Swampert, because maybe, with the Waterfall Flinch, it can break through Rotom, and I really don't want that to happen. Zen Headbutt, Rocky Helmet on this guy. We just don't do enough damage. But now, with Zard, I'm in a good position, because I'm like, all right, I got Rocks up. That'll stop Pelipper. This was a situation, I actually was very close to being able to Dragon Dance again. If I just had a little bit more HP, I could have just Dragon Danced again and won right here on the spot. Unfortunately, not going to happen. So we got to delay these rain turns now, right? So I'm protecting here, just trying to stall this rain out, because now the Pelipper is gone, so there is no more rain. So I'm more than happy to sit here and entertain this Tangrowth and just waste turns until the rain goes away. So now we brought in Mr. Craw. I don't even know if I'm faster here. I might not have been faster, which is why I guess I'm switching, right? I'm just trying to get rid of some of these turns. Mr. Rachi's going to Thunder Wave. Miss. That's really unfortunate. That being said, I think even if it hit, there was only one more turn of rain, so I think I would have just Dragon Danced again the next turn and still been faster than these guys, because obviously Swampert very slow without the rain. So here, Aqua Tail, 30%. I had a lot of opportunities to really stall this out, but you can see now I'm just going to protect and, throw out Hydro Pump, or I think I actually end up balling out and switching into Crawdaunt here. But from here, it's pretty in the bag. He just can't do enough to Rotom that I'm like, yeah, at this point, I'm like, let's just get the game over with. Differential does matter, so I didn't want to sack it for no reason. But, you can see with Aqua Jet there, we get the job done. Game 1. And then game 2. I believe this one was a little closer. Leading off with Azelf once more. I think we're just going to go ahead and trade Rocks. I think I could have ran Taunt or been a lot more assertive about not letting Rocks go up rather than having them go up on both sides. I think especially if you look at the team that they brought, yes, it's important for pressuring Pelipper, but other than that, Rocks really doesn't help me a whole lot. Other than the fact that, I don't know, I guess I could switch more, but with Regenerator, that's really slowing me down, actually. And Rocks is really bad for Abomasnow and Charizard, so could have been a little bit more on the ball about that. Again, not burning this and having Toxic on Gothitelle probably would have been pretty good. Maybe having Taunt on Gothitelle also would have been pretty good. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to die, and then I'm going to let Trick Room get up. Forget about my berry. So now I'm stuck in under Trick Room, where I've made my opponent faster than me. That wasn't very smart. Tormenting kind of for no reason, right? And now I'm just going to die, allowing him to, I guess, recover. He doesn't even do that. Oh, I guess because he can't Giga Drain twice. Lol. But I'm going to end up going down either way here. So last turn of Trick Room, I didn't know that, so I go into Rotom. I'm getting outsped under Trick Room. I could have gone into Crawdaunt and tried to get a nice crunch off. I don't even know if that would have done enough, but you can see, this is just not looking good. We got the Future Sight actually doing some damage, though, and now I'm going to go ahead and Volt Switch, get rid of that Leech Seed, and now we're in a position where, okay, maybe we can get something going. So that actually would have maybe been a good time to go Charizard, reduce that Rocks weakness and whatnot. We take 1,000,000 from this Volt Switch, and I just get Rocks up, because apparently that's important. I don't know why I did that, but Explosion on Pelipper stops it from U-turning out. That could have also been a way to get, Gothitelle in to trap it, if that was an option on the table. I'm not sure if this crunch mattered, the crit, it probably did, but that's neither here nor there. I think, again, at this point, Manaphy's gone, so a Bomb Snow is totally free to come in. And you can see with the Hail, Thunder ends up even just straight up missing, which is hilarious. I'll admit, I actually got pretty lucky this game, although I think if it went to a third game, I would have had that covered as well. But a lot of switching in this later part, just because I was trying to find particularly good matchups. I thought he'd switch again here, expecting the Will-O-Wisp to come in because I felt like that would cripple him, but he didn't really seem to mind. So sure, I'll go Mr. Craw. He's Healing Wishes. Crunch is going to miss. Now I'm locked into Crunch, which I guess isn't the worst thing looking at his team, but now Tangrowth is totally back. Oh, crap, that's going to be a real problem, right? Especially, I need to somehow get rid of these hazards soon or I'm going to be in a lot of trouble. Hail expires. Pelipper comes in, but with rocks, now it's being a lot more limited. And at this point, I actually don't want to remove the rocks because now, right, like rain is gone, So I'm going to protect here. I'm going to probably protect again. Like he goes into Pelipper again. Pelipper is just going to faint to the rocks. So I have officially beaten rain at this point. And I'm just trying to think like, okay, if I set it with Charizard at all, I win. So I'm willing to take the 50% from rocks just to kind of be put in this position where I can start to set up. So we'll Dragon Dance here. Now, also because I am Mega, I can switch in on rocks one more time. It changes my typing. Swampert's obviously going to try to hit me, but he doesn't really have that much more rain turns left, right? So I can protect here. Aqua Tail's not going to do enough. Now it's a roll. Plus it's also got a hit, but I guess I'm not willing to take the roll. So he's going to Aqua Tail into Crawdont, not do enough. And now I'm going to get this Aqua Jet off as I go down to Earthquake. But Charizard now, like, I'm faster. We're booming. We're going to get that Dragon Claw off. He could have gone Coco and made this, like, a lot more dicey and probably won. I don't think really realized what was going on with Pelipper there. Coco's now going to come in, fire off, and Electric move just knocked me out. I'm fine with that because at this point, I feel pretty strongly that a Bomb of Snow can do well in the last two members. So here we go. We're going to set up the Snow. Getting off a big Blizzard here. Knocking off the Assault Vest. Here comes the Blizzard. That does a ton. Obviously with some Hail Chip. And now we can simply Ice Shard. And that does a bunch too. So Coco's going to come in. And with the rocks, with the Hail, with the Ice Shard, he's going to be whittled down a lot. This Thunder ended up missing. But I actually got a min roll with that Ice Shard. If it had done any more, he would have died the next turn as Rotom just protects. He would have just fainted to Hail. But we end up pulling that one out. So interesting finish with Ice Shard of Bomb Snow really earning its lunch there, but it'll get removed from the team for the next weeks because obviously Bomb Snow does not match up into a lot of these other teams very well. So if we go look at week 3, this was an interesting team. So first of all, these core team members can all be taken advantage of, right? Double weakness to fire, double weakness to fairy, double weakness to ground, double weakness to ice. I really tried to avoid a lot of those double weaknesses with my team because I feel like it just allows your opponent to, run hidden power fire or have like one priority move that can really shut down entire strategies. So this was an interesting team to run into. You'll also notice, we got Azumarill, Slowking, Shaman, Galvantula, Cresselia, P2. I didn't think he was bringing Galvantula, which is only 108, which is the same as Cobalion. Other than that, Shaman is the fastest at 100, and there is no speed besides those members, right? Like, you have these two Trick Room elements here, but not, like, too many Trick Room abusers, honestly. So I was looking at this, and I'm like, I'm going to greed out and just run Swords Dance Charizard. I don't need that speed boost, and when it comes to Cresselia and Porygon, like, I'm going to need that extra boosted attack if I want to put a dent in some of these walls. So also picked up Rose Raid this week, so I think like this was another perfect opportunity for Rose Raid to shine, where like Dazzling Gleam could have OHKO'd Komo-O, and then like your choice of hidden power for like these other guys. I guess maybe not for Gliscor, but you can hit those other guys pretty well. Looking at these other ones, I guess because no poison type. He's got a lot of poison immunities, but Toxic Spikes was not a terrible option. And Aegislash also looked pretty strong, dealing with Crest, dealing with P2, with Sacred Sword. And just you can see like other Psychic type here. Also, Aegislash does a good job of shutting down Mega Scizor, other than like maybe a knockoff or something. So here is the team that I ended up bringing. So I thought, okay, Cobalion, right? We're faster than everything. Galvantula is a speed tie, but I didn't think he was bringing Galvantula for whatever reason. I guess because Webbed doesn't really do too well to me. I have so many like levitating guys like Azelf and like Charizard obviously is still immune to web as it comes in before it Mega Evolves. And I thought this was an interesting set. So Hidden Power Ice, actually after the Calm Mind boost will Oko. Gliscor also does good damage to Shaman. The fighting is really important for Como, can still hit, not Como, sorry, Heatran. Can still hit Scizor really hard, can deal with Porygon. And Flash Cannon as just kind of last general filler move. I don't know if I could have ran something else a little bit better, but this guy doesn't get too many other special attacks, right? I'm not going to be running Calm Mind and Volt Switch, but I totally screwed this up by slowing this down. You'll see I lose this game because I EV this improperly and then don't realize that when I'm playing, and it just totally cost me the first game, and then the second game is just an even bigger mess. But we can see that Roserade also like a really good lead. We got Sash, we got some spikes, at least get some chip damage off fight. We're playing a fat team, like let's prepare for that. Ice, I don't think was a good call looking back in hindsight. I already have Hidden Power Ice. I already have, guys that can cover that. So I don't really think that's necessary, but we got Sludge Bomb, we got Dazzling Gleam, I think was a good choice there. And Technician to boost that HP Ice. Shucka Berry, Aegislash, I guess. I don't even know what that was for. Pretty typical moveset, no boosting. Crawdont to try to shut down. I mean, pretty typical Crawdont set. And Charizard again. We're running Swords Dance this week because we are being especially greedy with Earthquake for Heatran. So just trying to break that balloon if he shows up with one. And then running this Trick set with Rotom, and perhaps getting a little crafty. You got a lot of like Slow King or Shaman, Crest, P2 sets that I just thought the Trick would be really good to cripple them. And then take advantage of that to like set up with Charizard or something. So nicknames pretty fun. All things that are, I would say, unavoidable or just like really intense themed. So let's see how these games went. Spoiler alert, they did not go well. So I don't even know which one was the first one. Let's see if I can remember by watching this. We're gonna go ahead and say this was the first game. Maybe it wasn't, but I ended up switching there, expecting a Magma Storm. Magma Storm, in fact, does not come out. Here, now I'm trying to trick. I got to get rid of this to be able to defog. This was an interesting play because he could have just gone into either his Mega or Z move person and abused that. But I wanted to make sure that the Como actually had the Z move, right? I wanted to scout that. Again, they can't use the Omni boosting move. So I wanted to just like observe that, I guess. But it ends up going on Shaman, which I'm like, all right, now this should help limit it a little bit. It's going to Seed Flare me. This does a ton. So I'm thinking like, all right, this is fine. I Calm Mind, and then the next turn I can hit it. Except, uh-oh, I'm slower. Like, totally messes me up here. Now I got to go into Roserade, and like Roserade at least double resists. Now I got to like make some sort of play here. So we got a Spike Up. He's toxic, so I can't even Sleep Powder. That wasn't too wise. I'm slower with this as well somehow. I don't even know how that happened, but like that's a real problem when you're looking at the substitute. Because otherwise I would have just like knocked it out, right, if I was faster. So that was a problem. Again, expecting to get like an HP Ice off. That doesn't happen because, again, I'm really, really, really slow, and he's really fast. So just creating a lot of problems for myself. But you can also imagine, like, this guy, so speed invested. Let me see if I have I think I have their team. Yeah, so we can see this Gliscor. Max speed, max HP. Like, this set was so greedy going into a guy that had so many ground immunes, right? Not to mention, you are running pretty much no attack. So either this was really smart or somewhat lucky. You can see we also just have like Subseed, my favorite, and then I didn't even think these other members really got to shine that much, but you can see they did have Lava Plume for Roserade that first turn, and then they did have a Trick Room mode, which makes sense. But here I'm gonna go Charizard, right? Leech Seed, they're locked into Leech Seed because of the specs, so I'm like, all right, we can try to do something here. So I'm gonna go ahead and just Dragon Claw, expecting the Heatran to come in and just at least break the balloon. We'll see if I actually end up staying in here. I don't, because I think I'm expecting him to maybe scout. And yeah, he protects, so this was an excellent play. This is an opportunity to get up rocks, or I guess keep the pressure on, right? So now, kind of hoping they don't have Earth Power. Switching again. Oh, look at all these switches that we're forcing. And then now we Hydro Pump, because realizing the Gliscor is a problem, and uh-oh, like, not good. Now Air Slash comes out, right? Which... pretty good. Now I got Aegislash, right, again, because I know that they are locked into whatever move they're going for. Sacred Sword is just going to totally thud into Gliscor. I think I was expecting maybe a Heatran there or a Porygon too. So now Earthquake does nothing. I don't know this, but he can't even touch me. So Porygon comes in, Hydro Pump. I think I end up tricking here to take their Violate. This is a game-losing play, I find out later, because otherwise Rotom just totally walled Gliscor forever, but now that I'm Toxic, I can't do enough to it because it's also Sub-Protect, and this just turns into a real problem. So you can see, kind of exposing Aegislash here. He's just going to sub, and this is going to take a while. But essentially, I'm trying to preserve HP on Rotom while also getting him to use all of his Earthquakes. So you can see he's got 13 left. And I have to somehow stall him out of every single Earthquake. But if I do, Gliscor is totally useless the rest of the game. So I have to use this HP that, you can see I just stayed in there. That, another Earthquake baited out. It's just too much, right? Rotom just doesn't have enough HP with being Toxic. I want to take the Shuckle Berry, right? Take 95 and, staying in here like a total boss, and then I King Shield on the Earthquake. I'm getting 90% of these plays right, but it's just, at this point, it's already too late. So, was not happy with this one. I think that this was a week that I could have prepared better. I think I learned a lot kind of going through this league. And after this, I was running max speed on everything from here on out, because I'm never again will I have this problem, because this just totally would not have been an issue if either of these guys had any speed, right? This thing would have been dead to HP Ice a long time ago. So, frustrating. And then the other game, which I believe is this one. Let's see. Or was it in Heatran? No. So it was this one. Oh. What happens this turn? Spikes. Oh, so this was, I guess, the game one, and why the mind games were a little bit different the second time around. But getting the spike up as the level goes up. Now I'm bringing in this guy, getting a little lucky dodging that knockoff. And now, I guess just thinking that he'd switch around the Aqua Jet. He doesn't. So I ended up taking a Lava Plume and a Will-O-Wisp target at me. Not getting burned is pretty lucky. So you can see the Shaman's about to get to business. This is another problem with the team that I brought, is I think just wasn't the right kind of setup, I guess, and way too willy-nilly about getting rocks up, because now, Charizard's in a position where it's getting threatened, but I just couldn't do couldn't meaningfully break the substitute. So here you can also see this game. This is the second game, and I kind of end up getting cheesed. So I realized, all right, I'm slower. Let me just break, thing with Hidden Power Ice. Cobalion's pretty much useless because of how slow it is. To another Air Slash, and I'm like, okay, Hidden Power Ice. Oh, if he's just going to let me attack me, I can drop my Z-move. I can kill this right here, right? So eat this Air Slash. This guy is not Serene Grace. I get flinched. My Z-move was coming out there, and it would have just killed him, and this would have just been the end of Shaman. Instead, now we got to deal with more nonsense. I'm going to Air Slash this. You can see it's just recovered completely back up to full. Bummer! Shadow Claw, gonna go ahead, do 46, but 46 is not 98 or whatever he was at before, so we have once again entered into the Subseed vortex here. I think also I could have realized that no Protect, as long as I'm faster, I can get some chip off, but yeah, Shadow Sneak there, and then I faint. So I'm alright, we gotta do something now. We're gonna go Charizard, we're gonna try to make this work. Air Slash does a bunch, and Dragon Claw, I end up knocking it out, but I can't even switch in again without Rotom. Getting rid of rocks, right? I can't Flare Blitz this because I'm going to run out of HP. Gets the special attack boost from download. And here's the worst part. Tri-Attack, Freeze, stops me from defogging. Now my whole team just loses. I defog there. There was a way out. Now there is no way out. He's even slower with me with Trick Room. I didn't even really consider that properly. This faints. Charizard faints, and Cobalion's just not going to beat enough HP, even though it's pretty much immune to rocks, which is lovely. So this was just a really disappointing week for me, I feel like. Woke me up, though. So going forward after, I wanted to come back in a big way. This was my week 4 opponent. We got Celesteela, with these well-rounded stats. Garchomp, Feeny, with the terrain, which is an interesting combination with Garchomp. Obviously, is weakening Garchomp. Interesting. Thundurus, Mega Diancie, Alakazam, Conk, Blaziken. Also in our league, there's no Speed Boost. Speed Boost specifically on like Blaziken, was banned. So this was just going to be a Blaziken, which with 80 speed I really wasn't worried about. Gyarados, and then finally Umbreon. So trying to come back from a tough loss, I wanted to prep a little bit more. And we ended up going with the following team. I think I actually ended up changing this a little bit later. So first of all, Choice Scarf, Hidden Power, Steel for Diancie. So you had to run max speed with Timid to be able to outspeed Diancie, but then you're not strong enough to actually knock it out. Oopsies. So didn't really think about that. I guess was trying to deny rocks kind of turn one. Not let it get those rocks up, because otherwise I don't have too much to deal with it. But that ends up not really working out because Hidden Power Steel doesn't do enough. Trick to get rid of that later and like cripple something, but also like Thunderbolt, obviously because of Gyarados. It can just like trap and remove Gyarados. Feeny, it can do a lot too. And Celesteela, it can trap and do a lot too, so I thought that was strong. And Psychic. And these are all literal names is our theme for this week. Quagsire is excellent, right? Blaziken, it totally walls. If the Celesteela is physical, it should also totally wall it. We have Recover, Counter, Encore, Earthquake. This is fun, just stops things in their tracks. Doesn't really get any momentum, but makes up for all the momentum lost by using Gothitelle. We got Rotom here, Reflect, but really just spreading paralysis and making the rest of the team do their job a little bit easier. Nice little pivot. Electrium, Azelf. So I'm also realizing now I could have gone with like Iron Tail into Diancie and just knocked it out that way, but I also like this set because I was looking at their team and it kind of shreds through them. So Thunder was for Celesteela or for Tapu Fini. Obviously I have the Psychic type for Blaziken and Conch. U-turn to switch out against Umbreon into something else, also just be like a nice pivoting move, but Psychic also does like a ton to Thundurus, and yeah. Levitate is interesting because it makes me immune to Garchomp Earthquake, but then also I don't get the Misty Terrain like weakening of the Dragon moves. Otherwise, I could have kind of just stayed in on Garchomp, which I think I might even actually do. And then Air Balloon, Aegislash, right? Deal with Garchomp, because that ground and Dragon coverage only works until, you know, I have a Steel type that also has a ground immunity. So fun. I got to run Pursuit this week. That was for Alakazam. Everything else was covered by my other moves. There's a lot of teams that don't have any answer for Ghost type attacks, and I figured Umbreon probably wasn't coming. I don't know why I just assumed that. I guess actually it would have done quite well on my team. But we also have Hidden Power Ice for Garchomp to kind of be a cheesy little bait set. We got Shadow Ball, and we got King Shield just to return to our Shield form if need be. And then lastly, Koba Berry, just for any sort of weird flying nonsense. And we had Hidden Power Electric, again, just spamming electric moves this week with like many of our guys because the opponent is so electric weak and people didn't really see this coming. Sludge Bomb for Feeny, and just for good neutral damage on a lot of other targets. Sleep Powder, obviously really strong, and Spikes to get some hazards up once that Diancie has been trapped and removed. So let's check these replays out, and I think that these replays went a lot better if I do recall. So game one, successfully trapped Diancie. Yes, it sets up, doesn't do enough. And they're going to get rocks up, and I'm going to remove it, but now I'm like, I'm kind of locked into Hidden Power Steel. That's not fantastic. So Feeny's going to come in. It's not the worst problem in the world, right? Obviously, I have Rotom, and I can just use that to pivot out here. They're going to Calm Mind. Moonblast does a ton. I got my 50% berry. He's got my back, so I can come in, troll later. Full Switch. Doesn't do so much, even though it's max special attack. Now Rose Raid comes in, and I figured that, you know, I resist both your stabs. I should be strong enough to take you on. Blaziken comes in, gets Sludge Bombed. Here's the thing. I'm 90 speed, you're 80 speed. I can just Sludge Bomb again. Like, Blaziken is not fast enough to, I think, really be that strong. This was fun. So Sleep Powder. Misty Terrain, not blocking status if you are flying type. So we're going to go ahead and put that to sleep. Hidden Power, at this point, it's revealed it's electric. But I got Quag for Garchomp. I'm not worried at all. Fire Fang. That's doing nothing. So going to go ahead and pop the Z move here. So this was one of their Z move users. This is Z Outrage. Does a ton, counter, see you later. So I actually get hit with the rough scan, but I was so happy with that, like using that tech, getting rid of their Z move user, getting rid of a threat to my team. We're going to Encore here too. Primarina does this well too, where you're slow and like something thinks it can just come in and set up on you, and like that's not true, right? Like you encore it, and then all of a sudden it's forced out, and it makes life a lot easier. Sludge Bomb here as it sets up. Again, I'm Koba Berry, so even Hidden Power flying I wasn't really too worried about, but I wanted to see what they do now. Thunder Wave, not even gonna do any damage or any effect on Quagsire, and we'll take the Dark Pulse. But at this point, Quagsire, you know, have a nice rest. I think I'd also trapped this with Goth, but I just figured why not start firing off some Psychic moves. So I had my Z move here, but I wanted to be cheeky. I actually tried to save this intentionally for the second game to catch them off guard. So now Goth is in. I'm faster. I can just trick it, and I didn't really mind what it went for. Like now it's faster than me and strong. So even though I stole its 50% berry and ate it, I still go down. But now you're stuck in Moonblast, right? So I can just... I don't even know what I end up hitting it with here. Let's see. Shadow Ball does some nice damage, but we kind of protect, stall out this Terrain. Terrain gives a pretty big bonus in this generation, so just trying to let that die out, and then you can see Moonblast is pretty much doing nothing, even though it gets a special attack drop. So this is actually Toxic. Okay, so the team that I showed you, I guess I made some changes on, because I remember I was on my laptop for this one. So I guess I switched to Toxic, perhaps over Hidden Power Ice on that, but once the Terrain is gone, you know, it deals with that pretty well. Autonomize, taking some damage from Hidden Power, but at this point I can just put it to sleep. I'm not worried about Tapu Fini coming in, and I'm still faster after the Autonomize, so not EVing that to really be that fast. You know, 60 times 2 is not fast enough without any investment. So it's going to wake up. Leech Seed here, that's not going to work on a Grass type. At this point, the game's pretty cooked. So Fini comes in. It's already Toxic. It's also like choiced, so it was pretty toast. And we can just go ahead, remove it there. Game 2. Thundurus as I lead Azelf. Trying to get some momentum here. I didn't want to get Thunder Waved, so go into Rotom. Going to go ahead and take that nicely. Getting up a Reflect in case I guess you wanted to switch. And then here we're going to Volt Switch out. And now I'm going to go into Azelf, and I guess my thought was at this range I can just OHKO it, so I don't really care about Thunder Wave, but I U-turned expecting him to switch and not want this to go down, but he doesn't really mind. And then Quagsire is unaware, so that boosted Dark Pulse doesn't actually really do any damage. Autotomize here, but again, I'm slower and I have Encore, so I'm just going to Encore you into it. All right, we're doing very well with the team thus far. Azelf comes in. So I know that they can't one-hit KO me, right? They have that 50% berry. They're going to get up the Reflect thinking I'm physical, but guess what? I'm not physical, and also I'm Z. So perfect use of the Z move there. Also showing off, you can see they got the Reflect up, expecting Azelf to be physical, and it wasn't. I don't know if that Psychic mattered. I think I maybe could have taken a hit anyway. I also could have just done like 90-something% to this Diancie, and you can see here, you know, in Power Steel, it's still not going to do enough, I think, even if I didn't get the drop. So I could have just stayed in, right? Like, I'm at +2. I think I could have just knocked this out. Whoops. But at this point, like, I'm pretty safe. Again, I totally walled Diancie with Aegislash. As you can see, Air Balloon, I guess people don't really know what that item does. Now, we're going Blaziken. You know, with Unaware, this attack boost doesn't even mean anything. I'm Quagsire. Quagsire really put on a show this week. Encore. Gonna fail, but I don't really mind because, again, I'm just gonna keep encoring until something's here, and then it gives me a setup opportunity, or, you know, expecting a switch perhaps. I go Rotom. Game should be pretty simple from here on out because I'm just gonna Volt Switch every single time. Azelf, I outspeed. They got a Thunder Wave, and we're gonna go ahead and get rid of that. But these last two mons can't even really threaten me. I'm actually paralyzed here. Take some damage from Flash Cannon. I'm like, I'm not gonna deal with that, right? We're not gonna let this guy set up and do some crazy stuff. So Leech Seed, we're just going to keep discharging here, fishing for that Paralysis, or I think I might switch out here just to stop their recovery from the Leech Seed at least. Yeah, nice. Roserade, Hidden Power, and I'm also Focus Sash, so we're pretty fine from this point in time, but as you can see, I'm also just faster, so that's going to go ahead and clean that up. So far, doing like pretty well with my record, only lost one, kind of to some cheese, and obviously like a pretty clear blunder by myself with those EVs. And at this point, we're kind of halfway through the season, so we got an interesting second half coming up in just a second. Keeping it going, week 5. This is a very interesting team because you can see these first 3 members are super fast. So they got this thing 143 speed, Zeraora. Tornadus also extremely fast. Lopunny also extremely fast. From there, it drops off. Hydreigon is going to be a little slower, 98 and 100, and then we're just going into some really slow members as Bronzong at 33, Jellicent at 60, 65, Chandler kind of, I guess, middle speed tier, and then this is very slow. So kind of not much in the middle range of speed tiers or something I noticed, and I thought, okay, against a team like this, really getting a jump with Dragon Dance is going to end up making a pretty big difference. I'm also looking at this team, and I'm thinking this is a good opportunity for Charizard to shine. I think that a lot of these bottom 5, like all of them have some sort of edge against Charizard, but I think I could just kind of either keep boosting or really just expect these first 5 to show up and fare pretty well. Looking at some of the other prep that I did, nothing too crazy, but I guess also considered T-Spike for several of the members, especially like the fatter members. Like all these guys would have a real problem with T-Spikes. And here's the actual team that I ended up bringing for week 5. Boop. Okay, so Charizard, Flare Blitz, Outrage, Roost, Dragon Dance. So we're just going kind of all out with the power and not really thinking, and just going fast, fast, fast. I think this speed was for outspeeding Zeraora at +1, but that could be wrong. Even a little bit of special defense. I can't remember exactly what this investment was for. Oh well. Technician Roserade, getting those toxic spikes up. We also have Hidden Power, Ground, good for Zeraora, good for Victini, good for Bronzong if it is heat proof. All of our nicknames are Lord songs, by the way, if you didn't catch on to that. And Sleep Powder, obviously, just because Sleep Powder is really good. Slows them down, can sometimes just like remove one of their Pokemon. Volt Switch is good for preserving momentum. We got Rocks, we got Shuckaberry to deal with Earth Power from Hydreigon so that we can kill it back with close combat. And Iron Head for Florges if they end up bringing Florges. Otherwise, just like another good coverage move. Again, I guess this investment was for Hydreigon. You can see I have like some weird special defense and some less speed. And I think that that was a Pokemon I was really worried about because, you know, Dragon does well in the Charizard. Dark does good into a lot of my other guys. I just figured, you know, my team is so Dark weak that they're going to end up bringing Hydreigon. So I wanted like a really rock solid counter to it. And then, of course, if they do hit me with a Dark move, we do have that justified. So Akaberry on the Aegis Slash. I think this was to help deal with Victini so that I can just knock it out with a Ghost move in return or just something else that was running some sort of fire coverage. Maybe, I think I would still die to a Chandelure attack, but it just would help me in both those matchups. You can see I'm very, very bulky, and we're physical. We're running some different moves here. I ran this set like most weeks, as you can kind of tell. It really gets the job done because the Ghost and Fighting coverage like covers most everything. Obviously, Ghost is just resisted again by so few Pokemon, so few types. And then Shadow Sneak is there for priority. So we got Ghostium, Z Azelf. Again, I'm looking at their team. I'm seeing a lot of Pokemon that are weak to Ghost and Psychic on their side as well. So we have Z Shadow Ball for that, for Chandelure, for Victini. We also have Dazzling Gleam for Hydreigon, and just Psychic as like our last kind of coverage move. And then we're also running Calm Mind here. So interesting why I picked Calm Mind over Nasty Plot. I think that I only needed a +1 boost for like a lot of these moves to end up killing, and I just figured maybe that'd be helpful against Hydreigon or Victini or something. And then last, Trace Scarf, again, running a trick set, Volt Switch, Hydro Pump, Defog, just for those fat guys, just like tricking the Choice Scarf to them, I think would be helpful. Again, I'm running a very specific amount of speed that I don't remember what this is for, but I imagine it was to outspeed some of their faster threats, because as you can see, like with Lopunny and some of them, they did have some very fast threats. So let's go ahead and watch that one, week 5. And these were fun games, I remember. So you can see here, we have no Dragon Resist. That looks really good for Charizard. Knockoff, right? I'm just scouting. Okay, maybe this guy's going to U-turn or something. Trying to find out more about this set. You you know, taking the U-turn here in case that U-turn wanted to show up again. We can Volt Switch out. Go into Charizard. Take this fire move. Wow, so this does so much damage. I'm like, how did that happen? Giving away the choice specs. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to Mega and Roost, right? Like, so I feel like not really getting the right amount of juice for the squeeze there because, you know, if you're going to reveal your choice scarf, an item that your opponent really can take advantage of, you usually want to try to get something out of it. So I'm going to go ahead, you know, I'm really boosted up here. Now I'm just going to launch these outrages off. We're getting rid of Lopunny early is really good. Getting rid of Zero Aura early, again, I think that's what that speed was for, is making sure at +1 I can outspeed it. I don't know what's going on with the switching there. Like, I'm locked into outrage. And you can see my game plan is going swimmingly so far. And then I hit myself and I die to a choice specs Shadow Ball. So again, I probably could have just taken out the entire team if I didn't hit myself for whatever number of turns, which obviously a certain amount of luck involved. Here's where that Hidden Power Ground comes into play. I actually didn't even need to risk the Sleep Powder, I guess, if I assumed they were going to stay in. But here, I'm Sash. So, you know, getting some chip off here. But actually, I shouldn't have Sleep Powder the first time, and I should have Sleep Powder the second time. But this Victini, I'm also noticing, I believe, was choiced as well, which is why I switched into Rotom here, and then I can just Volt Switch. I can go into Azelf. I'm thinking, great, I'll outspeed and Dazzling Gleam. This is also choiced. Like, most of their team is choiced. It was unbelievable. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess we'll just kind of play these options out one at a time. So now Victini is choiced. It goes for Energy Ball here. That was a nice read, honestly. But the thing is, you know, you're stuck using that move. So now you're stuck staying in and using Energy Ball. Just gives me a free close combat. Like, it seems good. But then you're put in a situation like this where I'm totally willing to take whatever attack. You know, Dark Move's not going to knock me out. And I believe my Balloon, or my Shucka, I still have my Shucka. But yeah, I'm just going to take that because, you know, you don't have one move that covers all of my remaining team members. So just choice items galore. If we actually look at the team, you can see the Thunderous also, this person did not like running Hurricane because it was inaccurate, which I would still run it. But, you know, what do I know? Hidden Power Grass I thought was interesting. I think that was for Quagsire, but you can see Choice Scarf, Choice Band, Choice Specs, Choice Scarf, and then Mega Lopunny. So a lot of this second game was essentially like, you know, just waiting for them to kind of swing, if you will, and throw out an attack. And pretty much no matter what, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have this covered because I think actually this was the first game. So you can see we were talking about the timer. I was like, oh, sorry, I usually put a timer. So no timer this week. Actually, most weeks no timer. Outrage. Outrage is a very interesting anti-Charizard technology, but maybe not the right move that first turn, because then you're locked into it, and it gives me a chance to Shadow Claw. So I think... no, I think that other one was the first game. Yeah, because it was saved earlier. But now, at this point, I generally know what the sets are. I try to Volt Switch here, thinking they're not just going to go into Zero Aura, but they do. Alright, that's pretty nice. Like, I'll just sack Roserade here, see what they're going to go for. Again, because at this point, I know they're banned. So now, I could just go Charizard, I guess. Or I picked Aegislash, King Shield, getting up more of that damage from Toxic Spikes. Also lowering their attack, so now I get a free attack. Torn comes in. I'm going to get that Shadow Claw off. I don't really want to take a knockoff, so I'm going to go ahead and King Shield again, but they have Defog, and status moves go through King Shield. That is important to keep in mind. So that was a little spooky, and now I guess they don't want me protecting again. I was expecting them to switch because I thought that, you know, Shadow Claw would do a lot. They don't. I look like a fool again. Rotom is going to go ahead and take that knockoff, and it's in a position where I'm like, should I go for a water move now? And I do, and I miss. So, bummer. That probably would have knocked this thing out, but, you know, such is life. Close combat. Again, I know they're banded, so this is just giving Charizard a turn, and Aegislash as well. I think that this is something that, you know, I could have just gone. I thought they were going to switch here, obviously, because, you know, they're just going to let this die, but I guess they were willing to sack it. I'm going to go back into Aegislash on what I expect to be a close combat. I'm going to go back into Cobalion, because now I'm like, they don't have any actual moves to hit me, right? They got U-turn, knockoff, defog, taunt. Like, they don't have anything to actually hit me with. So now I'm going to try to Volt Switch again, because I didn't expect them to go into Zero Aura, because I was like, I'm going to go close combat. So a lot of, like, hard reads coming out from this other player, which was interesting to see. I think I just King Shield there. No, I actually do attack. Shadow Sneak, because at that point I'm just trying to finish off. So this Zero Aura has been a huge pest, even though it's been Toxixed. or poisoned, and like should have died many turns ago from me making different reads and stuff. But yeah, now knockoff, I'm going to reveal that Shuckleberry, but I also have an attack boost, so I'm feeling pretty good. I got my rocks up here, and I'm like, you know what, whatever. Like, we'll just go ahead and sack Cobalion here because they're going to go for that fire move, and Charizard gets its turn to set up, and then I'm chilling. So they're going to switch out, but at this point, it's too late because I've got my Dragon Dance up. The game is over. So, Flare Blitz. Obviously taking very little recoil. Lopunny's going to come in here and going to go ahead and Fake Out. I thought they might try to swap out Lopunny to recycle the Fake Out, so I went for Roost once just to see if that was going to happen. End up taking the return. It's like, whatever, alright, if you're just going to stay in, we can just get to Outraging. That's one Outrage. I'm going to go ahead and launch another Outrage, take out Torn. Now they're just kind of thinking about what guys they want to sack. Except for turns out their Victini was Choice Scarf. Again, because I don't think that would have been revealed yet. Oh my goodness, like, this is unbelievable. Like, whatever, I'll just take the Shadow Ball. And, you know, I didn't have another great member to take it with, but, you know, they're Choice Scarf, they can't be that strong. Pop my Z move, gonna go ahead and take them out. Hydreigon. I think this was the game that I actually discovered they were... No, this was the second game. So I'm like, whatever, I'll sack this. And then it all comes down to Aegislash living this Dark Pulse and not flinching. I don't think that they had a roll where it could kill, but it ends up barely paying off. Sacred Sword, and then now with Rocks, Shadow Sneak is just going to go ahead and finish off Chandelure. I even get burned. So this ended up being a little bit closer, but, you know, obviously that Hydro Pump miss was pretty clutch, but really Charizard kind of had it from the rip, if you will. So now I'm like, all right, we're kind of bouncing back. We got these 2 wins in a row, and this opponent I knew was going to be a real tough one, just because they're a strong player, and their team was also pretty well crafted. So I was a little bit more concerned. But Greninja in our league, you can't be Protean and you can't be Battle Bond. So I'm like, all right, it's just going to be Torrent. That's not good. It only has 103 special attack, but that speed is actually nothing to be trifled with. Mega Gallade hits like a truck. It's got a lot of attack. It also close combat has very high base power, but and it's got really good coverage. But I just still think that the coverage options are too weak, right? You look at like Ice Punch is 75 base power, Knockoff is Knockoff. I just don't think it's as strong as it's sometimes made out to be. It obviously has priority in Shadow Sneak, but like that's not even stab. And 110 speed was a bit of an issue. Zapdos is really strong. Helps shut down Charizard with like a static opportunity and can wall some of my other guys, so that was something that was a problem for me. Ferrothorn is obviously an interesting conundrum because in theory this would be a good mon for walling Charizard if it wasn't for the double weakness to fire, and that's something I obviously am going to try to take advantage of no matter what. Nidoqueen here can get up rocks and cause headaches, obviously is really strong. Great counter to Aegislash because that Earth Power is Stab, Life Orb, Sheer Force. It just does way too much. Even if I'm like completely invested, it really does a lot of damage. Rotom Heat, so they've got their own Rotom form. I was curious about how I was going to end up taking this down because again, this is a mon that can do well into Aegislash. It can do fairly well into Charizard, right, where it can have an opportunity to Thunder Wave. If I don't run Outrage, but, you know, I can't really run Outrage because Sylveon is something I'd have to consider. Cofagrigus with Trick Room, and it was slower than all my guys. So I was like, well, this can totally be a problem and get out of hand if I don't keep an eye on that. Sylveon, obviously does big damage, also good at walling Charizard, hitting back, and with Wish and Protect, I didn't have anything that could like do very well into it, other than Gothitelle, and then it also learns Shadow Ball, which normally this thing has no coverage, but Shadow Ball is the only coverage it needs against my team because it hits Gothitelle, it hits Aegislash, it hits everything else that it would need to hit, and you know 110 special attack is really strong, and it even can like kind of wall any of my special attackers, right? If I'm running Aegislash, I gotta have a Steel move, I gotta kind of be running Iron Head, and then I run Iron Head that opens me up to like nonsense with Zapdos, but also with like Volcanion, which again, like this is a good answer to Charizard, huge defense stat, double resist fire. It was looking tough, and then Cryogonal I was not worried about. But this was a team that took a lot of prep, and I feel like I still wasn't too happy with what I ended up spitting out. But I think I decided Charizard, even though it like could kind of break through some of their team, but they would kind of structure their team a lot around beating Charizard. So I thought Rotom Heat Cofagrigus, like Volcanion, some sort of combination of that, like Zapdos. I didn't really want to worry about that. So I was trying to kind of strike where their weaknesses were. So we got Choice Scarf, Azelf, and I'm like, look, I'm not faster than Greninja, so like let's try to have some sort of answer to Greninja. This also works well for Gallade. Is like I have Thunderbolt, I have Dazzling Gleam. Dazzling Gleam hits both Gallade and Greninja, but like I also have Thunderbolt for some of those other guys, right? Thunderbolt also hits Volcanion. I have Psychic just to like do a bunch of damage, and I can also Trick. So if they go into those slower guys like the Cofagrigus, right, we can ideally trick that, and then it's like stuck, you know, getting Trick Room up and turning it off again over and over and over, or something like that. Cobalion, Stealth Rock, Close Combat, Iron Head, Taunt. So this was, I believe, my lead, and the idea was just kind of stop Ferrothorn or stop whatever was trying to get rocks up, and hit back really hard. Obviously, Fighting does well into Ferrothorn. And then Iron Head was, in the case of them bringing Sylveon, that was really the only mon it covered, and getting rocks up myself, and only enough speed. Like, I'm already not outspeeding Glade, I'm not outspeeding Greninja, and I didn't really care about Zapdos because obviously this thing goes so terribly into Zapdos that I think I actually maybe gave it enough for Zapdos, but maybe not like max speed Zapdos. Maybe their Zapdos was slow, but I wasn't too concerned about Zapdos with this guy. We got Dragon Ball Z nicknames, by the way. I thought Mr. Popo was really funny, and I like the Super Saiyan. Krillin, this is the same set, pretty much, that you see every time. I just thought it'd be nice. I did run Superpower this week with the only change to do a little bit more damage to Ferrothorn, but for the most part, it didn't really matter, right? Crunch and those other moves are going to do more. Can also kind of take advantage of Greninja because it resists water, it resists dark. Like, obviously, you got to worry about taking a U-turn, but I still thought that, you know, have a good position. And try to give it enough speed to be faster than like Volcanion, some of them, and still be able to get off a big hit. Water moves helpful for Rotom, right, and Nidoqueen, that if I can get them weakened, Aqua Jet will just kind of sweep through them. I also resist Shadow Sneak, so again, if I just weaken Gallade, Aqua Jet does really good stuff. What else was I concerned about with this? I don't know. He hits hard. There's nothing more to say. Trapping. So here's my trapping idea with this is I was going to remove Ferrothorn. So I'm like, all right, Ferrothorn's going to kind of be a pain in the butt for a lot of these other guys, but we have Hidden Power Fire to take it out. I guess I don't really need to be that fighting invested with Cobalion then. But Future Sight, also good to take advantage of, you know, kind of forcing these spots where a Pokemon's got to take 2 attacks, right? Like you can do a Volt Switch with Future Sight up, and Nidoqueen can't just like switch in safely. It's going to get nuked by Future Sight. I think this also was to remove Nidoqueen too, that I could get the Future Sight up. I also have Mirror Coat here. This was interesting for Volcanion. I figured, you know, it's going to be like a special attacker, so I can kind of be like a makeshift Wobbuffet, where I come in, I Mirror Coat. He does, you know, 50% with Hydro Steam, and then I just remove it with Mirror Coat. And then I also had Thunder Wave here, in case Greninja or Gallade tried to come in after I knocked something out, and they like wanted that turn to set up. This would stop them from, I guess Greninja can't really set up, but the Thunder Wave would stop them from like getting away with that, if you will. And then Shadow Ball, Iron Head, Shadow Sneak, or Sacred Sword, Shadow Sneak. It was a very weird mixed set, but I think I needed exactly this. Like, I wanted Shadow Ball just hit like most targets very well. We had Iron Head for Fairies. We had Sacred Sword for Ferrothorn. A little bit of everything with Cold Berry, just because I know Gallade. You know, this was a very good Gallade counter, and I just figured, you know, Gallade's going to run a Dark-type move to try to beat me. It also was good against Greninja, right? We can just stay in against Greninja and Sacred Sword, and ideally knock it out. And then last one's Rotom. Again, pretty decent support, Will-O-Wisp, and defog away some of those hazards. They end up getting it up, Volt Switch out, you know, and this puts a lot of pressure on him, because if I use Volt Switch and, you know, it hits a Ferrothorn, or it hits something else going to be trapped, we just go straight into Gothitelle and remove it, which I thought would be pretty good. So looking at this team, I think it's too much support and too much like niche utility options, and I really just needed a breaker. Like, this Aegislash is not really going to be breaking enough. I could have run some sort of setup. I think Charizard does well enough in their team that even dealing with all the nonsense with Volcanion, dealing with the nonsense with Ferrothorn, like just trying to get rocks up or something else to deal with those guys a little bit better, so that I can set up and Volcanion doesn't like stop my sweep, I think would have been a better option than what I ended up doing. So here is how those games went. Here was the first one. They lead Ferrothorn, I'll lead Cobalion. Like, alright, we're definitely going to shut this guy down, right? So we're going to go ahead and taunt, stop the Leech Seed. Zapdos comes in, I get my rocks up, but I don't want him removing said rocks. So I've gotten all these turns correct. I'm feeling like the man. Heat Wave. Whoopsies. I don't know what I was expecting there. I guess maybe a U-turn. But yeah, Aegislash kind of goes down without a fight and taunt ends. So that was pretty unwise of me, to say the least. I had Rotom there as a potential switch. We're going to take this Discharge, not get paralyzed, which is kind of lucky. Switch into Rotom as they grow Greninja. And I end up getting hit with the Z Balloon Boom. So that was tough. Something I could have scouted for. I knew the Greninja was going to be Z, and I kind of got caught lacking by that. And here you can see, yeah, U-turn is still those 40, but Crawdon is still like mega powerful. So I'm like, all right, at least we got Crawdon in. I guess it was not actually enough speed for a Volcanion, but I end up getting burned. But then I end up critting him, so it kind of like weirdly ends up evening out, and I died to Life Orb Recoil anyway. So not great use of Crawdon, not great use of Aegislash in our first game. But now you can see I'm in. I end up going for this Thunderbolt, thinking that I would catch one of the other guys on the switch rather than just knock out the Zapdos, and now my rocks are gone. Rats, right? Like that was pretty important. So Ferrothorn's in. We got Goth specifically to remove this, so I can go ahead. HP Fire does a ton. They're going to knock off, but that's just, you know, my berry. I'm not too worried about this. They're going to get removed. They're going to protect here. I Hidden Power, but Hidden Power is still going to kill this turn, so they're not going to protect. We're going to remove it. Cool. So Ferrothorn's gone. We got 3 left. Gallade coming in. Shadow Sneak going to go ahead and knock me out, but now I can go Azelf, or I guess I wanted to go Cobalion for some reason. I guess I thought I was going to lose this game anyway, so I just wanted to take the L. Interesting. But I do end up losing. Oh, yeah, because Shadow Sneak. I already was chipped. Yeah, so that's tough. First one, like, Gallade just cuts through my team like a knife through warm butter once the backbone, you know, like that Aegislash is gone. So losing Aegislash early was like a huge misplay there, switching that in when Cobalion was like much weaker, because Cobalion, you know, they just switch into Gallade every time and can kind of get something off. So trap the Zapdos. All right, whatever, we'll get the Future Sight off. They're going to go ahead and Discharge. I get my Wiki Berry, get my HP back. I Mirror Coat here again because I'm taking another Discharge. I thought they'd have U-turn or something because I was trapping, obviously. Now we can go Rotom. We take this Discharge, and then the Future Sight ends up finishing off the Zapdos. All right, you know, all things considered, I'm not too unhappy with that. So I'm going to switch here. No more Bloom Doom. He's smart enough to U-turn, but I'm like, okay. Cobalion also walls Greninja pretty hard as long as they all get like a bunch of Hydro Pumps off. Rotom also really good into Volcanion because we resist both of the water moves. We don't really care if we can burn. We can keep Volt Switching out. We're going to go Ferrothorn, Volt Switch out. Perfect. We're going to go into Goth. Go ahead and trap it, right? So first, get that Hidden Power off as they get up their Leech Seed. I know they're going to protect here, so I actually ball out. I get a Future Sight up. And then now this turn, I can go ahead and remove them. They try to protect again. It ends up not working. Remove that with a Hidden Power Fire, and now whatever's coming in is going to take that Future Sight. So I go into Crawdon here. They get the Trick Room up, Future Sight, and let's see what happens. Do I just end up... Oh, I end up dying to Energy Ball. So Energy Ball is great coverage, does well in the Rotom, does well in the Crawdon, and I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be an issue now. So they go ahead and Nasty Plot here as I Shadow Ball, and it ends up taking them out. So I guess they thought I was going to stall them out with King Shield. That actually makes a lot of sense, but I didn't have King Shield, so I just use the tools that God gave me, but I don't think a Shadow Ball was out on me anyway, so I wasn't too worried about that. Anyways, we're going to take another Steam Eruption. Now we're actually slower because of the Trick Room. So we're going to do this Womp Womp thing where now, oh, the dimensions are back to normal. Azelf's in. We can T-Bolt. I have a lot of health, so they go Gallade, and I'm like, you know what, I can even just stay in against this, because I think at this point we just want Aegislash to win. So I stay in, I keep Thunderbolting, and I don't know why I guess they wanted to try to just Oko Aegislash cleanly, but I'm like, you know what, all right, I can save Azelf, right? Like, we don't need to let this go down for no reason. So yeah, you can see Shadow Sneak does a lot, but I'm like, it's just, it wasn't ever going to do enough. So Shadow Sneak knocked that out. Shadow Sneak here, just for chip, you know, break a potential Sash, I guess actually, no, he's not, he's a Z move. So then Azelf, Choice Scarf. I'm going to go ahead and knock that out. So, Game 3. Greninja lead against Cobalion. So I feel pretty good about this too. Going to go ahead and U-turn. I don't really care about that. Double resist. I can get my rocks up. Gallade is in though. That's pretty scary. Like Cobalion just has that problem of inviting Gallade in a little bit too easily. They're going to Swords Dance, but this is why I brought this guy, right? Obviously, so I can get some of this damage off. So I'm going to go ahead, Shadow Ball here. You know, does 46. Another Shadow Ball is going to kill is pretty nuts. Thinking about that, that's like the power of rocks. This does nothing, and I get an attack boost, so now I'm feeling pretty good. They U-turn. Let's see what I end up doing here. So they go Zapdos. They take a bunch of damage from rocks. I taunt, predicting the Zapdos on said switch. I thought that was pretty nice. And now I'm going to go ahead and drop my Z-move. I'm like, you know what? I want +1, right? Like, let's stop this Zapdos from removing these rocks. You know, if he wants to do some sort of U-turn or Volt Switch here, that's not going to happen. So now he's weak enough. I'm like, I'll take this, right? So between the Discharge and me attacking with the Contact move, it was pretty likely that I was going to be paralyzed. That ends up hurting because otherwise I could have gotten a lot of damage off on this Volcanion, but I'm glad to keep rocks on the field. We're going to go ahead and remove Volcanion here with Mirror Coat. That felt pretty good too. So here's where things started going downhill. So I get this Future Sight off. That was a pretty smart thing. And they have their Trick Room. They Nasty Plot. And I try to Mirror Coat, expecting them to Shadow Ball. And it's like, wait a minute. Like, now it's kind of getting out of hand. Like, now they're Shadow Balling. So they take half. So I'm like, all right, this isn't too bad. Like, we just got to stall these last 2 turns and we'll be good. So I go Rotom, trying to... I don't even know what I was trying to bait here. The other thing is, Rotom just lived one. So I could have just lived one with Rotom and Volt Switched, and that would have been the end of it. But you can see I'm trying to, like, bait too much here. You know, and now I have a Rotom in. Rotom's too weak. So, oh no, he's going to get Trick Room up again. Like, this was the one guy that could not have been in, right? If I had gone into Azelf, I could trick it. If I got into Age Slash, I could have just outright KO'd it. But you can see Shadow Sneak does not do enough, and now the rest of my team just is going to die in these last turns of Trick Room, which makes me really sad. So, I miscounted the Trick Room turns. I really messed that up. I was really bummed about that. That was a really awful loss for me, and this is, I think, when I try to kick things into overdrive, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to actually properly prepare, not just like guess and make my team randomly, but like actually see what some lines of play are. So this was our other particularly strong player of our league, Mega Mawile, obviously one of the first picks in the draft, like really powerful Pokemon. They also have Landorus, so this is the other Uber that was allowed for draft because I feel like it's reasonable. There are enough ways to counter it, but really strong with that Life Orb Sheer Force. Also, 1 point faster than Charizard is an issue. Latios is here, also fast, also deals with Charizard, but, you know, also food for Charizard after a Dragon Dance. Scizor, I have Charizard. This does nothing into Charizard, and same thing with, Age Slash also matches up into this very well. Keldeo, I wasn't too worried about either. If I actually look at some of the prep that I did, I think this is also when I'm starting to switch up my team a little bit more, but, you know, Roserade obviously handles this quite well. Let's see. I think I ended up picking someone else up for this team. I can't remember. But, anyway, from there they have Mesprit with a lot of support options. They got Alomomola, which is really good at walling Charizard. This was a big problem in my preparation. Silvally, which can be of any type. Mimikyu, which is really good at shutting down my sweeps with Disguise. Like, obviously I can't launch Dragon moves willy-nilly, but also, even if I set up, it can get like a really big hit off of me into a Shadow Sneak, and then Lycanroc's Dusks. And that Acela Rock and getting rocks up could also be really strong. So this team has a lot of different threats, but I don't think it's like that obvious that some of these guys are big threats. Like, I think Alomomola was a mon that this person, like, I don't think they used it pretty much at all the whole season. But that, like, obviously was a really big threat to me, so I was like, how am I going to play around this? Like, this was like a perfect opportunity to try to use Gothitelle to trap and remove Alomomola, but I'm like, okay, how exactly am I going to end up doing that? Rotom also does quite well on the team, right? Does well in the Keldeo, walls Scizor, and can Will-O-Wisp it, walls Landorus, can get a Will-O-Wisp off on Mawile. Volt switches out on Latios, like, not great into Latios, but it already does so well into so many members, I wasn't too worried about it. Also, like, very slow team, like Landorus, Latios, Keldeo, but none of them are faster than Azelf. So, like, Azelf can handle all three of these guys, and a lot of their other mons are pretty slow, like the Alomomola, and I guess actually maybe not too many. I don't know, for some reason the team felt slow. So, also max speed Roserade would outspeed the base 100 like the Lando if it was modest, which I thought would be helpful. I was also really worried about Woodhammer from Mimikyu, because otherwise Quagsire was like a really good answer to Mawile and Mimikyu. It stops them from Swords Dancing and just totally walking all over me, but I'm like, crap, if I get hit by a Woodhammer, that's going to be really bad. And, you know, Woodhammer also was really good for Rotom Wash, who I think otherwise Mimikyu would kind of thud into, because it wouldn't be able to do enough damage and it would just get burned. So I was really expecting that Woodhammer from them. Yeah, and then Latios was one of their Z-move holders, as was Keldeo. That was a little scary. So let's go ahead and watch some of those games. Week 7. Okay. Oop. What's going on? There we go. Now we're loaded. Okay. So, leading off Azelf, Mesprit. I'm like, I can't let rocks get up. Oh, this was the wrong lane then, actually. Oopsies. Is it this one? This game one? Okay, yes. So, I taunt their mental herb. Rats. So, they're going to get their rocks up. That's bad. Now I got to play around that. So, I get my own rocks up. They U-turn. They do a bunch. They go into Mimikyu. I'm like, okay, this could be a problem, right? They could Shadow Sneak me. We'll go into Cobalion, because Cobalion shuts this down pretty well. I got that 129 defense. I'm faster. I got a Steel move. So I had Reflect here, right? If they wanted to do something interesting like Drain Punch, obviously it shuts that down pretty well, but also is like good against Mawile. I thought this was an interesting support pick. I was glad I picked it. So I get the Flash Cannon off here. Like, I was just trying to break the sub. But also getting that special defense drop is pretty good. This Aegislash. Oh, did I even show my team off? Oh my goodness. How silly of me. This Aegislash is like super max special defense to wall Latios, and then Shadow Ball it back. We also have Shadow Sneak, and then we got Sub and King Shield. So this was for like Sucker Punch with Mawile, is essentially trying to bait it into attacking me, and I King Shield, or if it doesn't attack me, if it Sucker Punches or sets up, I Sub, and then I can kind of get Shadow Balls off. And then with leftovers, I have a lot of turns to kind of peck at it. William O. Wisp. I just made these all funny little names. Volt Switch, like this is very typical, right? This is the same set I bring every week. Physically defensive this time for Mawile, for Mimikyu. We're bringing Mr. Craw, again, same moveset this time. I guess Swords Dance, but, you know, Aqua Jet good for helping out with Landorus and some of those guys. And trying to give it, like, this speed creep to get faster than Mawile. And some of their other, like, kind of middling speed guys, and just try to shut down those guys early. Also nice because Dark type is going to go ahead and resist the priority that they have. Excuse me. The Shadow Sneak, the Sucker Punch, not going to do enough. We can hit back really hard. That was something I was hopeful about with Mr. Craw. This guy also, I actually think that spikes. I don't know, could be something else. Anyways, Hidden Power Fire for Mawile does a ton. Maybe not really expecting it. We also have Sleep Powder, so you know if they try to Sucker Punch me, we put them to sleep. We Hidden Power Fire on the other turns. Energy Ball for Alomomola to like force it out, do a bunch. Also does good damage to like Landorus. Also like shuts down Keldeo. No need for Leaf Storm. We don't need that extra power this week. And then Sludge Bomb for Mimikyu, and just like another good stab move. And you can see we're running max speed. So if they're not running max speed with Landorus, we're faster. This support Cobalion, this is Expert Belt. So this actually put a lot of rolls in my favor. It makes Hidden Power Ice. I barely outspeed Landorus and kill it with Hidden Power Ice with the Expert Belt boost. Volt Switch into Alomomola does a bunch with the Expert Belt boost. Flash Cannon into Mimikyu. Flash Cannon actually doesn't KO with this moveset, even after the disguise is broken, but it still does a lot, so I was like, you know what? It'll be enough damage, and I'm just glad to get more off. And then you can see U-turn taunt, so this is like pretty classic lead set. So now we're back to this. Like he gets the Thunder Wave off, but I mean I'm already Aegislash. I don't really mind too much. I'm gonna go ahead and go Rotom here because getting those rocks off seems important. I take a lot from a Grass Pledge. I was like, wow, I kind of forgot this guy knew Grass Pledge, and you know it's Silvally, so it can kind of run anything. But that was pretty smart. That being said, I think it's interesting. Grass Pledge with Electric type. I don't really get that. Anyways, my attack is now in the dirt, so he's going to have Mawile here. He's going to be able to get a knockoff off. There's nothing I can do to really stop that, so I'm like, whatever, we'll sack Rotom. I didn't want to take like a play rough with Cobalion or anything, so Crabhammer, I should have probably just ran a choice item or just something like to get me over the line there, because now, you know, Mawile's chipped, but it doesn't really even take that much from rocks, so this is just kind of looking like a real problem. So I end up getting rocks up again. I take the Thunderbolt and ended up going down. I actually revealed a lot about my opponent's team, so I thought that that was helpful, that even if I don't necessarily win this one, like, I know a lot of what to prepare for, and like I know that Mawile is now mental herb and stuff, so I'm confident that I can play like way better in the other games. They get their rocks up again here, they U-turn here. It's 6-3, right? Like, this looks pretty bad. I substitute here. I mean, I'm paralyzed. Like, we'll see what happens. Do I get off the Shadow Ball? I do. Does a ton. I just don't think does enough, again, because I'm not like even remotely offensively invested. I'm going to go ahead, sack Cobalion here. We go Rose Raid after. I actually live this. I didn't realize Rose Raid actually has a very good special defense, and then he's forced to run Timid or Rash or whatever. But Shadow Sneak is going to go ahead, wrap that one up, and then his disguise is still intact. And sooner or later, Aegislash is going to get fully paralyzed. So I take the Shadow Claw here, and then I'm paralyzed, and I'm like, oh, that was so awful. And I'm like, I can't keep having this happen. So from there, actually, we'll say I did quite well the rest of the season after that game. We'll say I did quite well after the season. So this time I'm like, no more nonsense. I'm U-turning, right? And these rocks are not going up. I'm not dealing with this. I'm getting these gone immediately. So they Toxic, don't even care. Right? Like, I think the thing about Rotom is it's switching in and out so much that the Toxic damage never really stacks. Like, it's never really trying to just stay in the whole time. So U-turns out, goes into Sovali. I don't know what's going on. I U-turn out here. They defog, I guess they don't defog. Maybe that's another turn I'm thinking of. Anyways, they Thunderbolt here. Now I'm thinking, oh crap, maybe I should have been Natural Cure. Sleep Powder. Nice. Ends up slowing some stuff down. And then going to Aegislash. But uh-oh, they go into Landorus. So not what I was expecting. Not great for me. They get their rocks up again. So they got two guys with rocks. Oh my goodness. But he takes Life Orb recoil from using U-turn, right? Because it's Sheer Force, a little different. So at this point, I guess I'm not even worried about getting rocks up. I just want to shut these guys down. I like this. I could always Volt Switch into Azelf and then just U-turn into Latios, and it just does so much damage. And then I have this like perfect wall that like looks 16%. I'm like, okay, so Latios is just dead weight at this point for my opponent. So they're going to go ahead and intimidate me, but again, I'm special kind of for this. And I get my sub up, and I King Shield. They attack into it with knockoff because they don't really know what's coming. And all right, my attack's dropped, and now gives Aegislash some turns to kind of play around. So I go ahead and Shadow Ball here. I'm going to do my 45, and they're going to knock off, and they break my sub here. And it's like, all right, I was like, you know what? Maybe they'll attack again. I'll get my King Shield off. Ooh, now they're back to neutral. Maybe now I don't really want to take a knockoff. So I'm like, here's what I'll do. I'll sub, and we'll try to get them to Sucker Punch, right? Because obviously if they just attack into my King Shield again, that would be bad. So I'm subbing. I'm thinking, come on, right? Like, there's no way you keep going for knockoff. I could protect any of these turns. And then I say, you know what? He's just going to keep going for knockoff, actually. I get this turn correct. And then they Sucker Punch. And I go womp. And it's gone. So that was a good play to go into Mr. Crowley's. The other thing is, because I forced them to spam that knockoff, creates an opening for me, and then I get a lot of damage off on Landorus. The other thing, it can only U-turn 2 more times because of Life Orb. So it's going to go into Sovali, take this Flash Cannon, but, it's asleep, so I can kind of take my sweet time pivoting around. Obviously, Cobalion, no problem taking rocks damage. We're going to go into Rotom. We can get rid of rocks here if we wish, or no, they're going to wake up and knock me out. So otherwise, otherwise I would have been able to get rid of rocks, and didn't happen that time. Anyways, we get our Sleep Powder off again. We're at very low HP. We're going to go ahead and just Sludge Bomb on what they have left. Take out Latios, is probably a pretty good sack from them. Landorus comes in. They U-turn. Buddy, you can't U-turn again now, right? Like, that's a bit of a problem. So they have Mesprit. I have Azelf. Again, Azelf. The chip damage from rocks doesn't matter because, again, I'm just so strong. We're going to go into Cobalion here. Cobalion is feeling really good, right? So Valley's asleep. No turns. I outspeed Landorus. I'm obviously pretty much designed to take out Mawile. So firing off a strong ghost type attack. Again, a lot of teams don't have a ghost resist, so this is pretty free. I don't think that crit really mattered. Now what? Now they got Mimikyu. So they're gonna Swords Dance here. I'm gonna sub. That was it. I don't know what's going on. I'm gonna be honest. King Shield here, as they actually attack into it. So now they're back to neutral, and I'm behind a sub. I'm feeling like the boss. They Shadow Claw into me. This turn, I can go ahead and break their disguise, so that feels pretty good. I don't think I had even revealed Shadow Sneak at this point, but special defense drop also is helpful, because now Flash Cannon will kill. So they Shadow Sneak, they take that out, take some damage from Life Orb, they're also revealing Life Orb, so at this point, you know, Flash Cannon just cleans up. So we Flash Cannon here, I think I would have killed anyway, especially depending on the roll, and then Flash Cannon kills Landorus. I can even not reveal HP Ice, so we're back on our feet, right? We're playing this a little bit more sensibly. We're also adapting very well to unfortunate circumstances. Here we go. We got Azelf Fan against Latios. This is more than fine by me, right? I will gladly U-turn and do my 60%. Thunder Wave comes in. They're actually going to drop their Z here, so like, whoops. This actually could have killed. It was not in their favor for this roll to kill, but I'm like, if it had, that could have been, I guess, a somewhat big problem. But instead, I get to keep Rotom. Now I get to just U-turn again forever. If they're going to go Landorus, fine. Now I go Cobalion. I'm like, you know what? This is the last game. Let's just go for the HP Ice, see if it worked. Okay, it didn't work. You know, whatever. I'll Volt Switch out. We still have Rotom, so we can just get rid of those rocks as they get up. Again, they're going to Toxic me, or perhaps they're going to Toxic me. Oh, no, they have Energy Ball. Oh, interesting. I guess that was their coverage move. I forgot about that. Now they U-turn on Azelf, but again, rocks are not up, so I don't really mind. I'm going to go ahead and U-turn here. Does a nice chunk to Savali. And now that I know, I totally wall this thing, right? It's got Parting Shot, Defog. I guess they were expecting rocks there. And their electric move, their grass move, that's going to do nothing to me. So I go for Sleep Powder. This is our first Sleep Powder miss. They U-turn. I'm willing to stay in because I'm, you know, Focus Sash. Second Sleep Powder miss. And I'm like, well, you know, maybe they have a Psychic move or something or blah, blah, blah. I don't know. So U-turn actually does not kill here, which is nuts. Which means now another U-turn. So Landorus is taking even more chip, weakening itself, right? This is kind of Life Orb. I always joke with my brother, worst item in the game, because just that 10% adds up so fast. But finally, we land a Sleep Powder. Like, all right, let's do this. So now we got this nonsense again, set up against Mawile. So I'll substitute. They'll knock off. I'll sub again. Again, I guess any of these turns, I could have just gone Crawdon. Let's see if I end up pulling that out of the bag, but I'm really determined that, you know, come on, there's no way they're going to attack again. What if I go for King Shield? So now I King Shield, they SD. So I got outplayed 4 turns in a row, which I'm actually fine with because the odds of that happening was pretty low. If you consider, like, they have to get every single turn right, and I just think that this is not, like, a wise thing for them to be doing when they can just go Landorus. But in any event, I let them kind of do whatever they're going to do, and then now, you know, Dark move into Crawdon, doesn't really matter. I lose my Windstic Water, which actually would have made this do a little bit more damage. They end up missing Play Rough. So I feel a little bad about that, but I think I still had it pretty covered there. Reading no Cobalion, and I think Flash Cannon was going to do enough. Not too concerned. Here, Aqua Jet is just going to smoke this thing because it's taking so much Life Orb damage. And then here, I could have just knocked this Mawile, or this Mesprit out and kept this alive, but he wanted to get rocks up, which I thought was a little unusual considering the rest of my team and the fact that, you know, I hit so hard, and what, Latios is at 29? I guess Aquajet's probably not killing there, but so Volley is asleep. I think, yeah, one turn. You know, again, just gets totally walled by Rose Raid, so I'm not even worried about it waking up. Now I can just spam Sludge Bomb, again, crit. I don't think that particularly mattered because, you know, he could have just stayed asleep. He could have done whatever. So here, I try to Sleep Powder. I missed my 3rd Sleep Powder of the game. I'm also realizing maybe I should have just Sludge Bombed, right, to try to keep this thing's HP a little lower. But we've got Azelf here. We can just go ahead and U-turn, go into Aegis Slash because Aegis Slash walls this thing forever. I didn't even realize now, like with this special attack drop, even Thunderbolt does like no damage to me. Like, look, that is 9%. I'm like, wait a minute, I could have been substituting, you know, which is not something you expected. And I guess I also didn't want to fool around with like being paralyzed and having Mimikyu somehow set up. So now I'm worried because I'm like, oh crud, you know, like I am paralyzed. Like if I get paralyzed really badly and he Swords dances a bunch, I could have lost. So here, very wisely going for the Volt Switch. So if I stayed in, I think Drain Punch, you know, kind of recovering too much / doing too much damage to me versus now I got to sack Azelf while breaking their disguise, and now I'm in a much better position where I can simply Flash Cannon twice, and you know, Drain Punch isn't going to recover enough, and then even with Shadow Sneak, right? So you can see, had I just stayed in, I probably would have lost. So that was a really clutch Volt Switch at the end, just knowing that I only needed to do enough damage to break the sub. You know, that felt pretty good, right? This was another kind of top dog in our league, and we end up taking that one home. That was something that we had to do a lot of prep for. We adapted. We came from behind. And then our last two opponents have some pretty bizarre team structures. We got Kieran Black, which obviously like really strong, but only 95 speed, and then Mew's 100. And then if you look at these other guys, double weakness here. 80 speed, 75 speed, double weakness, 103. So like, okay, at least you're breaking 100. Clef Key, another double weakness, another double weakness. Staraptor's chilling at 100 speed, and then 108, I guess, is Verzion. So maybe not like the slowest team ever, but still like slower than my guys, like quite slower than my guys, right? So I had a lot of interesting options to throw out this week. Thinking about like what hidden power type that I could run on Rose Raid. Like flying seems really good for Heracross, for Virizion, even for like doing a bunch to Bulu, although I guess Poison also handles that. So a lot of different potential for a different hidden power type. Charizard also does really well, pretty much OHKOing everything because he's also got so many fire weak guys. Virizion, Ninetales, Harry, like all these guys just fold to a Fire Punch. Nihilego probably drops. You can see its defense is like quite pitiful to any like Dragon type move. So I was kind of thinking that once Charizard gets in, it kind of just does the digital dash. And like this team is just too... It doesn't have good answers to sweepers, right? It doesn't have revenge killers, and it also doesn't have like a good backbone. So here's what I ended up doing with that. Charizard, Fire Punch, because again, we don't actually need that much extra power. Crunch was specifically for Mew, and Dragon Claw, and we pretty much get one Dragon Dance up, and we are pretty much knocking everybody out. I think that Mew was in a position where if it's defensively invested, Crunch doesn't kill, but it's got to get off the Thunder Wave or whatever it's going to do. And if it's not like specifically that, even if it is that set, then I just keep Dragon Dancing, right? But if it's not that set, it dies to Crunch. We got Aegislash here with some good support options. We also ran Aerial Ace. So a lot of these guys are running Aerial Ace. Why? Because when we were going against Heracross and Virizion, it's like, why not, right? Like this does a ton. This is a move that I pulled out of the usually useless bin I was proud of. Azelf, interesting set. Like we got Fire Blast for Clef Key or whatever we think they're going to lead off with. We got Taunt to kind of shut down some of their hazards too. If they want to go Clef Key, maybe they only get up one layer. U-turn for Momentum, Stealth Rock. I ran Rocky Helmet just because I just could not figure out a better item for this. Like Azelf, again, if you don't have the Z Crystal, it really doesn't matter what item you give it unless you're going to go nuts and give it like a choice item. So I was like, whatever. Rocky Helmet's good enough. It gives me a little bit more chip, maybe breaks a sash. And I had certain damage rolls from some of my guys where I needed rocks up or I needed a little bit of chip to sweep. So I'm like, maybe this can be enough chip for something else to sweep. Kabalion was another guy. So Kabalion and Charizard, I think this is like a good team structure for draft is you have two things that can just punch holes and like a bunch of enablers for the hole punching, if you will. So Ironhead, right? He's got like Kyurem, he's got Nihilego. I actually don't even know if I needed this, but also Close Combat and then Aerial Ace was so funny. So after a Swords Dance, I outspeed and I think OHKO everything, except for some variants of Mew can take the Z Steel, and Virizion can outspeed me. Or like it's a speed tie, so it's like a coin flip. But other than that, everything folds after I Swords Dance once. So it's like, how do I make these opportunities? Also, Goth can remove stuff. I had Choice Scarf for Nihilego. Like I can just Psyshock and remove it. You can see I can also trick things, taunt things, Thunder Wave things, just to like give one of these other two guys a turn to just go nuts. And then finally, complete support Rose Raid. This was interesting. This is with Natural Cure, Spikes, Sludge Bomb, Sleep Powder, Aromatherapy. So did not actually bring a fun hidden power type, but I think Aromatherapy is nice because, if something happens to Charizard, gets like paralyzed by Mew, for example, or if someone gets Thunder Wave by Clef Key, Rose Raid can like re-enable those guys to go back to trolling again. And Sludge Bomb also handles Bulu. So from there, let's check out some replays, shall we? So this is our first replay, and you can see this team, not bringing Bulu, pretty vulnerable. All right, we're gonna stop them from Thunder Waving, get our rocks up here, and then try to U-turn. I thought it was suspicious that they brought in the Hoopa. I'm like, they're probably gonna be Choice Scarf. But here's the thing. And then I just win with Kabalion, right? I got my rocks up. Like I don't mind. You're totally welcome to take out that Azelf because they stay in. They're just giving me a boost. So I ended up going for the coin flip here to see if I could just win on the spot. Extremely greedy, but, you know, Aerial Ace is just going to go ahead and knock that out. Here we Z on the Mew with the rocks damage. It's not like fully defensive. I think it's probably like HP and speed for support. We're going to outspeed, I guess, you know, we would if it wasn't Scarf, but he can't even do enough. Close combat. You can see I have like moves to take out every remaining member. Nihilego, also Choice Scarf. I'm like, oh, that's weird. How did I outspeed? It's also Choice Scarf. So we're going to go Goth. It'll Thunder Wave me again. It's at +1, but again, like we just remove it. It's trapped. It can't do anything. We're also using Psyshock, so like even for Heracross, now obviously he's got to attack me because Psyshock just does too much. It's crazy that one hit pretty much was my remaining HP. But now Charizard just wraps up. So I'm going to go ahead and Fire Punch, and I'm going to be faster than Kyurem because it's only 95 base speed. Meanwhile, I'm 100. So Tough Claws, and these guys are kind of like the same color scheme. That's kind of cool. I'm going to go ahead. That first one, a very fast game, and then I think this one also very fast just because, you know, I'm running two sweepers that they can't really be stopped. So here, I'm going to get my rocks up. I'm going to go ahead and Ice Beam. It is a crit and a freeze, and I'm not going to thaw. I tried to Fire Blast here. It turns out Fire Blast is not one of the moves that like thaws you automatically. It's like only specific fire moves, whatever. We'll go into Aegislash here. You know, fire off whatever like strong move, right? So Iron Head. All right, Iron Head, right? It does neutral damage to everyone. Clean that up with Shadow Sneak. Feeling pretty good at this point. Again, like I can just totally let this go down. I don't really mind because it's giving Cobalion the turn that he needs to win the game. So we'll Swords Dance here. And once again, Z Mew. Z. I'm going to go ahead and take this out. So good use of my Z move both games. Who am I going to come back in? Drain Punch. Iron Head. So now worried about Nihilego. Honestly, I could probably live this Thunderbolt and just knock it out. So I actually didn't need to switch, and the game was already done. But we can just switch into Goth. We trap and remove this. And this game is going to end mostly the same way. So let's see. We get knocked. Ooh, even some Psyshock chip. Wow, before the Ice Beam. I don't know how I was. Oh, I guess because I was Choice Scarf. But anyway, Rally comes in here, close combat, and then Heracross is at full, but it can't boost its speed, so I'm not really too worried. We're just going to go ahead and Aerial Ace that guy, do a big chunk, and he's going to close combat me back and do a billion. But we have Charizard to go ahead and just tap this one in. Boop. So that's week 8. Week 9. This team is like super mega fairy overload and Kartana, which I think Kartana actually is a terrible Pokemon in draft. First of all, Magnet Pull, right? Is one thing to think about. Second of all, other forms of trapping. Third of all, you can put Hidden Power Fire on probably any Pokemon, and with 31 special defense, it will kill you. Like, I don't even care how much special attack it has. So this thing can just get knocked out by anything. And like, I understand it snowballs a lot, but I also think because its move pool is so shallow, that it is not like a good draft choice. Like I personally wouldn't go for it. Like obviously it's still a really strong Pokemon, but I think that its weaknesses can just be exploited a little bit too well. Latios, same deal as Latios. Like Azul handles this really well because fast, strong U-turn, and a little, you know, just fast enough to outspeed Latios. So fairy types, right? Obviously Magic Guard on Clefable. This is not something that I'm going to be able to trap. Tyranitar, interesting threat. And then, you know, several other fairies, including their Mega. Xurkitree, another interesting option in terms of like Beast Boostmon, but again, really shallow move pool. So makes it kind of easy to play around. Although I believe it gets Energy Ball. I guess I can't see because I didn't make this a particular format. But if we make this Gen 7 draft, what do you get? Oh yeah, so it gets Grass, not it gets Energy Ball. So at least, you know, could get through Quagsire. And then Celebi, I think, is a Pokemon ripe for picking off with some cheese. For Alligator, actually was a mon that this player brought a lot to great effect. So I was like, you know what? You know, people forget Dragon Dance, Swords Dance, Sheer Force. This guy is also not to be trifled with. So I did my best to not, of course, trifle with him. And then Salazzle, actually, their last pick, I think, was a big pain in the butt for me. Because you think about, I got some good Steel types. I got some guys that like to troll and stall, and that's not going to work if they can just poison me and I can't poison them. And they get kind of pick of the litter with being able to toxic my Steel types, but also just like letting these fire moves rip. And so I was a little concerned about Salazzle. It's also quite fast. If we look at the speed, 117, faster than Azelf. Like, you know, I think Azelf is my fastest. So, a little worried about Salazzle, but I'm also like, they might not bring it. And other than that, pretty covered. And you can just see like 3 fairy types, like we're really stacking some weaknesses here. And not great like neutral coverage outside of that. Like yet another team that Ghost just totally beats up on. So here's what I brought. So at this point I had Pre-Marina, and I was really bringing that for like playoffs for people who I thought would be in the playoffs, but it also turned out to be a smart option for this week because I just figured obviously it's very good into Tyranitar and can just throw off a lot of these Moonblasts. I think that Energy Ball is even just filler. I don't even think like I needed another move in that slot, but I guess just helped for... Oh, I guess I didn't run Energy Ball this week. Whoopsies. But, you know, Moonblast is just very strong, a lot of neutral targets. You don't really even have to worry about Kartana. Like, Ice Beam Okos it, but these other moves still do like 80, so it almost doesn't even matter. I thought Custab would be nice for catching something off guard. And Encore also good to stop Tyranitar or Kartana or something from just setting up and sweeping me. Like Latios, Clefable, Gardevoir, all these, even Togekiss. Like, I would actually say all of their Pokemon actually have a boosting move. Yeah. Swords Dance on Kartana, Calm Mind on Latios, Calm Mind Clef, you know, Dragon Dance T-Tar, Calm Mind Gardevoir, Togekiss has Plot, Xurkitree I think also has Plot, Celebi is Plot, and Swords Dance, and like a million other things. For Alligator has several setup moves like Dragon Dance, and Salazzle has Plot. So yeah, let's stop that, right? That's what Encore is here for, is to make sure that they're not doing any of that nonsense. We also have Rose Raid. This is going to be Choice Scarf. You know, Choice Scarf, so poison move, right? Like Mega Gardevoir, I will be able to outspeed and do a lot too. Technician, Hidden Power Fighting. So you might say, why Hidden Power Fighting? Well, we don't even need Hidden Power Fire for Kartana, because even Hidden Power Fighting, like only being a little bit super effective, just totally OHKOs it. So I chose Fighting because obviously it also hits Tyranitar. Like there wasn't another type that was super effective against Kartana. It's like whatever, this is good enough. Sludge Bomb. Dazzling Gleam, I guess, for Latios if need be. An Energy Ball for Alligator to like shut that down. That even if Alligator gets a speed boost, I'm going to be faster with Choice Scarf. So I thought this was a good pull. Aegislash, again, we can just kind of let... I guess I didn't have any real ghost moves to let loose other than this Shadow Sneak. Oh yeah, because Iron Head, right? I'm looking at this team. Tyranitar and all the fairies, like it's extremely weak to Steel. So I guess I could just kind of spec into that. We got Sacred Sword for Kartana, also does more to Tyranitar, and Shadow Sneak for priority, which I think will come in handy. We just have Colbur, that's for Tyranitar, that's for, you know, if Alligator has Crunch or something, kind of take those hits a little bit better. Vitinium Z, Cobalion, again, like Steel type, except for this one's already fast, so Swords Dance just kind of sets us up for success. Latios is faster, but it can't even do that much damage to us. So we're going to run the Extremely Cheese X-Scissor. So this will knock out Latios at +2. It also does like pretty much all of Celebi's health, so this again at +2, or even from +1 if we get a justified bonus or a boost, will, you know, knock out Celebi. I thought that was cool to kind of prey on that double weakness. And then Sacred Sword, because we didn't even need the extra power from close combat. We're just going to be running max speed on this guy. Goth, you know, Hidden Power Fighting. This is mostly for Kartana, so you can just outspeed Kartana, remove it with Hidden Power Fighting. Again, we don't even need fire. And then this stops them from like going into Tyranitar after, I guess. I don't even think so, because it does so little to Tyranitar. With the special defense boost, it does like 30 or 40% or something. But this was really important also for Salazzle. Salazzle was such a pain in the butt. You can see I ran just enough speed to be faster than Salazzle with the Scarf and knock it out with Psychic, because it was a big thing stopping Cobalion, as everything else pretty much folds to Cobalion, except for Salazzle. First of all, can outspeed, but also can take a hit. So I think kind of the plan was also to Swords Dance and then try to just break through Salazzle as it's switching in with like the Z Fightinium. And then we have Thunderbolt for Togekiss for Alligator, just like as a last move. And then we have Azelf, so I thought this was a fun set. This is a lead set, Stealth Rock, U-Turn. Had Iron Tail, right? Because again, there's so many Pokemon on their team weak to Steel. And Fire Punch for Kartana. Another way to kind of stop Kartana. And then we have Colbur Berry, you know, if they want to go for knockoff with Kartana or something like that. So this is the last week of the regular season. So I was kind of expecting to win this game. Oh, this is the same as last week. But then from here, I was pretty set up to be either the second or third seed. I guess even these past couple of weeks, I was either going to be the second or third seed. And the way that we do playoffs is 1 plays the winner of the waterfall and 2 plays 3. So I had to wait for them to do the whole waterfall, but I'm like, all right, either way, I'm going to be playing that 2 versus 3 game, and we'll see how that goes. So I'm not sure which one of these. Oh, this is the same one again. Why can I not find this? Okay, those replays have been reacquired. So let's go ahead and take a look at them. Here is our first one, if this will pop up. Right here. Bingo. So you can see the teams we actually ended up bringing. Nice color coordination. I can on both sides. It's like green, blue. You know, not a lot of red or anything that pops too much. Tyranitar versus Azelf. I'm going to go ahead and get my rocks up. All of my nicknames here are Giants ball players. I'm going to go ahead and U-turn on that Tyranitar. It'll Dragon Dance. I think Stone Edge actually at +1 just kills Primarina, but he goes for Earthquake, and I get an opportunity to take him out. So that could have been pretty bad. I guess, you know, from there, Cabalion or something maybe could have still outsped, but no, that could have been pretty awful. So now we're going to Custab, Ice Beam. Wow, that does so much damage, and now it tries to Substitute, but Substitute you will not be able to do. So this is almost at a range where Rocks even would KO it, but I obviously can go ahead, just U-turn here. I'm feeling pretty good about this. Let's see what my plan was here. I guess Trick, yup, and then it's going to go ahead and Calm Mind, and this is exactly the kind of trap that I wanted on Clefable. So it's going to just be stuck Calm Minding. In theory, I could maybe find some other way to like knock it out with chip damage or something. But I thought I'd use this opportunity to set up with Cabalion. So we're not even going to reveal X-Scissor yet. They're going to go into Clef. Here's the thing, is your Magic Guard, so you are gone as well. Latios is here, who Thunderbolt, but I think then we can just take him down with X-Scissor. I don't know if Iron Head actually killed there. I'm going to guess probably not. So Kartana's here. I'm going to go ahead, Sacred Sword, take us out. This actually could be a problem, I guess, if it was speed boosting. Actually, maybe not, because it had the choice. But yeah, I'm like, you know what? He's choiced. No big deal. We're obviously just going to trap and remove him. Goodbye. And now it is just Gardevoir left against these 4, one of which, you know, I guess actually 2 of which have a really strong coverage for it. So I guess I'm Life Orb now. I didn't even remember that. That's so funny. Yes, so Life Orb ends up working out. How did I outspeed the... oh, no, Sacred Sword. So I had Sacred Sword, so they were locked into Sacred Sword, and so I could just take the hit. So that was pretty clever, actually. And then, obviously, you should bring in Devers, right? Clean up and get that game over with. So this is the last game of the regular season that I am about to show you. So as you can see, ever since the 2 hiccups we've had, we had one more tough battle, and it's been pretty smooth sailing from here. So here I'm going to go ahead and lead off Iron Head with the Iron Head as they Calm Mind. Go ahead with the Iron Table again. Keep in mind this, I think it does like 80 or something. Paralyzed, miss the Iron Tail a 3rd time, and then we're going to go ahead and just drop the Thunderbolt. So now they're nice and set up. They have their Calm Mind. Yeah, that was pretty bad, right? So luckily, I have another Pokemon with Steel-type moves. In fact, I have a 3rd if I really need it. But given Aegislash a little bit extra speed to outspeed Tyranitar, outspeed Clefable, we're going to get our chip damage here with Sneak, and then we can just Primarina, pretty safe option. Moonblast. Goodbye. So Moonblast obviously just does a lot to everyone they had left. They didn't really have a safe switch there. Leaf Blade into Rose Raid. Let's see. Sludge Bomb. Ironically, Hidden Power Fighting probably would have gone pretty crazy there. So, calling out that switch, going for the Sludge Bomb. I guess they were thinking I wasn't going to go for a Grass move because they were Kartana, but, they also want to switch. So, there'll be an opportunity to Energy Ball there next time, but you can see it again. I just take the hit and pretty much end up knocking them out. Their poison ends up, kind of lucky poison. I'm right outside of a Custab range, so I could have used that, but instead I'm like, we're going to stop the setup, like I said earlier, so they're going to Calm Mind. Obviously, they have a lot of setup guys. I actually burned my Custab here, which is not as helpful. I could have maybe switched there, again, because they were locked into their setup move. We'll die to Celebi here, but now Cabalion just should be able to remove some of these last guys. So X-Scissor, obviously really helpful there.
Outspeed, Ironhead's going to go ahead and pick up that KO as well, and now Kartana comes in, knock off, because I can just stay in. Obviously, if they go for something else, like their choice, so they're would be stuck, I can just Z here, and the game is over. So that is it for the regular season. From there, our first draft opponent was this week 6 team, except for they dropped Cryogonal for Blissey. Again, you can trade every 2 weeks. I seem to be the one who was taking advantage of that the most. And then out of the Waterfall, which was, you know, the 10 seed plays the 9, the winner of that plays the 8, so on and so forth, until there's a winner of that. We had our 9 seed actually go on a crazy run, who was 1 game away from making it to that Final Four, didn't quite squeeze that out. So the 4 seed played the 1 seed. This was the 1 seed team, and that 1 seed team ended up winning. So I play against, I guess, the 2 seed, and then if I win that, I play, you know, this week 7 opponent, the number 1 seed. But getting Tangrowth, getting Pangoro, getting some of these other guys, I really tailored my team for these last 2 matchups. So if we're going to go back to this team again with some of the changes, we have Pangoro, which can hit pretty hard, right? It can pretty much Oko Ferrothorn. It has a really strong dark move for Cofagrigus that it can handle. You know, it can run Gunk Shot or something for Sylveon if need be. It has knockoff for these other guys. Obviously, again, this is replaced by Blissey, so it did really want the Blissey as well. You could also run Mold Breaker Earthquake, would just destroy any Rotom set. So it was looking okay. I thought about bringing that. Talonflame also looked pretty strong because you can U-turn on Greninja. You're actually a little bit faster, even though, you know, he ended up bringing one with Water Shuriken. That would have just KO'd me. You have your Brave Bird. Can do well into Gallade. This is, again, I was talking about using protective pads against these guys because then I don't have to worry about static. I don't have to worry about Iron Barb or Rocky Helmet or any of those like contact effects. And do pretty well into that. Let's see what else I brought. Because we had to wait for the whole Waterfall thing to go on and like all those games to be played. So I had plenty of time to kind of think about what team I was going to use and just kind of throw something on the list every once in a while. This was also where I was going to try to use the Ultimate Cheese set of Zard X with Belly Drum, and I was going to run Quick Attack, Rock Slide, and Earthquake. So if I get set up, Quick Attack at, you know, +4, or, you know, the +6, I guess, KOs Greninja, KOs Gallade. We have Rock Slide for Zapdos, Earthquake, KOs Ferrothorn, KOs Nidoqueen. Rock move again beats Rotom, but honestly, Quick Attack might also kill Rotom. Earthquake kills even like max HP Cofagrigus, you know, kills all these guys, and obviously like blows up Blissey. So that was an option I thought about, not even taking advantage of Tough Claws. Unfortunately, Quick Attack and Belly Drum are an illegal combination, so I was pretty sad about that because otherwise that would have been really fun to cheese with, but did not get an opportunity to do that. But yeah, getting Rocks up helped out Charizard a lot because Zapdos is like a big enemy, and Volcanion especially is the only guy that can take 2 hits from Zard. So getting that Rocks up is kind of important. I also decided to bring Primarina because obviously it completely blanks Greninja, except for I have to watch out for Z Poison. Also does well into Gallade, right? Because we can just Oko it and it can't do like too much damage to us. Gets really beat by these 2 guys, but you know, Water does well into the rest of their team. They can't really switch into other than Volcanion, who like also I guess completely walls Primarina. So it's like you got to play that Pokemon pretty precisely because there's some things it's going to thud into and some things it's not. And let's see the team I actually ended up going with, but I considered a lot of things. I considered running Rindo on Rotom to deal with Greninja or just protect because Rotom is so light that after the Z move, regular Grass Knot pretty much does no damage to it, and that's like kind of relatively true of Primarina as well, just because it's so bulky. So after much debate of going back and forth on things, this was the team that I ended up on. So here is our Charizard. Fire Punch for Ferrothorn because we don't want to take like that much recoil. It's also important to not have those recoil moves going up against Blissey because I remember like Flare Blitz, I think I pretty much KO myself hitting Blissey and I didn't want to deal with that. We got Outrage is fantastic. Like obviously they don't bring Primarina. That is just like pretty free, especially once Ferrothorn is removed. And then of course you can guess that we are once again using our Gothitelle to try to remove Ferrothorn because even though you'd think, oh, Charizard obviously blows it up, that's such a good matchup. But like taking a lot of that chip damage from the Rocky Helmet and everything is actually really bad for me. And it also is the only Pokemon that stops me from clicking Outrage, right? So if they still have Ferrothorn around, I get locked into Outrage, they can switch into Ferrothorn, they can take many hits. They can Thunder Wave, they can Leech Seed, they can get some chip damage off, and then obviously they just do a ton of damage from their ability and Rocky Helmet. So I didn't want to deal with that. That's also why I ran Roost, is I just figured like I want to get some HP back against those guys. Then of course I need Dragon Dance, and then I have no way to shrug off status there if I got Thunder Wave, which is why I had Heal Bell on Gothitelle, right? So like let's say Thunder Wave from Ferrothorn hits Charizard. Ideally I want to try to switch into Gothitelle, trap and remove that Ferrothorn while also removing the status from the Charizard. We also had Rotom. I ended up running Toxic to try to not be complete setup fodder for Gallade. You can see these nicknames are different times of day. I don't know. I was running out of ideas at this point and was more focused on playing the Mons. But this is also just really good for blanking Volcanion, which I just figured they would bring because it does so well in the Charizard and also does so well in the Primarina. Lets me switch out and continue to troll. I don't actually know if they had a ground type either. Oh, I guess other than Nidoqueen, which doesn't want to come in and take a Hydro Pump, and then if it gets rocks up, we have the combination of like Defog, and then that makes Hydro Pump more accurate. Even though Hydro Pump is not going to kill with this EV set, but I did want the special defense. I think that's just to help deal with Zapdos, deal with Volcanion. Like obviously Rotom is just a punching bag, takes a lot of hits, and its point is really to switch and keep the rocks off, right? So we can keep Charizard healthy. Charizard's really like one of our main win conditions. I also am surprised I never used this earlier in the season, but Rockion was really clever with Stone Edge. So this was something where with Zapdos, we're now just going to try to remove it rather than deal with taunting it, although we still carry taunt for some of the other guys. It's also good for stopping Cofagrigus from coming in and setting up Trick Room, right? We just taunt it and then we don't have to worry about it anymore. Good for like Blissey and stuff like that. So we did keep taunt, but now our plan for Zapdos is to instead use that Z Stone Edge. Also good for Volcanion, obviously, like another Pokemon that thinks that it can maybe wall Cobalion because of its high defense. We're running Close Combat and Iron Head, again, just trying to deal with Sylveon as Sylveon shows up. I figured it was very unlikely they bring Sylveon, but it was just too important. Like, again, the Shadow Ball and like does well in the Aegislash, and it could just like Wish Protect Forever. Like it was actually quite the problem for me. So Aegislash here, I was planning on running a max physical defense, like King Shield, Sub, Toxic for Gallade, and I just felt like that was too exploitable. So instead, we still have King Shield, we still have Sub, but we do have some offense as well. And you can see there's a really weird EV spread. I don't even know what the special defense is for, but I tried to get enough attack. I think that this is for, making sure Gallade is good in the ground after one Shadow Claw. I think that special defense is probably for Greninja being able to take a Dark Pulse in a pinch and just OHKO it with Sacred Sword. Also, I thought cool tech on Primarina, we have kind of empty move slots because it really only needs Water Move and Moonblast. So I ran Parasong. Again, this like forces them to switch. It can also help with like last Mon situations. This has Protect. Aegislash has King Shield, and so I just was like not really worried. Like this also has Protect, so we have a lot of ways to like protect and stall things out. And then obviously if you Parasong and switch into Goth, you've trapped something, and it's just going to die to Parasong, which is really strong. So I also ran this interesting set with like I wasn't going to outspeed Nidoqueen, so I would Future Sight and then Protect the second turn, and then it would die to the Future Sight after that. So that was also just again to get rid of their other rocker. Otherwise, this is a pretty straightforward set. Protect is also good for scouting Z moves. And that is what the team was looking like. So let's go find those replays. And we can see playoff 1. So you can see no Sylveon, looks pretty good for me. No Volcanion, also looks pretty good for a Zard sweep. Leading off, Nidoqueen against Charizard. I also did a lot of testing, and I just found out it was too hard to bring Charizard in safely without rocks going up. So I found my best strategy was just to set up and just, let it rip. That's what I did. So I had the balls to kind of stay in here, and then also to roost, because I just figured they wouldn't want to let Nidoqueen go down for no reason. You can see, even with the Occa Berry, Fire Punch is enough to like just punch through it. So now Nidoqueen's in, we're going to trap and remove it. So it's going to Shadow Ball me here. It's going to do a ton. I'm going to Future Sight. I'm going to Protect here as it tries to go for Shadow Ball again.
And then let's see what he actually ends up doing here. So Shadow Ball is going to go ahead and knock me out. I think going for rocks might have been a little stronger there, but you can see that does a lot of damage. Actually, it doesn't KO. I think they EV'd their Nidoqueen to a little bulkier. I kind of assumed that they would just be max speed. So we close combat into it. This was very risky. It's tough because I'm outspeed Nidoqueen, but I have nothing to like hit it for good damage. So had I kept Iron Head, I could have hit it with that, but Cobalion gives Gallade too much of an opening. So I had Taunt to at least stop it from getting more than one SD off. Here you can see I just get the critical hit with Stone Edge, so I don't even need to use my Z move. But I'm going to switch out here on the Tailwind, right? They're just going to let Rotom kind of take this beating. And here you can see I switch into Cobalion. I bait out the Z move beautifully, and now I can safely wall Greninja for the rest of the game because Grass Knot just does nothing. So lucky pump. If it hit, it was a roll. And then, of course, I hit my Stone Edge because I'm a beast. So that felt pretty good. Gallade comes in here, and I'm just going Aegis Slash every single time, right? So the game, both games, kind of came down to this 50-50. So here I'm going to King Shield. He's going for this Throat Chop. I think Knockoff actually might do more, but that now makes it safe for me to go for my Ghost move and just scare him out. So every time Gallade comes in is really scary. We're just trying to mitigate that as much as possible. This Rotom is like super defensive. Like actually a lot of these sets, like the Zapdos too, like many of these Pokemon, I think perhaps 4 of these or at least 3 of them are like just max HP and one of the defensive stats. So interesting, but I feel like a little bit too passive. Like definitely let Charizard take advantage of it. Like with Zapdos, if this is not offensive at all, I can sub and it can't even break my sub, which just kind of opens a lot of doors for me. But yeah, so now Rotom, he's got the Tailwind. I don't even really care about the Tailwind, right? Like this is probably faster than me anyways. Kill that with Hydro Pump. You can see I get my Berry back. Like I'm totally chilling. Like the Toxic is not really phasing me. So it's going to go ahead and SD here. This is why we were running Toxic, right? So like maybe could have ran Will-O-Wisp. Shoot, oh my gosh. But Toxic was just, I feel like, suited better. I don't know how else to say that, but now we essentially just spam Protect and we wait for this thing to die. So now I'm going to go Cobalion because, I'm expecting a Shadow Sneak, some sort of a Ghost move, Dark move. Now I've seen his whole moveset. Wow. So he doesn't really have anything to hit Primarina. I really thought he was going to run Leaf Blade, I guess in both of them, because it deals with Rotom so well. But he's not running Leaf Blade. So now we're in a position that we've kind of forced out. Let's actually see what happens, because now I can't even tell what's going on. All right, so we let it die, but like obviously with Toxic damage, it's just taking way too much, and we can just go Aegis Slash and Protect here, and like all of these guys will beat Gallade, so I'm not really worried about preserving any of them. It's kind of just throwing whatever at this Rotom until it goes down, and then whatever's left should just be able to clean up Gallade. So let's see Thunderbolt again. I'm gonna go ahead Shadow Claw. I think it's probably going to clean me up right here. I didn't want him switching into Gallade and like getting into some sort of position where all of a sudden there's like mind games again. So here I can even Dragon Dance. I'll take the Thunderbolt. Thunder Wave I don't think would have been that big of a problem anyway because I'm still KOing this. But now, it gets to do like a little bit of chip damage and I just take him out. So it didn't really matter. The endgame was pretty locked up at that point, like obviously with Primarina just being able to Moonblast. So that felt pretty good game 1. Maybe a little lucky, but I think overall, like their team was just a little bit too defensive. Allowed me to kind of break through. Having Roost on Charizard and making some really good plays with when to Roost and when to set up was like totally instrumental. And then of course I won the 50-50 with Gallade, which I think really the whole game kind of depended on. So here we're going to go ahead, be in a similar situation. This time we're going to go Rotom and get the Hydro Pump off, and you can see that does 62. Wow, this guy's really bulky. But, I can defog here. I don't really mind about him taking me down. He misclicks, so I think he meant to get Rocks up again or maybe hit me, but instead Earth Power. So now I'm like, Hydro Pump is 100% accurate because the defog. Just want to force him out again. What's really important is Rocks not going up. So now the Ferrothorn comes in. It's got the Leech Seed up. Again, it also has Aqua Berry, but ends up not really mattering. So I Future Sight the first turn, again because I'm a G. You can see this does nothing, but all I need to do is kind of get rid of the Aqua Berry, and then it's like, all right, Charizard at any point can come in and cause some damage, right? So I even bring it in here preemptively just because, it's got Knockoff, it's got these other moves. I figured he wasn't going to Leech Seed again. Like, this is a pretty free turn, and I can set up here. So also a little bit of chip from the Future Sight, but now I'm feeling pretty good, right? I'm like, if he has Thunder Wave, so be it. And he has Tailwind. Okay, this is weird, but like, he's not really threatening me, so I can kind of just keep setting up. So that's what I do, is I keep setting up. Yeah, he got the Toxic off, but, you know, you can see really not doing that much damage. So now I go for the Outrage because I want to be able to completely just hit this Zapdos once, not have it be a problem. Where, like, I'd have to spend 2 turns knocking it out. Here, he actually protects. So I think this is an interesting play because had he not protective, yes, he probably would have died, but I also probably would have died to Toxic, and I think that would have been better for him. So I guess it's hard for him to know that, though, because he doesn't know what my team is. He doesn't know I'm Heal Bell, right? So now, all of a sudden, oh my gosh, Charizard's in a great position again. So I've used this. Now, reposition Charizard where I got the second wind. I can Roost again, and, you know, he's going to Gyro Ball, but Gyro Ball? I don't know, Gyro. I don't know why I said Gyro. Gyro, I don't even, you know what I mean. But now I'm just setting up again, right? Because I'm like, you have no status move. I can Roost. I can continually set up. Nidoqueen comes in, and now I was like, okay, now I'll actually start attacking, right? And I'm just going to be going for Fire Punch. I really don't want to lock into Outrage because Ferrothorn can kind of wall me and be a problem. That's why I don't go for Outrage there, right? Because look what he does. He goes right into Ferrothorn. So I'm like, whatever. I can just kind of take this slow. Pivot out again. Come back into Zard. The Leech Seed actually misses that time. I mean, we're totally off the races now. So now I'm like, okay, he's going to try to stop me. Now I'm just going to Fire Punch. And interestingly, maybe I could have stayed in and Dragon Danced instead and then perhaps even won the game right there and then, but I figured that this was maybe, like, I just wanted to remove Ferrothorn. Maybe that's a choke, but I didn't want to take, like, too much damage from Rocky Helmet, Leech Seed, Protect, stuff like that. So, Volt Switch out. I mean, you can obviously, like, he could have Z-moved me there, and I kind of called that he wouldn't. And in this situation, I could have gone for the Z on Rotom, but I didn't really want to. I just figured, like, I don't really need to. And again, like, if he goes into Gallade, it just causes problems. And that's, like, an insane call for him to make. But I just didn't even want to leave that possibility on the table. So now I'm going to Volt Switch, going to Charizard. And I don't think he has Thunder Wave at this point because he has Will-O-Wisp. And indeed, he doesn't even have Discharge. And I was like, you know what, even if he does have Discharge, I can, like, make something work. So here, I'm in a potential spot where I maybe could win the game or get very close. He gets 4 hits of Water Shuriken. So if he got 3 or less, I would have just knocked him out and forced him into Gallade, which would have helped. This was so dumb. I should have just protected here. This was awful because I could have protected. I could have been in like way more HP and lived like a Rotom Thunderbolt. That could have been like really bad. So not good. So I'm gonna let this Rotom like fall instead. And again, if he goes into Gallade, I had Toxic to kind of slow it down a little bit. Now, like, all right, fine, like, we can just burn the Z move and get through this, because now Rotom actually matches up well into my last 2 guys because I let Primarina take that Z move, so that was awful. So now, of course, he's going to Swords Dance. Now I'm not feeling so good, so I taunt. Okay, we got the taunt off. Now I need him to kill me. So here's the thing is, he's kind of smart enough to, like, try to not kill me so he can get another Swords Dance up, because if he gets the Swords Dance up, it's kind of game over. So he's going to do all this stuff. I guess he doesn't actually know if I'm Shadow Sneak or not, but you can see he finally does go for that there because I start doing some damage with Iron Head. So I'm glad that I had Iron Head as well. And I make the call here that he is going to try to set up again. And he also thought I was Colbur Berry, so it was nice that I didn't reveal my item, which is why he didn't go for that Throat Chop. So I just figured it's not really a 50-50. It's actually a little bit in my favor because, again, if it's Colbur Berry, he just loses on the spot. So he's going to try to play like around that, you know, and have me choke, and I did not choke. So this time we end up winning, and this was a 2-0. So I did have a little bit of leniency if there was a third game, but I did make those correct calls, and that felt really good to have that one be squeezed out. So now we're in the championship. Yahoo! So we're looking at this team again, and we're seeing a lot of problems. I think Scizor and Keldeo are complete non-issues. Like Scizor, I have Charizard and Rotom, which just completely wall it. And Keldeo, I have Primarina, which again just completely walls it. And also does super well into Latias and several other members of his team. Takes a lot from Landorus Sludge Wave. But other prep, just kind of looking at this. The name of the game when I was initially testing this was Get Rid of Aloe. Because once I get rid of Aloe, Charizard just destroys the entire rest of his team. I was very shocked that there was no Alomomola the first time that we played. And so I was like, you know what? No more nonsense. I'm bringing Charizard this time, and I will go ham all over your team. I also had my very interesting Talonflame come into play here, which I'm like, you know, obviously even if he brings Scizor, it's not going to be a problem. And even if he brings Keldeo, like Talonflame covers both of those as well, right? We just have so many answers to those guys. Talonflame also has a couple other interesting uses, right? So instead of Gale Wings, we're actually going to be running Flame Body to try to take care of these 2 attackers that otherwise were causing huge problems for my team. Of course, this makes
two Pokemon with huge Stealth Rock weaknesses, huge Rock weaknesses, making Lycanroc like way more effective against my team. And Rock's just a huge problem, which has 3 different Rockers. So I had to be careful about defogging. I think about how I'm going to do that. With Cobalion, I thought about running some sort of Z set with Z Focus Blast, trying to just like do a lot of damage to Mawile. Obviously, I can outspeed Landorus, take less from Latios, and like maybe get something going from there. But I just kind of got walled by Alomomola too much without Volt Switch, and then of course I'm losing my boosts. Mesprit also walled me a certain amount. So there was an interesting mixture of things to go for. Pangoro also did quite well into his team, but obviously like it's another Pokemon that's pretty slow, so I was thinking about ways to get around that. I did consider using Trick Room, so having Trick Room with Pangoro and also Primarina, and it's kind of weird because like them and Mawile are at a similar speed tier, so at least they're faster. So I'm like, okay, if I max out their speed, they'll be faster than Mawile. If he doesn't run max speed, or if he runs a Mawile with max speed, max attack, it's super frail. So that, I guess, makes other Pokemon that normally would only do 80 do like, 100. But I was really scared of max speed. Mawile was also really scared of Rock Slide because they could call a switch of me going into Talonflame or going into Charizard and just kill me right then and there. So I was really concerned about that as well, but I figured that was such a weird option. I didn't necessarily want to prepare for it, and I also figured, you know what, if that shows up, I can adapt, right? And I can believe in myself as a player to make the adjustments I need to make to bring it back or win in the other 2 games. Also thought about running Choice Scarf Pangoro, but ultimately I ended up going on this weird... I was already running a support set with Talonflame, so it ended up being this pretty serendipitous setup with my whole team. If we want to go look at it now, there's just a lot of different parts that feed into each other. So first of all, we have this beautiful lead. Remember last time, Taunt failed into the Mesprit because it had Mental Herb? Well, I said no more, right? We have Imprison. These Pokemon obviously have very similar movesets because they're very similar Pokemon. So U-turn, you can't pivot out on me. Stealth Rock, you can't set up Stealth Rock on me. Like, we're just going to totally shut that down. This is also great for Landorus. Landorus also uses these 2 moves, and it's nice for Lycanroc. I can stop it from setting up Stealth Rocks, and then I U-turn out as it, tries to hit me, and I go into Pangoro, and then from there I can Bullet Punch to force it out, because Bullet Punch, again, super effective, and with Life Orb and combined with the U-turn damage is enough to knock it out, and you don't have to worry about Sash because it's 2 different hits. From there, I was originally running a Psychic move, thinking about Keldeo or something, but I'm like, come on, there's no way he brings Keldeo. If you look at my team, like Rotom does so well into it, and like Primarina completely blanks it. Talonflame outspeeds and kills with Brave Bird. Like, why would they bring that? So I'm like, all right, I'm not going to bring a Psychic move. We're just going to really spec into Ice Punch, right? So this already, U-turn was good into Latios, but I'm like, we'll just run U-turn, or Ice Punch, sorry, because it does well into Landorus. And that was Pokemon that I was kind of concerned about because I didn't have anything that could handle it great. Like, obviously, Rotom kind of be okay, but it's not fantastic. And then running this very interesting Bugium Z, because if you noticed last time, my U-turns did a lot of damage, but not quite enough. So I'm like, you know what? We're going to run Bugium Z, and this U-turn is just going to be strong enough. We can just OHKO Latios, and then we don't even have to worry about anything. So that was a lot of cool tech. Like, this deals perfectly with very specific members, which I think was like an interesting structure of this team, is that I created a lot of these slots just to specifically beat like 3 or 4 things. But you can imagine, like, I guess U-turn's also strong in a Mesprit, but this just gets totally blanked by Alomomola or, if they have Keldeo even, like, I can't even touch Keldeo, right? Like, it's such a weird moveset, and like Mimikyu, like, I can Ice Punch it, right? Like, what? I guess a U-turn out on the Disguise is pretty good, but it's just a weird set, right? It also just doesn't do very much to Silvally if they end up bringing it. But I'm like, you know what? I'm going to give each of these guys like very specific roles. And again, like, we're trying to counter a few Pokemon that are really going to cause us problems. So then from there, Charizard. And I decided to do something a little weirder this time and just make it max. I also made, these are Kung Fu Panda nicknames, and I made them all shiny because I'm like, you know what? This is for the championship. They put their special jerseys on. Max HP, max attack. Because at +1, I'm already faster than, max speed Latios, and I'm like, you know what, we're just going to make this guy bulky, because I'm going to try to instead use Mimikyu and Mawile as like an opportunity to set up. So we're just going to go max bulk, and then if we need the speed, right, like we can get the speed from Flame Charge. Sometimes there'll be opportunities where my opponent just wants to sack something, especially after I get a Swords Dance up, so we can turn that into a speed boost, and from there the game should just be totally over. But even if that doesn't happen, this was also pretty key for Alomomola, because otherwise, like, I had experimented with a lot of different sets, like Sub,
Roost, Dragon Dance, like mixing those in to try to beat Alomomola, and none of them really cut it. So I'm like, you know what? Even if Aloe shows up, Aloe actually kind of walls some of the other guys. So I was like, you know what? We're actually gonna make Charizard into the Alomomola bait, if you will. So we're just gonna Swords Dance up a bunch and Dragon Claw, and even if we don't kill it, it'll be weak enough that it shouldn't be like a problem the rest of the battle. So Dragon Claw also just, you know, KOs Latios, but also is like a good neutral hit. You don't want to take like recoil or anything, but I did bring Flare Blitz. So I'm like, all right, we're finally going to bring this move because if they have Mesprit or something, like we're just going to put an end to this, right? This also, with the speed boost, I believe just totally KOs Landorus from full. Maybe not, but, you know, we have Rocks, which help out with that. And, you know, for Servali, like maybe some weird Servali set, I didn't want to mess around with anything. Like, we're just going to Flare Blitz. So I thought this was a pretty innovative set, like a weird combination of things. No Roost, no Substitute. We're just trying to really break early game rather than necessarily like win and set up later, but this also can, with Flame Charge, like totally run away with the game. Rotom, you are so trusty. Let's go count right now how many teams of mine he was on. So this one, he was on my 2 playoff teams. He was not in these last 2, but he was week 7, he was week 6, week 5, week 4, week 3, week 2, week 1. Bro, Rotom, this guy put in the most work out of any of my members, I would say. Even like you bring Charizard, you bring Aegislash, these guys are supposed to, you know, go ham every battle. Dude, this defensive profile is just so good, right? Who is drafting grass types? Nobody. And if you're not drafting grass types, like, such a threat. And it's not a threat because it can do like 1,000,000 damage. It's a threat because it has this fantastic stab combination. There's so many different choices in terms of electric move. No choices in terms of water move. Don't tell anybody I said that. Will-O-Wisp, right? You have your choice of 3 different status that you can use, and Defog. It's just so good having Defog, and you're immune to all the like land-based hazards like spikes and everything. This was just lovely again. So again, this is just a way to deal with Aloe, where I come in, you can see I have enough special attack. I just wanted to make Volt Switch like strong enough that it's really weakening Aloe. Like I didn't need to knock it out necessarily because I wanted the special defense for Landorus. Again, Landorus gets Grass Knot. Grass Knot doesn't do any damage to me. It's really funny. He could be like Sludge Wave, and I just was like, I want to be mindful of how many Sludge Waves I can take because Landorus is really scary, and I kind of need Rotom for Landorus, and then, you know, he can also Calm Mind. So I just wanted to make sure to like really shut that down and be able to like knock him out with Hydro Pump, although I guess Calm Mind might have made that dicey, especially because of the accuracy. We got Will-O-Wisp too, so this is something that like Mawile and Mimikyu can't just set up on me because I have the Will-O-Wisp. It also, weirdly enough, does help with Mesprit and Alomomola, just getting in a little bit more chip. And then, of course, Defog, because every once in a while they are going to be able to get rocks up regardless. And if we also look at their rockers, Mesprit really can't do too much. It's good versus Lycanroc. Obviously, it's got like a nice defensive profile for it, and it can Hydro Pump and just knock it out. And Lando, obviously, like Hydro Pump, this is enough special attack to knock out Landorus with Hydro Pump if it doesn't have any bulk, which it's pretty much never going to have any bulk. From there, Pangoro. So I have this really weird 96 speed. I guess we should actually talk about this guy first. This Talonflame set won me this last set. Like, this was so genius. Flame Body, Rocky Helmet. So, you know, when Mawile comes in, when Mimikyu comes in, like, we don't want to allow it to really make any progress. And so every time they attack, it's really hurting them more than it's hurting me. We just roost off that damage. You know, if we're not getting Flame Body procs, we still have Will-O-Wisp. Like, same thing if they want to Swords Dance, right? That's what we have Will-O-Wisp for, is reducing that damage. And then we can set up a Tailwind for our 2 slower members and U-turn out. So same thing with, it makes Charizard better too, right? Because obviously I'm slower than a lot of guys in their team. They don't even know that. But like, the Tailwind can also help out Charizard, right? Where maybe Charizard can come in, it outspeeds Latios, so the Latios switches out into something else, and then I kill that something else with Flame Charge, and now all of a sudden I'm faster than Latios, even outside of Tailwind, right? So you can kind of see how it, we have these slow members, but we have like solutions to that speed problem. And also I EV'd these guys to both be faster than Mawile without that speed boost. But even with Rocks Up, this thing does like a pretty good job of checking Mawile and Mimikyu. Because Mimikyu is just too weak, especially ghost moves. Like all it gets is Shadow Claw. Like that's just not high enough base power. And they're all contact moves, right? So I was worried about Rock Slide on Mawile, but other than that, you think about Crunch, Knockoff, Fire Punch, or whatever other stuff is, Play Rough, right? Any Iron Head sort of move, Sucker Punch, all those are contact moves. So they're taking Rocky Helmet damage, which helps like some of the other damage rolls on the team. Like Rotom can do a lot, can't quite knock it out. It can start putting it in range of Flame Charge, so I don't even have to Flare Blitz. I can preserve HP, and I can get the speed boost. And then U-turn, obviously really good for momentum. Also really good for Latios, right? I can essentially just U-turn back and forth between Azelf and Talonflame and just keep hitting Latios, and then eventually go into Rotom and Volt switch out again. So a lot of switching moves. Obviously, it's just like really good on any team that like Volt turn. But especially when you have like the speed advantage, right? Like that was another weakness of my opponent's team, is Latios is the fastest thing they have, and these guys can just beat it to a pulp with U-turn. But you can see this speed is just enough speed for Latios, and then everything else goes into defense. This was an awesome move set. Yeah, so then from there we got Pangoro. Pangoro has Knockoff, which I drafted this Pokemon specifically because of Mold Breaker, because I was tired of Mimikyu slowing me down. So Knockoff does excellent into Mimikyu. It actually just OHKOs it cleanly. But if we get some other chip, like if we get it through Rocky Helmet or through hazards from rocks, or it has Life Orb, Bullet Punch can also just knock it out straight up through the disguise, right? No nonsense. We also have Parting Shot is nice if we, you know, it weakens things, which also would have been good for Goth. Like I could Parting Shot something as it switches in. It gets its attack, special attack lowered. I go into Goth and trap it. I ended up not going with Goth. I liked my other options a little bit better. I feel like Goth, you know, it's good for removing specific threats, and there weren't specific threats that really were worth removing, if that makes sense. Like everything was kind of a threat, and so I just kind of had to prepare a team for it rather than try to remove one or two parts. Earthquake also was interesting. I originally wanted to do this as a troll to just like hit Latios and hit Mesprit because it ignores Levitate, but it actually does more damage into Mawile than a fighting type move would. And there's no, like, you know, Superpower has a drawback. So let me just go with Earthquake. This actually seems like it would be a better option. And we're running this speed is to outspeed Mawile, but also to be faster than Latios under Tailwind and knock off even if they are Z Crystal, which we were suspecting. I think it still KOs like most variants unless they're very bulky, in which case why are they running a Z move, right? But we got the pivot option just in case. Otherwise, Pangoro, excellent Pokemon into their team. If we just look at some of the other members here. Yeah, also Landorus pretty much dies to knockoff. It dies 100% of the time after Rock. We also have Bullet Punch. And Mesprit, right? We're doing a lot of damage to Mesprit. Also really good for Alomomola because we can knock it off, remove its item, take advantage of that later. Bullet Punch for Lycanroc. I really like this. And then Primarina, no more messing around. So I originally actually had Choice Scarf on Pangoro, and the plan was just to punch holes through everything because this team that I'm going against, like, you know, the defensive background can be broken quite easily, right? The Alomomola and the Mesprit are quite passive. So this I thought was an interesting one as well, where Moonblast, Scald, Hydro Pump, Energy Ball, like Energy Ball's just filler, but this KOs a lot of variants. So even like really good bulk Aloe dies to Energy Ball, but without significant special defense investment, Moonblast does, it's like a roll to kill, essentially. And then with Torrent, these moves just go ballistic. So Scald is also nice because, you know, status, but it also, like if they just switch into Mimikyu, like there's a chance to burn, which could severely cripple them. It also is good for like Lycanroc because you can bring it down to Sash and the burn polishes it off. It's just good to hit other things, but you get to a point where with Torrent, you don't even need to think, you just click Hydro Pump, and even if they go into resist like Alomomola or Latios, it still just does way too much damage. So this combined with the Tailwind was very strong. So I was very happy with this team. It took me a long time to get a team that actually felt like it was clicking. Same with the playoff. Like, I don't even think that my playoff team is necessarily that good. And I had a lot of time. Like, we had like months until we actually had to play this game, so I had a lot of time to like prep and think it over. But I feel like my finals team, I did end up landing on something where like there's a lot of unique techs and it works really seamlessly together. A lot of opportunity to kind of catch the opponent off guard. So without further ado, let's go watch those games, the final games of the season. So this was our first one. Leading off Mimikyu, I thought, okay, interesting, right? They're not going to get rocks up. So I'm also seeing not a lot of rock options. Like only Lando, which like, does it really want to get rocks up that much? And so my double fire flying gambit, if you will, totally pays off. But I see Mimikyu. I'm not thinking. I'm going into Talonflame again. Like, if they want to run Woodhammer for Rotom for Primarina, I like totally wall that, and it's just more chip. So Swords Dance comes out, but like, I got no problem with this. So I will get the burn off on Alomomola. This is also a problem where why I couldn't trap it, because I need the burn so desperately that I can't Toxic it later. So it was hard for Goth to actually kill this. Like, you had to use Thunderbolt or something weird. I didn't want to mess around with that. So also wanted to check their Rocky Helmet. They're not. And then we can see they Toxic me. I kind of expected that they get the Wish off, but Moonblast is too strong. They actually died of the burn chip. So that was really nice. Again, I'm just switching out into Talonflame. They're going for the Crunch there. I was curious about that, because if you look at my team, no one really takes that much damage from Crunch. So this is an example of they prepared too much for Aegislash, because I think it did too well last time while ignoring Charizard. And then I bring Charizard this time, and they're just too prepared for the wrong team. So you turn out here into Azelf. I could have just killed this with Z-Bug, but I thought that they would switch. So instead I U-turn here. I could tell that they were defensive. I didn't really mind, I guess, getting hit there. So we U-turn out again, because that would have killed Latios. We bring this in on Keldeo, and I'm like, well, what is Keldeo going to do here? So I actually Hydro Pump here. I stand by this play, because I'm like, the worst they can do is HP Grass me. That's exactly what happens, and I'm like, this really isn't even that bad of a spot. Like, obviously I end up dying here, and I only do whatever amount of damage. Also, if they had hit me into Torrent, this thing would have had like 2 HP left. But I'm like, okay, whatever. Like, that was a weird play. I wasn't too worried about it. So here, Rotom, like, I think, oh, I can just use Spider Pump. And I see Substitute. I'm like, uh-oh. And then I see Gravity. I'm like, uh-oh. Right? So now I'm looking at my team. I'm like, wait a minute. Like, every single one of these guys gets absolutely packed up by Earth Power. So I'm going to have to kind of pull out some weird tricks here. But, you know, I figure Rotom's probably most expendable. I let Rotom go. And then I end up bringing in Talonflame. I figured, I'm like, you know what? Let's actually just use this as an opportunity to try to close the game out. Like, I tried to take this spot where it looks like I'm up against the corner, and I'm trying to completely reversal it into my favor, right? Because I'm like, you know what? The speed control is not where it needs to be. So I'm like, I'm willing to just sacrifice Talonflame. And as you can see, I get the Tailwind off, and I get totally smoked. But at this point, you know, he's at low enough HP. You know, knockoff is taking somebody to the bank. So we knock off here. Going to go ahead and end up knocking them out. You know, I think they wanted to preserve Mawile, and then the other thing you see, Earthquake does so much that might have even been just like a straight up roll to kill. They don't have coverage for me, right? They were too prepared for Aegislash. All they have is a Dark move, and then they end up Sucker Punching here. I'm still using this as an opportunity. I figured they'd try to sack Mawile. So first of all, Parting Shot, you know, great for setting up on them as well. I could have just gone Charizard here because they already Sucker Punched, so it's not like they can attack again. I was worried about taking a hit. There's no attack, right? Pangoro is actually going second in that turn. I could bring in Charizard safely, and I probably would have just won right then and there, but I forgot about that. But this ends up kind of working out for me, because now I get an opportunity to get up rocks. They're going to go ahead and knock me out. That's totally fine by me. So I got the rocks up because I'm like, okay, if they switch, the rocks, like Mawile's at 3%, this actually will just kill Mawile as it comes back in, so I don't have to worry about, you know, a Sucker Punch later. But no, things could have been a little bit dicey, especially with like maybe a paralysis or something. Anyway, at this point, I feel like I got it pretty backed up, right? So I'm going to go ahead and Flame Charge. This is exactly what we wanted Flame Charge for. Now Latios does not outspeed. Keldeo also does not outspeed. And I'm also like just max bulk. So I guess he's going to scout my moveset. He's going to try to get an Outrage coming out, but I'm going to go ahead and Dragon Claw. And now we're going to Dragon Claw this as well. And I'm big chillin', right? So I never actually even needed to set up. And you can see rocks. We Flame Charge again, just because, like, why not? We're just breaking this up anyways. And they Shadow Claw, you can see that does completely pitiful damage. So they actually were Focus Sash, as you can see from the damage. But that's fine by me, because I'm so bulky, it didn't really matter. And then also, of course, I had Pangoro that, you know, as long as I got any significant damage off, like, I think even from whatever percent it was at, especially also if it was Life Orb and, like, double crit me, I think, you know, Bullet Punch still would have knocked it out. So we win that first game. We're feeling pretty good, you know, with that Tailwind comeback. Like, Tailwind just ended up being really strong. I think not something that my opponent expected. This game, they're going to lead Keldeo. So this was nuts. My moveset has not been very revealed, if you will. Zen Headbutt just does 100, and that's originally what I was running. Like, this is crazy that this just stayed in to hit me, right? To hit me with what? A Calm Minds here. All right, whatever. I'm just going to U-turn here. You know. I got my rocks up. He did not know that I did not have Zen Headbutt. So I go into Rotom, and I'm like, okay, like, he's going to switch out here, right? Doesn't switch out, sets up more. I'm like, all right, we've had enough of this nonsense. I know what we're going to do. Maybe you're going to Z-move. Maybe you're going to Hidden Power Electric. It's just not going to do enough. Like, this was what was going on the first time. It's like, dude, this just doesn't do enough damage. So removed, goodbye. And like, what else are you going to switch into, right? I'm a Moonblast freak. Here's another thing. This move from Latios, like they're going to predict some sort of switch, go for Shadow Ball here. That didn't even kill Primarina. I could have just stayed in Moonblast, which is nuts. Like, obviously, I don't think that was a smart play, but it's crazy to even think that that was a possibility. That if I had tried to sack Primarina, oh my god, Latios would be gone. This game would pretty much already have been over. So I get this crit here. I don't think this ends up mattering because you can see I go right back into Primarina. Torrent boosted Scald. No one's taking this, right? Like, this is so powerful. It goes into Landorus. But I figured they're forced to knock me out because I do so much damage. Earth Power, Master Shifu, and now, again, I figured that they would... This was maybe a little bit too much. I should have just attacked, right? Because they didn't have much of a team left. But I figured that they would predict that I had some sort of option to take out Landorus, like a Z move or something, because my Z hasn't been revealed. And I figured that they would switch, which is why I went for the U-turn. Instead, all right, we're going to go through all the gravity nonsense again, whatever. But now I'm just faster. I'm like, I'm not even going to do the Tailwind stuff this time. Like, I'm just going to knock you out. And so Mimikyu comes in. If it wants to Shadow Sneak me, fine. I'm just going to break those skies, puts him in a really tough spot. Honestly, I think I could have even just gone Charizard here and just won. But it Swords Dances. I get the Tailwind up. I'm like, I'm totally fine with you KOing Talonflame. Like, it takes so much. You know, at this point also, Bullet Punch would have just been totally safe as well. But now it's in this weird position where it actually doesn't kill me. So I'm like, great, now I got this Tailwind up for no reason. I'm like, whatever. I can literally just like roost off all this damage now, right? So they're going to keep Swords Dancing and doing whatever. My Tailwind's petering out, but it's also, they're just taking too much damage. So now I'm like, all right, whatever. We'll go Primarina, try to sack this. They don't even attack. They set up again. All right, whatever, right? They Shadow Claw here. But at this point, this feels pretty locked up. So I was kind of confused with some of the plays, but I'm like, you know what? Everything's working out for me. I'm not really going to complain. So now, eventually, they're going to die between the Rocky Helmets and everything else. If they were Life Orb, man, Talonflame would have just eaten them alive. But now Pangoro can just come in. So they could have swapped here. They could have tried to make some other plays. Zard was not a guarantee to win here because if he was faster with Draco, that could have been a problem. You know, and some sort of switching. There could have been more switching at the end here, but Pangoro really, I think, just locked this up because Mawile can't really do any damage to it. As you can see, Fire Fang is the most damage it does. And so even with that, with Sucker Punch, like double resisting Sucker Punch, Earthquake just takes that out. And I end up winning the league. So, fun time, great league. This guy right here actually ended up setting up a league and it was a good time. So again, thank you for having me out. I had a great opportunity playing around with, you know, especially Gothitelle and some of these more fun Pokemon, especially at the end. Trading for like really niche picks. Had a really good time. Playing draft, it's like a fun thing to kind of do every week with my downtime. It's just like check calcs or think about, oh, what do I want to bring next week? And I got a lot better. Like you can see, these earlier teams definitely had a lot more holes in them. Like especially this loss was pretty bad. But I cleaned up my act and then from there took it to the bank. So proud of my performance, especially because again, after this week, you know, I lost one game at the beginning of this set, and then I did not lose a single game the entire rest of the season all the way out to the finals. So glad that I was able to adapt. Fun team, fun league. Yeah, perhaps I'll do one in the future, but probably not for a long time because it was a pretty big time investment, but I'm glad I did it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed learning about my draft experience, and maybe this will motivate you to maybe try draft because it is a very cool format. You get to use a lot of things that you never would be able to use normally, like Aegislash, like Shadow Tag, like Landorus, like some of that other nonsense. So that's all. Have a good one. Bye-bye.